Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the D and WhatIf, with another fanfiction. This is the first part of What If Deku Became Japan's Guardian. All credits for this video go to their respective authors, so please support the real author. Check out the link in the description for more details. Please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. I know that no one is born equal, muttered a 4-year-old Izuku Midoriya shakily as he stood in front of the injured boy that was being bullied before he intervened. His small body trembled as he held up his shaking fists, green eyes wide in terror as he stood his ground. But that doesn't give you the right to use your quirk to harm others, Kaken, he shouted vehemently, his body language betraying his fear. Oi, Deku, said an ash-blonde-haired kid with red eyes as he started to grin evilly. Who the hell do you think you are telling me what I can or can't do, huh? He smacked one first into his other palm and the sound of a small firework resounded in the curiously deserted park as a small explosion resulted from the actions of the red-eyed kid. Izuku shook his head in disbelief as he stared at his former friend. While Katsuki Bakugo had never been what you would call a nice kid, he never used to go out of his way to hurt and belittle others before his quirk manifested. After that happened a few months ago, Katsuki changed for the worst and now he never let any chance to bully anyone with a weaker quirk than him or with no quirk at all. And while Izuku fell in the second category, as his own quirk has yet to manifest, he was not about to stand aside and do nothing while Katsuki used his gift to hurt others. If there was one thing Izuku hated above all was when those with power preyed on those weaker than him. Being so young, he couldn't put into words, but Izuku knew that with certainty. Those with the gifts of a quirk should only use them to help others or humanity progress in general. It was logical thinking, and these kids are being illogical. You are worthless, yelled the chubby kid from his position on the air, his red bat wings being the reason why he could fly. Actually, he is quirkless, but it's basically the same, shouted the other kid, whose fingers on the left hand were stretched until they were longer than he was tall many times over. Izuku grit his teeth as he shakily stood his ground. My quirk has yet to manifest. That's true, but if you use your quirks to harm others then you don't deserve them. The two boys flanking Katsuki glared at him and the ashen blonde-haired boy twitched, and his face contorted into an ugly scowl of anger and scorn. You are overreaching, Deku, he shouted before he shot himself forward, followed by his lackeys, and they began to hit Deku all over his body, making him cry in pain as tears leaked from the corner of his eyes. While this happened, the kid that Izuku was trying to protect quickly stood up and ran away without looking back. Now in a world of pain after being hit in the liver, Izuku wished for it to go away. As much as he wanted to help, like any other sane kid his age, he disliked pain of any kind, and when pain that was above of what could be endured, the first instinct was to stop interacting with the cause of that pain. Since Izuku was being pinned down from all sides as he was punched all over, he couldn't get up and escape. A few seconds later, Katsuki and his friends stopped pummeling the unconscious form of Izuku. With a derisive scoff and spitting next to the unmoving body of the one he saw not even worth the air he was breathing, someone that was a waste of space, he turned around and walked away. His two lackeys laughing as they bragged to each other about the beating they just gave to Izuku. You better give up. It is impossible for you to develop a quirk, said the doctor almost uncaringly as he stared, seemingly bored, at the young kid and his mother. Inko Midoriya's eyebrow twitched in irritation at the way the doctor had so crassly said something that could possibly crush her dear son's spirit. Her eye flicked towards him and she gave a sigh of relief when she saw that he was more confused than anything else, though he was also speechless. She had taken him to the doctor to treat the injuries he sustained at the park for falling to the ground. That was, he told her at least, while he was playing, and they had taken the opportunity to check why his quirk has yet to manifest. Is there something wrong with him, doctor? Other kids his age have already manifested their quirks and my Izuku is the only one in his kindergarten that hasn't yet, she said, her voice sharp when she asked the question but turning worried as she continued speaking. The doctor med in though for a second. You are a 4th generation, if I'm not mistaken, right madam? I am, of course, speaking in terms of quirk. Inko nodded and she wiggled her fingers and the All Might figurine that had been resting in her son's lap came floating towards her. Yes, I can attract small objects to me and manipulate them a bit, she explained. Her countenance darkened a bit and her eyebrow twitched in irritation again. And my dear husband can breathe fire. As much as she loved Hisashi, Izuku's father, his penchant for getting jobs abroad and only being home for a total of maybe 2 months per year was a source of anger for Inko. The doctor nodded, and he motioned towards an X-ray of Izuku's left foot. The norm for a quirk to manifest is 4 years old at the most. Your son has already reached that age a few months ago and he has yet to manifest his quirk. If you take a look at this, you can see that your son has 2 joints on his pinky toe. As quirks began to manifest in people, the presence of a second joint in the pinky toe has been proven to be absent in those who have developed quirks. This means that the chance for your son to develop a quirk even as a late bloomer, of which there have been a few cases throughout history, is less than 0, he explained bluntly. Inko resisted the urge to hurl the All Might figurine at him, and she settled for glaring at him for the ungentle manner in which he was crushing her son's dreams. She turned towards her Izuku to assure him that everything was going to be all right and that she loved him with all her heart despite him not having a quirk. Her eyes widened, however, when saw her gentle and polite son glaring heatedly at the doctor too. It seemed like he had inherited something more than her looks from her. You know, you can at least sugarcoat it, Sir Izuku said with an annoyed tone. It doesn't matter what you think anyway. You have a quirk and you are no hero, so I don't have to listen to you. Izuku was giving the man an icy look, and Inko felt proud. The man shuddered slightly but cleared his throat. Well, you said it, boy. With a quirk I couldn't, so you should give up. Well, quirks aren't everything because some people use it for bad, like Katsuki did to me this morning. Well, kids play rough, and it's not me who tells kids what to do. Maybe you bothered them, kid. Already fed up with his attitude, Inko sharply stood up before she grabbed Izuku's hand and gently pulled him off his own chair. That's quite enough, doctor. Thank you for time. I will leave your payment with your secretary at the front door, she said stiffly before bowing slightly. Pulling her son along with her, she left the doctor's office. As he was being dragged away, Izuku turned around and glared at the doctor. Said doctor locked eyes with Izuku for a moment, and he shuddered as he felt the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. Everything went back to normal when the mother and son duo disappeared behind the door that was closed with more strength that was strictly necessary. Shaking his head at the odd occurrence, the doctor turned back to his work. Izuku, why did you lie to me about how you got hurt in the park? Asked Inko, not unkindly but with a certain sternness that told Izuku that should he lie to her again he was going to regret it the moment they got home. Izuku sighed for a second before he looked down to his feet. I didn't want for Katsuki and the others to get in trouble, even if it's illogical, said Izuku honestly. As much as he hated what Katsuki Bakugo had turned into after getting his quirk, he was still friends with the Katsuki Bakugo that didn't have a quirk. It was because of those fond memories that he didn't want to get his former friend in trouble, but he probably should. Seeing the conflict in her son's eyes and knowing that kind of relationship he used to have with Katsuki, Inko sighed with fond exasperation as she knelt down in front of him and wrapped her arms around him. Being so noble is something worth admiring, Izuku, but if you don't let Bakugo-kun learn that his bad actions have bad consequences, then he is never going to learn that what he is doing is wrong. And if he doesn't learn that soon, then he will eventually mess with someone that is not going to take his bull, someone that will strike back harder than even he could handle. Izuku looked up at his mother as she told him this, and as he analyzed her words he nodded in understanding and acceptance. Izuku was smart enough, even at his age, to understand what she was saying. For a moment, he wished he could be the one to teach Katsuki the wrongness of his ways, but the fact that he couldn't control his own quirk and his surprising lack of interest of renewing his friendship with him lead up to his decision of just letting him be. If his mother was right, Katsuki would learn eventually. He just hoped that when that time came it wouldn't be with dire and permanent consequences for him. Seeing that she managed to make her son understand, Inko smiled. Though if one looked closely enough one could see how strained it was. While Izuku was unwilling to let Katsuki be punished for his bullying, Inko had a very different opinion on the matter. It seemed like she was going to have a talk with Mitsuku very soon. After that day, the rest of the year until Izuku was 5 was to say the least a disaster. Katsuki became a bully that bothers everyone. The teachers turn a blind eye and Katsuki does what he wants. To save himself, Izuku just said that he gave up being a hero. He stopped talking about it, stopped talking to other kids, and finally started studying on his own since his teachers were both incompetent and quirkiest. It bothered him, but he managed. At first the new attitude worked, but Katsuki started chasing him for no reason with his lackeys and he got sick of it. Izuku and his mother were both sitting at the dining table. His first year in preschool was disastrous and he was sick of it. He wasn't even in elementary school and he grew tired. Logically speaking, with his mother is the best option so they could discuss the best solution for this problem. After they finished dinner and his mom washed the dishes, Izuku asked her to talk and she nodded without hesitation. After she was done, she picked her son and put him in her lap. Izuku happily embraced his mom as she sat on the couch so they could talk. "What's wrong, honey?" Inko asked, and Izuku sighed in frustration. "I want to be homeschooled," Izuku said, and his mother was surprised. "Well, better get to the point since Izuku was never a person to stall." "Why?" "Izuku, tell me," Inko said, and Izuku sighed. "The teachers are incompetent and quirkiest. The kids are mean and Katsuki is a delusional, arrogant brat who thinks the world owes him something. Why do I have to deal with any of that? I'd rather stay home and study on my own. I'm better off that way anyway." Izuku kept ranting with his mother listening and patting his head gently. By the time he was done, all she did was sigh in defeat. "Fine, homeschool sounds better than kindergarten in Aldera district, so I'll allow it," Inko said him, "but you have to study hard," his mom added sternly. Yes, I'll make you proud. No more jerks to deal with. Izuku started jumping in her lap and she giggled. Maybe it's better if he doesn't go to Aldera District. The rumors about discrimination is disturbing to say the least. Inko had started and finished his transfer to the online schooling platform they had settled on. It was one of the nicer ones with courses from kindergarten to a college level. Neither of the Midoriyas knew there are so many options for online schooling, but they would happily take full advantage of it. Izuku would be able to start working right away once he settled at home and started his new schedule. Izuku was also drowning in his free time because of how easy the courses were. He found studying to be fun when there wasn't quirkiest teachers breathing down his neck and classmates calling him stupid all the time. He could move from a lesson to another quickly without needing for his classmates to keep up. He was always Slater. No bragging, just a truth. He was always smarter than other kids, and now he can put this to good use. By the time he was 6, he finished the elementary school curriculum and he had his mom checking to confirm it. That day they cried tears of joy for the whole day. After that, his mom called the Bakugas and both his uncle and aunt were overjoyed and even came over for a celebration. Bell ring. Inko opened the door and smiled brightly. Mitsuki-chan, you came. Mitsuki grinned widely. Of course, the little guy finished elementary school in a year. That's something worth celebrating. The blonde woman laughed as she entered, followed by her husband and son. Hello there, Inko. Thanks for the hospitality, said Masaru as he entered, followed by a grumbling Katsuki. Of course, thanks for coming. Inko smiled at seeing that her best friend came with her husband for Izuku, but she was worried about her sauce reaction for Katsuki's presence. As they entered, the Bakugos noticed Izuku sitting on the table writing in a notebook. Mitsuki cleared her throat, which caught Izuku's attention. Izuku looked to his side to see his aunt waving at him. Izuku smiled and walked to them. Hello, Uncle and Auntie, Izuku greeted with a slight bow. And the woman ruffled his hair. Congrats, brat. A whole 6 years in one. What the hell do you eat? Mitsuki asked, grinning, and Izuku shrugged. Whatever my mom makes. Mitsuki laughed and her husband smiled. Good job, young man. Masaru looked at his son Katsuki say something and Izuku frowned. Why did you run from school, you nerd? The blonde boy snapped. Izuku tilted his head. I didn't run. I hated in there. The teachers suck and the kids too. Plus you are there, so I didn't want to deal with you, Izuku answered simply. Seething, Katsuki grabbed Izuku's collar. What that's supposed to mean, Deku? Izuku shrugged. You're a bully and think the world owe you something, so I left to not deal with you, Izuku answered simply. Who do you call a bully? I'm gonna be the best damn hero. Izuku just shrugged carelessly. Go ahead. I don't care. Before Katsuki could explode, his mother smacked him on the head. Cut it off, you brat. Mitsuki dragged him to sit on the table and Masaru sighed and apologized. At dinner, Katsuki kept glaring at Izuku's side in exasperation. Katsuki, if you have something to say it, Izuku deadpan. You are a coward, Katsuki growled. And you're a bully. So we're even, Izuku shrugged. I'm not a damn bully. Yes, you are. No, I quote am not. Izuku raised an eyebrow. You pick on weaker kids and insult everyone. You turned on me when you found out that I'm quirkless and you still call me Deku. I'm just looking for you, you moron. Katsuki snapped and Izuku looked at him skeptically. Excuse me? Izuku asked in annoyance. I'm helping you grow a fucking spine, you moron. Katsuki yelled and Izuku started to question the boy's sanity. The adults in the room were baffled. How are you doing that? I was trying to make you fight back, to get you to stand up for yourself, but you just run away. How will you be a hero if you keep running? Izuku sighed, realizing that his old friend was just a moron with good intentions, and the adults started to explain why it was wrong to do what he does. By the time he was 8, Izuku finished junior high and another party was thrown. This time the atmosphere was friendly and the time with Kaken was filled with playing, jokes and friendly bickering. After that day, Izuku started doing sports and hanging out with Kaken, and yes, he calls him that now. They play together again and even scuffle with other kids sometimes. In addition to his schoolwork, Izuku started doing martial arts and physical exercises to strengthen himself and even started to participate in the fights Kaken picks with other kids. As long as they were bad, Izuku doesn't mind beating up anyone that does wrong. The dojo he went to was basically teaching mixed martial arts, combat techniques, and grappling, which was perfect to Izuku. As he started training there, he was thrilled by how fun it was. He got to learn how to fight and spar other kids his age and older ones. He even beat teenagers by the time he was 10, and while he went to a dojo, Kaken chose a boxing gym. And Izuku felt pity for his opponent since he had that his best friend was stubborn and doesn't go down. Currently, however, the Greenettes were both at home with Inko working on dinner in the kitchen as Izuku was doing his online coursework in his room while listening to the radio. Izuku had loved his new coursework. The site allowed Izuku to work on as much as he wanted to in one sitting. The coursework also left multiple links to the sources the site had, so Izuku could freely dive deep on information binges when something interesting caught his eye. There was an option to text or video call one of the teachers if he wanted someone to help him through it. He didn't want someone to, but having the option was still nice. Izuku was happily typing up an essay for a test that he strongly suspected was a re-review of all his classes, as there were questions from all the classes. The review was quite easy since it was just a once-over of subjects he had covered previously, and the curriculum was a decent handful of new ones and some that went deeper on some topics that Izuku knew well from the previously mentioned info binges. Izuku finished the test in about an hour and expected the next assignment to pop up per usual, only for a congratulations message to come up instead, and baffled he read it, hoping to get some clarification from it. When he realized what exactly it was congratulating him for, he made a choked squeak. His noise of distress had been loud enough for his mother to hear Izuku. Inko called from the kitchen, worried over the odd noise. Izuku would have answered, but he was too caught up rereading the message because he couldn't be reading it right. Worried he had done something wrong, Izuku took his laptop and walked into the kitchen. Mom, Cece, could you check my work? I think I messed something up, he asked, a bit baffled. It wasn't uncommon for Izuku to have her double-check his work, though it rarely needed any correction with how smart her boy was. Still, even she was surprised by the message, since it was congratulating her son on graduating high school. She blinked confused and brought up the index page for Izuku's program, and upon reviewing the assignment list she saw Izuku had indeed finished all the middle-high work. Inko felt a small bloom of pride well up in her chest as she absorbed the information that her son had completed high school. Kaken joked about having an intervention about his quick schoolwork, but Izuku just scoffed at the idea and hit him on the arm as they were playing video games in his room. So we gonna be heroes together, huh? Katsuki smirked and Izuku shrugged. Katsuki scowled. Hey, don't you dare say you back down. Izuku frowned. Not really. It's just that I checked and no hero school takes quirkless kids. I can't be a hero if no hero school teaches me, Izuku answered simply. Katsuki stomped to his laptop and googled the info about hero schools and their policy on the quirkless before he yelled and started a chain of curses that gave profanity a new meaning. Fucking shitty quirkiest motherfuckers, Katsuki screamed, and Izuku sighed in exasperation and a bit of fondness at his childhood friend and almost brother. You know, Kaken, I'm worried about how you'll keep your kids from cursing when you can't stop. Fuck off, nerd. I'll be a great dad. And the best husband too. Really, what's your type? Izuku was intrigued. Well, she must be tough, a good cook, good with housework, love kids. Oh, and she must be cute as hell. Izuku rolled his eyes at the fantasy girl. In a house in Kamino, a girl with blonde hair tied in two messy buns and yellow slitted eyes sneezed. So what now? Katsuki snapped and Izuku shrugged. I'll find something else, Izuku said simply. How are you? I unbothered. Izuku shrugged. It's illogical to pursue a career that the government won't allow me to. I'll do something else. Cut the logical bullshit. I'll find something else. I'll Google it tonight. Whatever. Izuku sighed as he entered his house. It's been a long day, with Katsuki throwing a temper tantrum about the bullshit laws against the quirkless in the hero course school. He thought about applying and suing if he was rejected, but that means he'll have to wait for at least 5 years depending on the chance of winning the trial in the court. No, it would probably be best to do some research when he got home. There had to be other people out there that realized they couldn't be heroes, right? Maybe he could do some digging online and find out what careers they went into. His mother hugged him tightly, and as they ate dinner they discussed the possible courses he can take in college. Izuku was intrigued by quirk science since he was fascinated by quirks. Then he'd study business and maybe electrical engineering since he learned programming in his high school courses. After that he took a shower and then sat down with his laptop to look into alternate careers. The question now was what to type into the search engine. What to do when you can't be a hero. The search algorithm must be designed to search for any word in the entered phrase, because the top results were all interview clips from various pro heroes giving the anyone can be a hero speech. Lies. Halfway down the page, however, Izuku finally saw a result that looked halfway like what he was actually searching for. He clicked on the link and it took him to a thread on one of the hero forums. A user a few years ago had asked, I just took the exams for several different hero courses and didn't get in. Being a hero was all I ever wanted to do, so what should I do now that it isn't an option? Well, Izuku hadn't quite gotten to the point of actually taking the UA entrance exam, but the rest applied pretty well. He scrolled through the various answers. A lot of them just offered condolences and told the asker to talk to the career counselor at their school. Izuku wanted a job where he could actually help people. A few people suggested being a doctor, but Izuku didn't think he wanted that. Policeman might be a good option, but then again, he wasn't sure if he could take all the paperwork. If he didn't have what it took to be a hero, why would he have what it took to be a cop? He was just about to close the browser and go to bed when a comment with a large thread caught his eye. Well, if you didn't get into the hero course, you can always be a vigilante. Most of the replies to that were exactly what Izuku suspected they'd be, basically bullying the commentator for suggesting something so obviously illegal. Izuku shouldn't even be thinking about this. It's illogical to consider it, but wait. He should research what the topic is about first before judging. Izuku opened another tab. It wouldn't hurt to do some more research on vigilantes, right? The more he learned, the more he'd understand that this was a completely illogical idea that he absolutely should not do. It was obviously stupidly dangerous and had a very good chance of killing him, right? There wasn't a whole lot of information on particular vigilantes, at least not as much as there was on the legal heroes. Heroism was often based on fame, but apparently most vigilantes didn't get very popular. But popularity wasn't very important to Izuku. He didn't really need to be popular to be happy. Fame was for people like Kaken who deserved it. Then, around midnight, Izuku read a research paper about a group a few years ago called the Naruhodo Vigilantes. It was by a college student who apparently hadn't gone on to do any more serious research, but it did give a decent overview of vigilantism in general and how illegal heroes were seen by the general population. According to the Japanese government, vigilantism is defined as using one's quirk in an unauthorized act of heroism. The vigilantes of Naruhodo definitely fit the bill, but do people see them as evil, like the government proclaims, or as good? Izuku read the first sentence a total of 5 times before looking up the actual law. At least according to the government, quirkless people couldn't technically be vigilantes. Wait, he couldn't be a vigilante. Izuku didn't end up getting any sleep that night, since by the time he'd finished reading all the various laws on self-defense and quirk usage, the sun was already rising. He should still probably find some way to conceal his identity, since he didn't want to make his mother worry. But, well, there was no law preventing him from risking his life to help people. After he was done doing the first research, he sighed as he went to the bathroom and took a shower. After cleaning himself, he put on new clothes and brushed his teeth. Maybe I should get Kaken's opinion on the matter. He's reckless but smart. Maybe he can give an idea or some hints. Nodding to himself, Izuku exited the bathroom and went downstairs to the living room. Sitting on the dining table, he greeted his mother, who smiled warmly at him. If there's one person he'd love to do anything for, it's his mother. As she put on the food and sit beside him, he decided to see her reaction to vigilantism by indirectly asking, "So Mom, do you think vigilantes are villains?" Izuku asked nonchalantly, and his mother frowned. "Well, they break the law, but if they do more good than bad, then I'm not gonna complain." Inko answered honestly. "Why you planning to be one?" Inko asked suspicions. Izuku laughed. "No, it's just that I bet with Kaken that you'd call them illegal heroes, not villains." "Did you win?" "Yup. Good for you. Thanks. I'm going to study in my room. Goodbye." Izumi kissed his mom on the cheek and ran to his room. Inko smiled to herself. "It grows too fast for me." Inko got up and prepared to go to work. He didn't have martial arts classes today, so no hurry. Later in the afternoon, when Izuku finished his lessons for the day, he called Katsuki. His friend got a phone now and it's lunchtime, so he should pick up. "What the fuck is it, nerd?" "I'm fucking eating," Katsuki yelled on the phone. "Come to my house straight." Katsuki paused his yelling. "I got a solution for the problem." "See you later, nerd." "About fucking time," Katsuki said, excited. Izuku sighed as he decided to do a research on vigilantes. Going to his laptop, he googled about the vigilantism and its laws. And obviously there was a lot of worryings about combating vigilantism, but he kept searching until he landed on a link that compared vigilantes to underground heroes, and the only difference is the lack of listens. Smirking at the slip, he changed his search and started digging on underground heroes and their work. Basically, they catch villains. Obviously, they investigate crimes. Interesting. And they take undercover missions, as well as that take night patrols. Works for me. And they're very protective of their identities and personal info. Man, it's my dream job. Most underground heroes work in the shadows and ambush their opponents, just as I want. And they prefer to stay unknown and hate the media. While I'm signing in, well, this backfired miserably. Izuku was now invested into the vigilante business, and damn it, he was excited. He could sneak in the night and make patrols, stop petty criminals in small numbers, and run off. Never interact with anyone and keep on the move. Bell ring. Izuku raised a brow. His mom shouldn't be here until few more hours. Wait, did Katsuki make it to his house in 10 minutes? Well, he must be excited, so Izuku quickly went and opened the door to see Katsuki grinning widely. "About fucking time. So what school took your application? Is it UA because they know talent when they see one?" Katsuki asked, and Izuku motioned for him to get in. After taking the explosive blonde to his room, Izuku sighed as he thought of how to explain this to his friend without getting blown up or yelled, but he'd rather the latter. "First listen from beginning to end without interrupting, then tell me what do you think," Izuku said, and Katsuki nodded. And then Izuku started explaining about the Google search last night, the vigilantism idea and the similarities to underground heroes and the laws about it. Izuku explained the loophole he'd exploit and his plan about becoming a vigilante. Through the explanation, Katsuki stayed silent with a neutral look on his face. It was unnerving. After a bit of time, Katsuki spoke his opinion. "Nerd. Oh shit, he's gonna blow up. That's fucking genius." Izuku gaped. "You like the idea?" Izuku must be dreaming. "Well, you should get gear first. Some improvised weapons or some shit." Izuku nodded. Also an outfit. You should get something that doesn't get in the way and makes movement easy, something not flashy but not fucking lame. And we should see what we can get you as weapons too. How about a taser and capture tape for restraint and steel pipes, the small ones? Izuku nodded as they grabbed a bunch of papers and they settled on this design. It was a normal dark green bodysuit with a green cowl that has a bunny ears. The ears is to honor the design they made as kids. All memories. After that he needs gloves that resist the electricity for the taser and boots that can help with Parker. He'll have a small backpack with medical supplies for the victims. A golden belt with different pouches for the gadgets. He'll get a taser with his dad's credit card that he sent to him as a gift for graduation from high school and buy metal pipes. He'll get a slingshot and shoot balls filled with Kaken's sweat. And get goggles to cover his eyes. Fucking perfect, exclaimed Katsuki, smacking his lips and looking at the masterpiece they designed. Yup, now how should we get it? Izuku asked. Come by my house tomorrow and we'll sew it together. Katsuki waved him off. Good enough for me. Then we go get the taser and other things. Izuku nodded. How the fuck will you get the taser? Asked Katsuki. Mom has a license, I'll buy with hers. Izuku smirked. Fucking perfect. Katsuki grinned. And that's how Izuku got the first step into a new goal. Izuku and Katsuki were walking through the business district, the former tired and the latter scowling intensely. It doesn't take a genius to see that these two were in the showiest of moods. And do you blame them? They woke up in the early morning and a Sunday to get the needed supplies for the suit, but all they got was being stuck in a huge crowd of people who seemed to be in a need for shopping too. They went to 5 stores so far and they all seemed to have sold the things they were looking for. Not one of the things, but all of it. Izuku and Katsuki exited the 6th store and their temper was running dangerously thin. Remind me why we need this specific cloth, Izuku asked his old friend with a very annoyed tone to his voice instead of his usual neutral one, proving how bothered he is. Because you can't make a fucking bodysuit with normal weak-ass cloth, you fucking moron. You need expandable cloth that doesn't get torn easily. What's the point if you keep fixing the damn thing every fucking night? Katsuki snapped and Izuku sighed. How do you know what it looks like anyway? Izuku asked and Katsuki scoffed and glared at his friend. My old hag is a fucking modern and my old man is fashion designer. I grew up with cloth and sewing tools, Katsuki answered and Izuku nodded. Pinching the bridge of his nose, Izuku nodded in understanding. Come on, this tailor shop should have what we need. Izuku started walking to the shop and Katsuki scoffed. We went to 6 fucking others before. What's the damn point? Katsuki asked and Izuku glared. Katsuki, back you go, get to the fucking shop. Izuku yelled and Katsuki stiffened. Looks like Izuku was the one to lose his cool first. As the two walked to the shop, Katsuki made a note to not piss off his childhood friend. After all, his ribs still hurt from their last spar. As the duo entered the shop, they noticed that it was full of merch and cloth unlike the others. Perfect. This place seems to be the one for them. Excuse me, ma'am, Izuku greeted politely to the old woman who was sitting on the counter reading a magazine. The woman looked at him with a raised brow at the two boys. How can I help you, brats? The woman asked. We need a flexible but strong cloth for hero costumes, you hag. Katsuki snapped and the woman shrugged. Aren't you too young for work? The woman asked, bored. It's for our moms, Izuku lied swiftly and the woman nodded. The woman got up from her chair and took them to the back. Katsuki's eye twitched as the shop was filled to the brim while other shops were like ghost towns. From now on we're shopping from here, Katsuki declared and Izuku nodded. I'll recommend this place to my parents too, Katsuki added, seeing that the price on the merch was more than cheap and the different types of cloth are top quality. Oh, you parents are tailors? Asked the woman, still bored. Now they work in one of these famous-ass fashion companies in Kamino, Katsuki said, and the woman raised a brow. If you make your parents customers of mine, I'll give you a sale, the woman added, and Katsuki smirked. Deal, you old hag, Katsuki exclaimed. Izuku watched the interaction amused. No matter what Katsuki says, he's copy of his parents when it comes to fashion. As the two bought the amount of cloth they need for the bodysuit with a dark green color and some yellow strong cloth for a small cape. As they were done, they left the shop happy to at least get something out of the damn list. All tight now to get the gloves and boots, Izuku declared, and Katsuki nodded. Yeah, let's find some plumbery store and get the necessary shit for the suit, Katsuki said as they entered a store that was few blocks away. As they entered, Izuku went to the cashier to ask for where they can find the items. The man seemed to notice them and smiled. How can I help you, young fellows? Asked the man. Izuku was about to speak until Katsuki answered, gloves and boots. Katsuki said simply and the man nodded. Izuku respected that. Cutting to the point was the most logical approach. Section 3. The 4 corridor. Katsuki nodded in appreciation and the two boys went to the place. There was a lot of options, so Izuku first started looking for something his size. It took a bit of time, but they found white gloves that doesn't conduct electricity and even black boots that seemed made for Parker players. As they were walking back to the cashier, they passed by some belts being tied to the wall and decided to check it out. They found a yellow utility belt with some pouches on it, and one glance at each other was enough to make the decision. They were taking it. As they paid the cashier, he joked about them building some hero gear and they paled. They laughed awkwardly and denied before bolting out of the store. Shit, that was close. We're not that obvious, right? Katsuki asked and Izuku shrugged. Just say we're playing a game or something. Katsuki scowled at that. Hell no. I'm not pretending to be some small-ass child ever. Fuck that. Izuku chuckled at his brother friend. Just kidding, Kaken. Katsuki huffed and rolled his eyes. After that they decided to go have something to eat since it was already high noon. They were here the whole damn morning. Waste of a good damn Sunday morning. As they sit down in a restaurant, they ordered what they wanted and started to chat. So how's school, Kaken? Izuku asked absent-mindedly and the blonde boy scowled. The teachers in junior high are ass-kissers just like the damn elementary school. Katsuki ranted and Izuku was listening intently. Katsuki kept ranting for a bit of time and Izuku listened to him. Some things were weird and even disturbing, like the extreme quirkism and bullying and the neglect from the teachers. By the time they were done, the two boys heard someone slamming their head on the table next to them. Startled, the boys looked to see a girl with pink dreadlocks face down on the table and mumbling some things they couldn't understand. Hey, you okay? Izuku asked and Katsuki rolled his eyes. The girl raised her head as she looked at him and pouted. Now my baby exploded. The girl whined and the boys glazed at each other. I should stop drinking coffee. I heard her wrong, Izuku said as he looked. You heard right. Damn nerd. Hey, how the fuck did your kid explode? And how are you calm? Katsuki snapped at her. Well, I was in my workshop and as I was working on my baby I made a mistake and boom. The girl said. Oh, she means inventions. You mean inventions and shit, right? Katsuki inquired and the girl nodded. Yes, I put my work and passion and hope in my inventions. They're practically my babies, the girl said, beaming at them. The boys shared a glance and shrugged until Izuku got an idea, and before Katsuki could shut him up, Izuku spoke. Hey, do you have any devices on you for me to see? Izuku asked and the girl's face lit up. The girl beamed as she sat beside them and pulled a taser for them to see. Intrigued, the boys examined the device. It seemed well made and similar to the ones you buy at weapon stores. My name is Meihatsu and this is my self-made taser. It's stronger than the normal ones and has a much better battery. Off and it charges faster too. Hatsums explained and the boys seemed impressed. Hey, cross eyes, how much do you want for it? Katsuki asked. You like it? Hatsum beamed and the boys chuckled. How about we go to a private place and we give you an offer for a job? The girl was bouncing in her seat now. Okay, she was too energetic, but her work is trustworthy, so no big deal. As the three got their orders, they had takeouts and went to the girl's working shop. Ta-da, Hatsum said as they got into her garage. It was littered with pieces and thrown devices everywhere. They got in and sit down at a table that the girl cleaned. So what's your offer? The girl asked. The boys shared a glance, and then decided to come clean, so they told her about what they were planning. Well, I'll help with the support gear and items. It's good for a start, she happily exclaimed, and the boys looked at each other. Then the girl grabbed Izuku's wrist and dragged into the house where there was some tools for sewing. She started taking measurements and drawing in a small notebooks. She took what the boys bought and got to work. Hatsums told the boys to sit down in the living room and went to her workshop. Did we just trust our secrets and things to some hyperactive, crazy inventor? Katsuki asked and Izuku shrugged. Well, she's passionate about what she does and she seems to be genuine in her offer to help. Who are we to not give her the chance? Izuku asked and Katsuki scoffed. After that they waited for the girl to finish, and to be fair, the sounds of machines and tools made it seem like an actual workshop. After 3 hours, Hatsums came back with a metal suitcase for a hero costume and the boys were intrigued to see what she got them. Ta-da, Hatsums said as she gave them the case. The boys gaped. No way in hell she finished the whole damn thing in 3 fucking hours. But seeing her proud grin, Izuku went to the garage to change and Katsuki waited for him. As he came back, Katsuki whistled in amazement at his costume. It was a dark green bodysuit with a cowl that had bunny ears, a small yellow backpack hidden beneath the yellow cape that reached his lower back. The gloves seemed to reach his elbows now, and the boots had iron on the toes and heels and protection on the shins and knees. The utility belt had what seemed like a hook gun and taser she showed them before. So what do you think? Hatsums asked and Katsuki scoffed. Fucking great, obviously. When I get to UA, you're gonna be my technician. Got cross eyes, Katsuki said, and Hatsum cheered. My first satisfied customers. Feel free to come back whenever you need something, Hatsum said as Izuku put his costume back into the suitcase. After that they bid their goodbyes and left a beaming inventor, and to be fair, they were satisfied customers. So I guess you had a good day today? Inta asked her son, who was grinning madly. Yup, it was a good day and I met a new friend, Izuku exclaimed. Inko smiled and nodded. Whatever happened put her son in a good, and that was enough. Although she was curious about the suitcase he brought with him. Probably something related to college. Izuku woke up to his alarm at 1 a.m. and quickly silenced his phone. Mom was a deep sleeper, but that still didn't mean he could be as loud as he wanted without waking her up. He used the light from his phone and rifled through his closet until he found the suitcase. He grabbed the things underneath first. A pair of gauntlets Meihatsu made that seemed to absorb kinetic energy and then release it in one quick burst. Then he put on the bodysuit and was amazed at how fitting it was. He put on the gloves that Mei turned into cloth gauntlets and the boots. Then he put on the small backpack that he filled with medical supplies and pulled up his cowl and put on his metal face mask. And finally he put on the utility belt and adjusted the gadgets. Mei was nice and made him a hook gun as well as a taser and smoke bombs. Looking at the mirror he smiled and then opened the window. Jumping outside of his house, Izuku started running through the dark alleyways before anybody noticed him. After a few minutes he went to one of the buildings and aimed his hook gun, shooting it and then using it to pull himself up. Thanks to Mei, the gun can handle his weight so it can pull him up and quickly. The city looked strange at night. During the day, the streets were crowded and Izuku was constantly being distracted by the sheer variety of quirks he saw. But at night, the streets were practically deserted. Most of the people he saw were either homeless or drunk or both, but they weren't really harming anyone, so Izuku didn't need to get involved. He made mental notes of where the darkest alleys were or where the street lamps were burned out so that he could disappear quickly into the dark if he needed to, but there didn't seem to be any danger yet. Izuku had been jumping between rooftops for 20 minutes and was starting to wonder if he'd even run into any crime tonight when he heard it. This can't be all you've got on you. What kind of guy doesn't even carry a cell phone? I swear, that's all I have. Izuku ran to the mouth of an alley and saw a group of 3 large thugs ganging up on a smaller teen. He grabbed his taser and narrowed his eyes. One of the guys seemed to have a snake mutation. The other was making a flame in his head and the last seems to create a blade in his hand. Nodding to himself, Izuku grappled to the ladder above them and threw a smoke bomb. Before any of them could react, Izuku jumped on the one with flame and tasered him, then he did the same to the other 2. In less than 5 seconds they were on the ground. The teen looked Izuku in awe and surprise as Izuku used the capture tape he bought to restrain the thugs, but before he could say anything, Izuku used his hook gun and left to a near rooftop. The teen decided to call the police and wait for them to arrive before he left. Izuku kept running across the rooftops looking for crime. It was 2 a.m. now and he hoped that criminals do sleep at this time until something on his cowl activated an earpiece. But who? Hey bunny, how's the babies? Izuku sighed in both relief and annoyance, but he didn't come across anything yet so he can speak with the girl. Fine, but shouldn't you be asleep? Well, same with you, bunny. Fair enough. Listen, I'm trying to find crimes to stop 3 streets from here in the south. A general store. Izuku stopped and ran to the place across the rooftops, but wait. Hey, how do you know that? Well, I hacked the city's security cameras. I can help you sniff crime. Izuku decided to roll with it. How many? Izuku asked. 1 with a blade arm. Got it. Izuku jumped down the alley and sped towards the store just to run into the guy trying to run. Izuku grabbed his taser and hit the guy with it while dodging the blade of arms. Unfortunately, he got cut in the arm, but nothing serious. Seeing that the guy was out of it, Izuku tied him up and went to check on the cashier. And shit, he was stabbed in the side and bleeding. They call the cops. Already did. They should be here and the medics too. Good. Izuku rushed through the store and grabbed some medical supplies. Then he went to the cashier and started treating the wound. Thanks, kid, said the man, grunting in pain. Just doing the right thing, Izuku replied, pressuring the one. 2 minutes later, Izuku heard the sound of ambulance and sneaked from the back. Quickly, he grappled to the rooftop and ran off. As he was running, he saw the man being carried away and smiled, knowing he helped someone in need. 4 streets in the East Bunny. 7 guys. I called the cops and tipped some heroes. Izuku smirked as he went to the direction his oracle was giving him. Wait, oracle? Hey, how about the code name oracle? Perfect, now hurry. With a nod, Izuku bolted through the rooftops at top speed. The Parker training really paid off. He was there in just 2 minutes and looked down to see that the 7 men were fighting each other, which made him smirk and throw a smoke bomb. Once they were blinded, Izuku jumped down on one of the men and tasered him. Then he used the smoke as a cover and the height difference to make them hit each other and finish them off with his trusted taser. Grinning under his mask, Izuku tied the thugs up just as he heard footsteps, and looking, he saw pro heroes running in. Izuku used his gun to hook into a rooftop before they could catch him and sped through the rooftops at top speed, losing the 3 pros in less than a minute. Good job, bunny. Thanks, but the battery is running low in the taser. Oh, don't worry. I put more batteries in your backpack. Just put one of them on. Izuku grinned as he stopped to change the battery, and when he was done, he took a rest. Oracle, when I grow up, I'm starting a company specialized in support items, and you better be the CEO. There was silence for a few seconds, and Izuku thought he bothered her. You're my nest friend, bunny. Well, never mind, she's fine. And with that, Izuku went to get more crimes stopped for the night. The rest of the night was fairly good. Oracle pinpoints crimes and he stops it quickly and gets away without being caught. By the time it was sunrise, he fairly certain he stopped more crimes than most pros, and that made his kaken put it fucking better. So after the sun was rising, Izuku bid Oracle a good night, then went back home and hid his costume in his suitcase before going to bed. All in all, it was a good debut for him. Izuku woke up at 11 a.m. with a groan and a headache. It was his first morning after an eventful night full of crime fighting. The mere idea of all the thugs he put behind bars put a smile on his sleepy face. Yawning, Izuku got out of his bed and stretched his body to let go of the sourness he was feeling. Note to self: always stretch before going to work. It was hilarious that he was a champion in mixed martial arts and forgot to stretch. If Kaken heard of that, Izuku will never live that down. With a sigh, Izuku exited his bedroom and went to the bathroom for his morning routine. He first brushed his teeth and washed the sleep out of his face, then stripped put of his clothes and went to the shower. The second the water hit him, Izuku felt himself fully waking up. Izuku started analyzing the events of last night, what he did right and wrong, better ways to handle situations without wasting resources because he was out of smoke bombs and 3 out of 4 batteries needs charging. Yes, he tasered a lot of people last night and it was hilarious to say the least. Kaken will laugh so hard when Izuku tells him about his night adventure, but he has to talk to Mei about what she did yesterday. She was such a helpful ally, he couldn't help but wish she keeps helping him. He'll talk to her later today. His suit needs a bit of fixing anyway. With that last thought, Izuku finished showering and dried himself with a towel. Then he put on some new clothes and exited the bathroom and went to the kitchen to eat something, to be surprised by the sight of his mother watching TV in the living room. Izuku was confused. Wasn't she supposed to go to work by now? It was a Monday after all. Inta saw her son looking at her strangely and her face lit up. "Good morning, sunshine. You slept longer than usual." Inta beamed and Izuku just shrugged. "Got tired last night, that's all," Izuku said, and Inta nodded in understanding. "Wanna have breakfast, dear?" Izuku nodded, and Inko went to the kitchen to make breakfast for her son. Humming to herself, Inko prepared herself to tell her son the good news while Izuku was sitting on the dining table drinking a cup of coffee and reading the newspaper just to spit it all put. After reading the first page of the news, a new vigilante appears in town. A man in a dark green bunny onesie and a cape gives the night patrol heroes a run for their money, stopping over 27 crimes in progress and putting over 100 thugs behind bars. One of the victims he saved claims he was a kid, but was he? From the witnesses, he should be around 12 and 14, so if you have any info on this vigilante, give it to the closest police station. The new guy didn't give a name yet, so one of the people he saved gave him one. It was woman he saved from a rapist, and she calls him Green Shadow. If you have any info, contact the police. Izuku's eye twitched in irritation. And onesie, really? His suit wasn't an onesie, and what the hell, 27 crimes and over 100. No wonder her used 3 batteries and was halfway through the 4th. He made a huge success. Too big that he got the media into this. He hates the media as much as hates Endeavor, if not more. Actually, no, he hated Endeavor the most, since the guy is a prick by all means. He was cut off from cursing Endeavor's existence by his mother placing breakfast in front of him, and Izuku digged in without hesitation. "You look tired, dear," Inta said with a tilted head, and Izuku shrugged. "I stayed late watching an all-night interview last night that got his mom to chuckle in amusement." "Sounds like you all right." Inko paused and then smiled. "Hey, I have some news for you," Inko said cheerfully. "I'm getting a baby sibling," Izuku asked with a raised brow. Inko's face became red. "No, I started modeling with Mitsuki-chan." Izuku looked surprised at that. "Congrats, Mom. You definitely have the looks of one." Inko blushed at the praise and smiled. "Well, I'll go to see Mitsuki-chan. Bye." Inko kissed her son on the cheek and left in a hurry. Izuku chuckled and went back to eating his breakfast. After he finished, he washed the dishes and went to his room to study. Shoto looked across the desk at Tsukachi as he finished the paperwork for his latest arrest. "I heard you got yourself a new vigilante." Tsukachi rolled his eyes, if you can even call him that. "The kid doesn't use his quirk, he just strikes quickly and leaves a bunch of tied-up thugs. Seems like he's doing some good then." Tsukachi looked tired. "Yeah, but it turns out that most thugs don't take kindly to having a kid tasering them." Shota snorted. "He tasers them?" Tsukachi nodded. "At least he's not causing any serious injuries them with the taser anymore. The first day and he got over 100 people, and he didn't even speak to anyone. Just a guy he gave first aid. His goal was always to take the thugs down, not hurt them too much, wasn't it?" Shota said. "The taser is a quick, non-lethal weapon to beat the thugs with the least damage," he concluded. "That's what we decided too." Tsukachi offered Shota a cup of coffee that he gratefully accepted. Word of him has been spreading pretty fast though, and considering he's not really hurting anyone besides the thugs and not using a quirk, we can't go after the kid. "What's he look like?" Shota asked, "in case I come across him." "Well, he's kind of plain as far as vigilantes go," Tsukachi said, handing him a sketch of the vigilante. "He wears a dark green bodysuit with a bunny cowl, then yellow cape. The most flashy thing about him is his utility belt with a taser and a hook gun. But he doesn't seem to like attention since he never spoke or gave a name. Shoto looked at the sketch. There really wasn't anything that's special or eye-catching about him. It's strange. Most vigilantes I've met try to go for something more distinctive. This guy kinda reminds me of myself. He doesn't care what he looks like, as long as he gets the job done. Yeah, most vigilantes are failed heroes, so they see themselves as heroes, but this kid is different. Toscachi said. You've said kid twice now. Shoto looked at the sketch again. Just how old is he? Early 20s. Tsukachi shook his head. The victims are the only ones that have had any close contact with him, but they said that, based on his voice and the way he held himself, he's a teenager and a young one at that. He pegged him at around 12 or 13 because he was so short and skinny, but I think it's more likely that we're looking in the 16-18 range. Since most vigilantes are failed heroes, he's got to be old enough to have taken and failed the entrance exams. But this kid doesn't see himself as a hero the way other vigilantes do. Shota pointed out. Crawler, Popstep, and even Stendhal all saw themselves as heroes even without licenses. And they each came up with their own particular brand of dress and behavior. This kid doesn't even talk to anyone. Has he even given himself a name yet? No, even when he spoke with the victims he didn't introduce himself. Tsukachi said. But the victims who've encountered him so far have taken to calling him the Shadow. Shota snorted. The Green Shadow. Seriously? They couldn't think of anything less obvious. Tsukachi shrugged. Well, the kid wears green and appears from the shadows, leaves beaten up thugs, then disappears into the shadows again. I don't know, the alliteration is kinda catchy. Shota rolled his eyes. Yeah, sure, cause that's obviously super important to the kid. He sighed. It's just I hope he decides to stay out of fights. If he gets in any deeper, he'll only end up getting himself killed. Izuku sighed as he finished his training in the dojo. As he left the dojo, he decided to go to the business district to talk to Mei about the suit and maybe some new gadgets. But was he being too imposing on the girl? First he got her into being his partner, and now he was going to ask for more items. It just didn't seem fair. Well, he still pays her, so this is a business transaction. Izuku was holding the suitcase that contained his gear and gadgets close to his chest. He kept it close and made sure to keep it locked until he got to Mei's house. He was interrupted by his phone ring. Looking at the one who texted him, and he sighed seeing it was just Kaken. Kaken, nerd. You became a fucking celebrity in one fucking night. What the fuck? Anguished face. Izuku. Well, it wasn't intentional, I didn't even speak to anyone. Fearful face. Goddamn the media face with symbols on mouth. Kaken. Well, it's actually impressive and over 100 shitty extras. What's your secret, damn it? Thinking face. Izuku. Well, Mei helped me as a guide behind her computer. Kaken. Wait a damn minute. Pink hair was the girl on the chair. Anguished face. Izuku. Kinda grinning face with sweat. Kaken. Well, now I see how you sniffed all these crimes. Anyway, gotta go, lunchtime's over. See ya, nerd. Izuku sighed as he exited the train and went to Mei's house. Knocking on the door, he waited for a few seconds before the was swung open, revealing a beaming Mei. Bunny, you came. Do you need something? A new baby. Oh, come in. Mei grabbed Izuku's wrist and dragged him inside. Well, I came for you to fix my suit from the damage if you don't mind, Izuku said, embarrassed, and Mei nodded vigorously. Of course. As a support student, I'll be fixing a lot of hero costumes, so I better get used to it from now, Mei said as she took the suitcase and started fixing the suit. Izuku watched her for a bit, and barely 10 minutes later she was done. It was impressive actually how quick she can build and fix things, but he was grateful for that. Bunny, look, I made you some new babies, Mei exclaimed as she gave him a small bag. Izuku looked in surprise to see a second taser, a new set of smoke bombs, a pair of stun buttons, and what seemed to be a slingshot with weird-looking marble. Well, you know what most of these are, but the marbles are filled with an explosive chemicals that should knock out most thugs with one good hit, Mei explained, and Izuku was left speechless at her ability to make things so fast. Well, see you tonight, Bunny, Mei said as Izuku nodded. He paid his new supporter, and after bidding goodbye to her, he left with a modified suit and new gadgets. Izuku wandered the now familiar streets in search of crime. He'd been doing this for a month now. A whole month. Izuku was starting to get the hang of the job by noon, and he even memorized the streets and back alleys in the area for a quick escape when the police and heroes show up. It also helped that Oracle was very quick at sniffing crimes and pinpointing their locations, so now that he was more experienced and more confident, he decided to leave his usual area of patrols and take it to the city center. The city center proved to be a more challenging environment to the Green Vigilantes since the buildings were taller and Parker proved to be less effective. So Oracle came up with a new device that gave him the ability to jump between buildings. Basically, his boots were modified to absorb the air using small pipes on the calves and unleash it from the bottom of the feet in quick butts. Oracle calls them jet boots and the name fits. Also, Oracle made a new cape that could expand to take the form of wings for gliding between buildings and in the air. So basically, his partner has solved his mobility issues with her support gear, and Izuku was eternally grateful for that. The jewelry shop 3 blocks away is being robbed, Bunny. Get them. Izuku nodded and took off as quickly as possible. Grappling into a nearby building, Izuku jumped down into an alleyway and used his expanded cape to kill his momentum. As he landed, he looked inside and frowned. 4 men, all armed. The shop was fairly small and he could throw smoke pellets, but he'll end being shot by one of them. Hey, I put a new grenade in your bag. It's pink and full of sleep gas. Try it out. Oracle chirped enthusiastically. Izuku grinned as he grabbed the grenade and pulled the pin before tossing it inside. His sister partner was a godsend in every meaning of the word. After a few seconds, he could hear the coughing men falling to the ground, but he didn't enter. Better be safe than sorry. Are they down, Oracle? Yup. But one of them is still struggling on the ground, but he dropped the gun, Oracle explained, and Izuku nodded. Sneaking in, Izuku saw the guy crawling to the bag of stolen goods and hoped grabbing it, but Izuku kicked it away. And the man noticed him. The man's eyes widened in shock at seeing the new vigilante in this part of the city, since he works in the outskirts of Mustafu, not the center. What you doing here? The man chalked out the question, and Izuku knelt beside the man with a taser at hand. Without a word, Izuku stunned the guy, knowing him out cold. Shaking his head, Izuku grabbed his capture tape and started trying the robbers up. The police are 20 seconds away, Bunny. Oracle chirped enthusiastically, and Izuku rushed out of the store, using his grapnel gun, and pulled away just as the police cars came into view. Nothing either this time. Sir Tsukachi slumped in his seat and groaned in frustration from the officer's report. This green shadow really deserved his name. It's been a month now and no one even got a glimpse of him. It was frustrating, and Tsukachi was beginning to feel a headache from all the paperwork this kid was giving him. Yes, the kid was doing good things, good for him, but the paperwork from his not-so-illegal acts is getting bigger and the kid is getting more popular by the night. Although Tsukachi doubted the kid cared for that, since he never leaves a mark or a sign that he was there, just gets in, beats the villains, and gets out. It's like having another Aizawa, but without him coming for paperwork after the arrest. The kid was quick, silent, and slipper. He knows where the crimes will happen, like he has eyes everywhere. Wait, maybe that's it. Just with that realization, Aizawa came in with a grumble and Tsukachi chuckled in amusement. Not just me that's frustrated. Good to know. Aizawa glared for a second, but his face lit up as Tsukachi gave him a cup of black coffee, which he gratefully accepted. So the new kid still slipping away. Tsukachi slammed his head on his office and Aizawa smirked. I take it that's a yes, and the groan Tsukachi gave made him snort. Say, Aizawa, would it make sense for this green shadow to have a partner behind the scenes? Tsukachi asked, and Aizawa raised a brow. You mean like a guy on the chair thing from movies? Tsukachi nodded and Aizawa hummed in thought. Possible, which would explain how does the problem child find the crimes quickly, and explains that the same person keeps tripping on the location of the aftermath of crimes. Tsukachi's eyes widened. That's it. We find this guy and we find the kid. The detective exclaimed, and Aizawa snorted in sarcasm and some amusement. Unknown to them, they were both right and wrong in their deduction. Izuku sighed as he tied up another thug in a dark alley. The moron tried to rape a woman and Izuku took him down. He waited tensely for a long moment until he was certain that tighter guy was knocked out, then turned to the girl he'd just saved. Just as he finished, he was tapped on the shoulder. Moving on reflexes, Izuku grabbed the hand and slammed the person behind him over his shoulder just to hear a squeak and yelp of pain. Izuku looked to see that he just hit the woman he saved. Quickly, he helped the woman up and made sure he didn't hurt her, all the apologizing to the woman. Sorry ma'am, it was just reflex, Izuku said, and thank God the face masks changes his voice. The woman giggled. No big deal, dear. So can I give you some questions? The woman asked with a smile, and Izuku shook his head. I don't speak with the press or the media. Izuku backed away, and then used his gun to hook up to a rooftop and back away. Are you okay? She looked at him in shock. Am I okay? You just fought a guy twice your size. Izuku looked down at the guy on the floor. Actually, I think he's probably more like 3 times my size. I'm pretty small, but I don't think his size is just because of his quirk. Earth to kid, are you actually okay? He looked like he hurt you. Izuku shrugged. It's nothing I'm not used to, don't worry about it. The woman didn't look any less worried, but Izuku decided that trying to reassure her probably wouldn't do any good. He turned to leave. Wait. Izuku stopped with his hands still on the fire escape. Yes. Are you hurt? Do you need me to give you first aid? The woman shook her head. No, you just never told me your vigilante name. What am I supposed to call you? Green Shadow, like everyone calls you. Izuku shrugged. Sure, if that works. I don't really care what people call me. I just want to help people. Yura smiled as she watched the vigilante disappear and dialed her boss. She'd call the police in a minute, but they would ask her to stay on the line until someone arrived, and she didn't want to wait to make this call. What are you doing calling me at 3 in the morning? I have tomorrow's headline. What? What happened? She grinned. I was just saved by the new vigilante. I'm fine, don't worry. Listen, it's Green Shadow in the flesh. I'm the first to have a conversation with him. He seems to be the serious type who hates attention and stuff. Well, anyway, I'm positive we're the first to have a statement from his. And I think he's just 11. Really? Her boss sounded much more awake. That is a headline, maybe a front page. And there's definitely a story there. Get me a pace by morning and we'll run it on the website. If it gets enough hits, I'll give you the go-ahead to do more research and we'll do a full piece by the end of the week." The woman nodded vigorously in excitement. Izuku sighed as he was making his way to area where he lives. He really needs a way to travel faster between the districts of the city. Maybe Oracle has an idea for that. A motorcycle maybe. That would be cool. Ouch. Izuku yelped in pain. "Hold still, will ya?" Mei scolded in a big sister-like tone as she was cleaning a cut on his arm. "Honestly, how did you get so beaten up in one night?" "Well, the villains tonight were tougher than the guys I usually deal with," Izuku explained, and the girl huffed. "And the bruised ribs?" Mei questioned in worry. "Well, one of the guys has shock absorption and is a bodybuilder. I ran out of weapons, so I had to use my boots to bounce off the walls of the alley and keep hitting him until he fainted," Izuku explained, and the young inventor nodded. "It was a very busy night. Way more crimes than usual," Mei commented, and Izuku nodded. "He got pretty roughed up. A clean cut on his forearm, bruised ribs, a strained ankle, a bunch of burns and some cuts as well as bloody knuckles. Yeah, a very long night. Well, keep your gear here. Tomorrow is a free night for you, and before you protest I need to fix you tools, suit and boots as well as get you a new weapon I've been working on." Izuku sighed in defeat and nodded. "I don't like taking breaks, Mei-chan. It feels like slacking off," Izuku grumbled, and his partner giggled. "Well, you've been working non-stop for 6 months now. You earned a night off," Mei exclaimed, and Izuku nodded. "So what do I say about the injuries?" Izuku asked, and Mei shrugged in response. "Say that you did some parkour, and for the knuckles say that you hit the gym. You can stay the night and go back in the morning. Tell her that you went for a morning run." Izuku nodded at the logical explanation. "But wouldn't your parents mind me staying in here?" Izuku asked, and Mei shrugged. "My parents work for most of the time. They leave me money to eat, pay bills and build inventions, so I doubt they'll know," Mei said, and Izuku nodded. After that, Izuku slept in the living room and Mei went to her room. "Nerd, what the fuck happened to you? You look like you got smashed by a fucking truck or some shit," Katsuki joked, and Izuku glared at his old friend. Izuku called his mom in the morning and told her that he went to Kaken's house early in the morning. It was a Sunday, so no school for him. They were sitting in Katsuki's room playing video games together. "Well, last night was full of crazy thugs with above-average quirks. It was a mess and all of my things needs fixing. Poor Mei-chan will have to rebuild most of my gadgets and resew my suit." Katsuki rolled his eyes. "We both know she's thrilled by that. The girl likes creating shit as much as I like to blow to hell," Katsuki said with amusement. "So did you hear?" Katsuki asked with almost worry. "What's wrong, Kaken?" Izuku asked. "Well, I heard a rumor that there's murders happening in the docks. Something is eating people alive and leaving their leftovers in the water," Katsuki said in disgust, and Izuku's eyes widened. "No, I haven't heard." Izuku growled. "I'll look into it." "Any info?" Izuku asked, and Katsuki nodded. "It started a month ago. Every Tuesday night. The victims are either workers or civilians. I called it a thing because it's like they're eaten by a monster. The news says the bite marks are of something with a huge moth-full razor-sharp teeth." Izuku nodded, accepting the info. Izuku grabbed his phone and dialed Mei's number. "Hey Izu, what's up?" Mei chirped with enthusiasm. "Mei," Izuku said seriously. And the girl picked on it. "Did you finish the detective's tools and scanners? Because we'll need them." Izuku said. "Well, yeah. It's ready and I'll install them on Yukao to examine crime scenes if you wish. I'll hack the police database and connect you to it if you want," Mei said, and the boys grinned. "You're the best, Mei-chan." "Pinky," the boys exclaimed, and she laughed. "Well, relax today and tomorrow everything will be ready. I even have some new babies for you to try," Mei said, and Izuku nodded. "Well, I guess you'll deal with it, huh?" Katsuki asked, and Izuku nodded. Izuku went to Mei's house and knocked on the door. Thankfully, the local doctor was able to heal his bruised ribs and his slashed arm, so no big deal. And taking a night off was much harder than he thought. The boredom almost killed him, and took all of his stuff, so he had nothing to fight with. Smart girl. Izuku told his mother that he was visiting a friend and staying there, and she accepted. As he knocked, the door was opened instantly, revealing a beaming Pinkette. "Hey Izu, come in." Mei dragged Izuku inside, who chuckled, used to her antics. As they got in, they went to her workshop. In the past few months it became organized, and the tools were now for building support gear for him exclusively. It was actually great to have a friend willing to help him like this. First Katsuki and now Mei. These two are the best thing that happened to him since his mom. He was cut off from these thoughts as Mei shoved a suitcase in his hands and pushed him into the changing room. Coming out, Izuku went to the mirror to admire Mei's work. She was a genius when it comes to technology and in support gear. The new suit wasn't different from the old one. From the outside anyway. The suit felt a bit more sturdy. Still flexible, but more sturdy. In addition to his gauntlets, he got a new set of gloves. These ones looked different. Bulky on the wrist area. His cowl was now more solid, even tough. It was still clothed and had what seemed to have lenses on the eyes. The chest and arms had plates surrounding them, as well as the legs. The boots seemed to be lighter but tougher, and the small engine seems to be stronger too. The pouches in the belt were bigger too. So basically I upgraded your gear from the suit to gadgets. May started. First, the suit was modified to be still flexible but sturdy. Absorb most brute force. As for the plates, they are to make sure you don't strain your muscle. The new gauntlets don't just absorb the impact but store it for stronger attack. The boots has the ability now to be used in combat. Thanks to the stronger engines, you'll be able to bounce off the walls easily. And I got the scanners you asked for a new cowl. May explained and Izuku nodded. Cool. And the gadgets? Izuku asked, knowing the answer. Improved too. The tasers are stronger and store more electricity. The pouches can carry Omer smoke bombs and the stun buttons are harder to break. As for the slingshot, May paused. While I decided to replace it. What do you think if I make you an air rifle? Izuku stared at his friend blankly. You've already made it, haven't you? Izuku asked, and she nodded, giving him a light but hard rifle. It was made of carbon fibers and seemed strong enough. Yup, and here's the ammo. It's full of Boomer's sweat, she said, giving him a small bag full of what looked like glass bullets. Maybe 15 or so. Nodding to himself, Izuku put the rifle on his back alongside the ammo. He walked to the rooftop of May's house and hooked into a nearby building. Izuku jumped between the alleyways using his jet boots. He tripped a couple times as he was learning and quickly. What can you get me on this murders, Oracle? Is there a pattern you noticed? Izuku asked through the earpiece on his cowl. Well, they all happened in the same place, and it's been going on investigation for a while now. It happens in the Mustafu General Harbor, May explained. Who was in charge of the investigation? Izuku asked in suspicious tone. Well, a pro hero. Piranha is his code name. Like his name has a piranha heteromorphic mutant type quirk, May said, and then gasped in realization. This is a sick joke. How dates he? Izuku roared as he started running faster. Oracle, review what we know about the target. Izuku said. Target is the piranha. Oracle says. A pro hero that is secretly committing cannibalism, eating innocent citizens at the docks on Tuesdays and using the water to hide their bodies. Izuku got to the last crime scene and entered. He was furious to hear that there was a crime yesterday. So deciding that he had enough, he went to get the evidence himself. Thanks to Oracle and her tech, he got the evidence he needed and found the bodies he hid. While he did that, his trusted partner hacked the security cameras and retrieved the videos the hero deleted, getting them enough evidence. Help, a woman cried. She was running away, her leg bleeding from the piranha. Eventually, she made a wrong turn and was backed up against a shipping container. Don't run, you'll only make this take longer, Piranha said. Piranha was a large, bulky man with gills on his neck and razor-sharp teeth, and he had nothing on but a pair of wet pants. Please, you're supposed to be a hero. How can you do this? The women screamed. The piranha smiled. Like this. He lunged at her and the woman closed her eyes and prepared for death. But it never came. What the? The piranha yelled. The woman opened her eyes to see that there was some kind of rope wrapped around the piranha. They both looked back to see Izuku in his suit was holding a grapple gun. The piranha struggled against the rope and Izuku struggled to keep his footing. You think you can hold me? The piranha yelled. I don't need to, Izuku said. He pushed a button on his grapple gun which sent an electric shock through the metal rope. God bless Oracle's foresight. GHHH. The piranha screamed as he was electrocuted. Izuku took his hand off the button and the shock ceased. The piranha fell to the ground, knocked out. The woman gasped, tears of joy coming from her eyes as she limped to her savior. Thank you so much. Your leg, Izuku said. It's injured. The woman looked down at her leg, which had a bite mark from the piranha. He surprised me. I managed to get away, but if you hadn't come, I should have come sooner, Izuku said as he pulled out some medical supplies from his utility belt. If I had, you wouldn't have been injured. Izuku disinfected and bandaged her leg before putting the supplies back in his belt. The police will be here soon, he said. When they come, I need you to do 3 things. The women nodded. First, tell them he attacked me first, Izuku said. I don't have time to explain why, just please do it. Okay, the women said. Secondly, make sure to tell them I used this, Izuku said, pointing to his grapple gun. You don't need to know what it is, just make sure they know it wasn't a quirk. Okay, the woman said. Lastly, give them this. Izuku handed her the flash drive. This has all the evidence needed to put this disgrace away for the rest of his life if what happened tonight wasn't enough. Yes, sir, she said as she held the drive close to her. Thank you. Good night. With that, Izuku walked away and aimed his grapple gun at one of the cranes. Wait, the women said. Izuku turned his head. What? How are you? The women asked. A man trying to do the right thing, Izuku said as he used his gun to get away. He had done it. He had saved someone and put a villain in jail. Hello, my name is Sakura Kazumi, here with Midnight on HNN, said the newswoman. Today we are here to discuss the strange circumstances around the vigilante Green Shadow. Tell me, Midnight, why is it that he hasn't been arrested? It's been a year and it seems that not only has he not been captured, there also seems to have been no attempts to capture him. Midnight sighed. Because we can't. Why? Nyusu asked in slight shock. He is clearly committing vigilantism. Well, yes but no, Midnight said. You see, there is a large misunderstanding on how vigilantism works now. You see, before quirks came around, it used to be that if you fought crime without being a part of the police force, then you were a vigilante. The newswoman nodded. After quirks showed up and a long period of chaos passed, there was a new law. No using your quirk in public, even in self-defense. No one liked that at the time, and vigilantes came. The police who couldn't use their quirks were completely outmatched, and so the government created the hero system and updated the law on vigilantism so it became illegal to fight villains unless you were the police or a pro-hero. The newswoman nodded again. Now here is the part most people don't know. While they were making the no quirks in public law, many politicians disliked that it was both illegal to defend yourself and illegal to save someone without a hero license. So to satisfy those people, they made it so you can fight a villain if you don't use your quirk at all. Midnight finished her explanation. Wait, so you can basically just commit vigilantism legally if you don't use a quirk? That's insane. Why would they ever allow that? Sakura asked. Because they didn't think anyone would be stupid enough to try it. Midnight said. It's like running on fire. It's technically legal, but it's really dumb. They assumed that anyone who tried doing what Green Shadow is doing would die and be an example for everyone else. And since changing a law is more difficult than getting sympathy from Endeavor, by the time they fix this loophole, if they ever do, Green Shadow will be dead from either a villain or old age. Midnight said. Well, are you sure Green Shadow isn't using a quirk? Sakura asked. Couldn't he just be using his quirk in secret? It sounds very outlandish that Green Shadow could do the things he's doing without a quirk. Well, if he is, he sure is good at hiding it. Midnight said. He does most of his work in a stealthy fashion, so we rarely even see him in the first place, and any signs that he could have used a quirk is quickly proved to have been done by one of his gadgets. It seems that Green Shadow is an exceptionally skilled individual, which only makes me wonder why he doesn't become a pro hero. As a pro, he would have fewer limitations and more resources, so why doesn't he just get his license? Well, that actually has to do with our next topic, Sakura said. Green Shadow has brought to light the crimes of several pro heroes, 10 to be exact. Do you think this is connected to his reasoning for not becoming a pro hero? And how do you feel about these pros committing such horrible crimes? Midnight sighed once more. Well, it is possible that Green Shadow has some sort of distrust or hatred towards the pro hero community. And as for the actions of those villains who called themselves heroes, well, I'm horrified, to say the least. To hear that so many pros had been committing crimes in secret makes me want to punish them myself. Midnight thwacked her whip across the floor. They are disgraces, and should never have been allowed to be pros in the first place. Midnight continued. This is another reason people are so tolerant of Green Shadow. Sakura raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? Midnight took a deep breath, calming herself. Well, many of the police force, citizens, and even a good number of pros are very thankful for exposing the frauds. Even some of the villains are thankful. It's one of the reasons why it's so hard to prove he's breaking the law. Because if there is any evidence that he's using a quirk, then someone might just cover it up. I see. Well, I can't say that I'm not glad these disgraced pros are jail. But how do you feel about him? Sakura asked. Well, I don't fully dislike Green Shadow. Midnight said. I'm glad he is exposing these pros and he does seem very skilled. But I dislike how he works outside the law. I feel a lot of people agree with you, Midnight, Sakura said. Now let's speak about something everyone is wondering. Is Green Shadow really a kid? Or is he pretending to be one? The newswoman asked. Midnight let out an amused huff. Yes, he is. Some pros caught a glimpse of the boy and he seems to be 11 years old or a bit older, Midnight said, and Sakura gasped in shock. Really? I thought it was some weird rumors on the internet. Why would someone so young commit vigilantism? Sakura asked in disbelief. Because as I said, he seems to have a distrust or hatred towards the hero community, which is understandable, I'm afraid. The newswoman nodded. Now I just have one more thing to ask. Do you think that Green Shadow will continue exposing more pros, and if so, what do you think the state of the pro hero scene will be like? Sakura asked. Well, I would hope that there aren't many more pros to expose, but I have a feeling this is only the beginning, sadly. And as for the state of pro heroes, well, I feel there will be more supervision on our activities to start, Midnight said. Well, seeing the shocking things that had come to light recently, I would say that's a good idea, Sakura said. Now do you have anything you would like to say before we go? Midnight nodded and turned to the camera. I would like to apologize that these villains were allowed to gain hero licenses and betray your trust like this. And if Green Shadow is watching this, first I would like to thank you for bringing these crimes to light. And second, I would like to ask that you become a pro. No one knows who you really are, so there would be no issues. And please wait until you're of age before you risk your life. Thank you. That was Midnight, everyone, Sakura said. Izuku banged his head on the coffee table as both Katsuki and Mei snickered. I hate the media. Now everyone knows my age, Izuku said, frustrated. Well, you made a crushing success. Did you actually expect that you'll stay unknown forever? Katsuki asked, and Izuku groaned. Well, they're praising my babies, so I'm satisfied. Now I'll make sure to make the best bayas for you to use, Mei exclaimed. This is not funny, May. We need to keep a low profile. Even if the police won't come after us, we still need to be careful, Izuku said, and May nodded. Aye, Captain. May cheered and Katsuki snorted. Relax, nerd. You're doing great. You put those fucking frauds behind bars. And the rest of the shitty villains who pretend to be heroes are now too scared to do shit. They're fucking terrified of being next to the point they'll try to stay clean, Katsuki exclaimed, and Izuku found himself agreeing with his childhood friend. Yeah, on the bright side, the HPSC are watching the pros closely. And the frauds will be on a tight leash if they weren't caught, so they can't commit any more crimes. It's a win in my book. Izuku scowled, but the media is doing too much fuss and now people might try to imitate me and get hurt. May looked at him. I doubt that, since they know you have support gear and items which they don't have, so no worries. Izuku looked worried. I didn't want to advertise for vigilantism. This all the damn vultures. Izuku yelled. Stop whining and focus on your next target. Katsuki snapped, and a predatory grin appeared on Izuku's face, causing the other two to stiffen. Are you okay, Izu? May asked, and Izuku started to cackle. Yes, I am. I'll keep taking down frauds until I reach the top 10. Izuku exclaimed. In the Endeavor Hero Agency, a flaming pile of trash stiffened and looked up from his paperwork in anxiety. Why do I hear boss music? Asked the burning trash of a man sweating profusely. In the UA meeting room, the teachers of the school were gathered by orders of the principal. All right, everyone, have a seat. We have an important matter to discuss today. A mammal of undermined origins said cheerfully. And just as he said that, the teachers took a seat. Midnight, Present Mike, Eraserhead, Snipe, Cementos, Power Loader, and Ectoplasm all took a seat around the large round table. What did you call us for, Principal? Ectoplasm asked the question everyone was wondering, and Nedzu gave a smile everyone didn't like. Well, I want to discuss the matter of this green bundle Chaos who's been making a name for himself, Nedzu said, and Eraserhead scoffed. He's not. The media is, Eraserhead said flatly. The kid is obviously keeping a low profile. But the media keeps talking about him and I sympathize with him. The media is a pain in the ass, Aizawa said, annoyed. You know, earlier this year the little listener said the same thing. Are you sure you and Emmy never had a kid? I know you two are meeting, Mike said, and everyone snickered. Mike, we're working on the same case, no more. And I met Joke 8 years ago and the kid is 11. How does that even work? Eraserhead snapped. Well, to be fair, Eraserhead, he is like you a lot. The same attitude, the hatred to the media, and the plain costume and lack of social interaction. You two are very similar in many ways, Nedzu explained, and Eraserhead grumbled. Well, anyway, we gotta fin a way to speak with the Lil's fella and see if we can stop him. He's doing good but'll get hurt sooner or later, Snipe said, and everyone agreed. Well, I actually wanted your help in collecting his merch, Nedzu chirped, and everyone gaped. What merch? Midnight and Mike asked in unison. Did you say merch? Eraserhead asked, feeling a headache announcing its arrival. Oh yes, people are selling merch of him. It started few days ago and I want your help to collect as much as possible before it ceased, Nedzu exclaimed. Well, we're in, Midnight and Mike exclaimed in unison. Eraserhead started counting all the life decisions he made that led him to this point and settled on cursing Endeavor's existence to let out his frustration. It always put him in a good mood. Izuku was going to leave since it was close to sunset until the door opened, revealing Kaken's parents. Hey, Uncle Masaru and Auntie Mitsuki. Izuku greeted. Hey Brett, whatcha doin' here? Mitsuki asked. Oh, I came over to crush Kaken in Super Smash Bros. Izuku said. I'll beat soon, you damn nerd, just you wait. Katsuki exclaimed. Well, it's nice that you two are getting along, Masaru said. Thanks, Uncle. Izuku stopped as he noticed the bag they brought and the vest his uncle was wearing. Where the hell did you get this vest, old man? Katsuki demanded, pointing to the green shadow-themed vest. Oh, this. We found it in the mall. This shit's everywhere, so as good damn fans we decided to get some stuff. There's all types of crap from clothes to fucking figurines, Mitsuki explained as she showed the paper bag that was full of merch. Izuku paled at the fact that people were making merch of him while Katsuki cackled, enjoying his brother's mental breakdown, and to add salt to the wound he grabbed a smaller vest and put it on. I'll go to school with this tomorrow, Katsuki declared. Izuku started counting all the life decisions he made that led him to this point and settled on cursing Endeavor's existence to let out his frustration. It always put him in a good mood. Punch, thud. Izuku panted as he finished off a bunch of gangsters that started a fight. It was supposed to be a simple fight, but these guys proved to be willing to work together if given a reason. Oracle, contact the police and let them know about the gangs I took down, Green Shadow said as he finished tying the gangs up. Right away, Bunny. Oracle said, come back to the hideout and take some rest. I got some new leads on the case, Oracle added, and Green Shadow nodded. He spared the thugs one last glance before leaving. Green Shadow grabbed his grappling gun and used it to hold into a near rooftop and pull himself. Izuku walked into a small abandoned building in the outskirts of the city. It was a small factory that the government long since abandoned, and since this part is the poor area, the government wouldn't bother claiming it. Entering the building, Green Shadow walked downstairs to the basement level of the building. Opening the door, Izuku entered a room that was big enough to be an apartment. It was much cleaner than the rest of the building and more advanced. Looking, he spotted a familiar pink-haired girl behind a computer screen. Smiling, Izuku coughed into his fist, gaining the girl's attention. Mei's face lit up as she saw her friend perfectly fine. "Hey there, bunny. Take off the suit and sit down. I got a lot to show you," Mei said, and Izuku nodded. He took off his suit and did hang it on the wall. He took off his belt and put down on the table of the workshop part of the room. The big room is basically their hideout. Izuku found it a week after Midnight's interview, and thanks to Mei, the place became a secret hideout with everything needed for the work. Groaning, Izuku joined his sister and they watched some of the footage she retrieved. It was footage of a corrupt hero that lets people smuggle drugs through his patrol area as long as they paid him. It infuriated Izuku and he decided to take the guy down. "I know you'll go after him, so take the new weapon I design," Mei said, handing him what looked like grenades. "The glue grenades?" Izuku asked, intrigued, and Mei nodded. "The gig has an electric quirk, so the best weapon is these grenades," Mei explained, and Izuku grinned. "Well, I better get going. Bye, Oracle." Izuku rushed as he put his suit back on and tied his belt around his waist. Giving his partner one last smile, he put on his face mask and pulled up his cowl. Green Shadow was watching over one of the streets from the ledge of building. Using the new sensors Mei created on his cowl that was connected to the computer in the hideout, he could use that to see people through smoke and read their vitals. "Okay, the deal usually happens every Friday at this time of the night," Oracle spoke through the earpiece. "Thanks, Oracle, I'll deal with it." Green Shadow spoke, and just as Oracle predicted, the thugs and the hero appeared. "I'll record through the security camera. Let them speak for a bit." Green Shadow nodded. "Is this enough evidence?" Green Shadow asked as he tied the hero and the gang members he beat up. "Yes, but did you have to be so brutal?" Oracle asked, and Green Shadow nodded without hesitation. "They deserve it, and you know it," Green Shadow said simply, and Oracle snorted. "Well, I called the cops, so you should leave and call it a night because I got a test tomorrow, so goodbye." Oracle cut off the connection, and Green Shadow huffed in amusement as he grappled away. Green Shadow jumped from a rooftop to another. It was getting close to sunrise, so Izuku doubted he'll come across any muggings or anything of that kind. Green Shadow sighed as he thought of the things that happened recently. First off, he started as a small brat tasering the crap out of thugs. Then he started doing some small-time villains capture. Then he started tracking down and exposing fake and corrupt heroes, and now he was as famous as someone in the top 10. The world really likes to mess with him since he wanted to be the opposite of famous, unknown, but the universe never stops fucking with him. Izuku was cut off from existential crisis by a knife thrown where his foot would have been, and he didn't stop. Looking at the knife and following the trajectory of where it came from, Green Shadow saw a man in dark clothes with a katana on his back and multiple knives on his sides. He was wearing a white scarf and a headband that covered his eyes. "Shizome Akaguro, or should I call you the vigilante blood curdle?" Green Shadow addressed the man few feet away. Akaguro looked surprised before he smiled. "Ah, so the rumors are true. You're one hell of a detective, Green Shadow," the vigilante exclaimed. "To what do I owe the pleasure of meeting you?" Green Shadow asked while holding his stun buttons in a stance. "I came to test you and judge your will. Fail the test and you die." The man lunged at Green Shadow with a speed the younger vigilante wasn't expecting. The man swung his katana from left to the right, and Green Shadow ducked under the attack as he tried to stun the older man who just dodged. Green Shadow grabbed his slingshot in his left hand and glared at his opponent. "Say, how did you end up in the vigilante business, boy? You're obviously as young as they say you are." Blood Curdle asked as he threw a knife that Green Shadow dodged. "Because I wanted to make a difference." Green Shadow aimed and shot 3 of his explosive marbles, which Blood Curdle dodged. "And you seem to be doing a good job, attention hog." The man threw 3 knives that Green Shadow barely dodged. "It wasn't me. It was the damn vultures." "And who the fuck are you to judge me, asshole?" Let it be known that Katsuki Bakugo had infected his best friend with his dirty mouth. "They all say that," Blood Curdle yelled. Blood Curdle swung his katana, which Green Shadow blocked with his stun button, but the man was stronger and pushed Izuku away, knocking him on his back. Not giving up, Green Shadow threw a glue grenade at his opponent's feet, trapping him, then aimed and fired his grappling gun at his opponent. Once caught, Green Shadow pressed a button on his gun, causing an electric shock to go plug the cable and shock the older vigilante. Gahhh, the man dropped to the ground, and Green Shadow got up and went to tow him up. Akaguro groaned as he woke up. "Move and you'll nap again," said a cold voice. Akaguro's eyes shot open as he looked in front of him. He was tied up in an abandoned building. He was unarmed and tied upside down facing the wall. He felt dizzy, probably from all the blood going to his head. Akaguro grunted as Green Shadow dropped him to the ground, but he was still tied up. Akaguro looked above him to see the boy towering over him, his mask and cowl blending perfectly with the darkness, giving him the form of an eldritch knight from a horror movie. "Answer my questions and I won't throw you to the cops," the boy said coldly. Akaguro tried to move and Green Shadow chuckled. It was dark and predatory. Don't waste your time. I sedated you with a strong drug. You're lucky you're awake. Akaguro was impressed. Most heroes were never this sharp and prepared. If only he wasn't the one experiencing this talent firsthand. If you're done musing, I got a home to return to, Green Shadow said, and Akaguro grunted. Fine, asked away. Akaguro said, why did you attack me? And don't throw bullshit on me. You held back and didn't aim to kill. You were just seeing how strong I am, Green Shadow spoke matter-of-factly. Yes, I wanted to see how good you are. You're skilled and sharp, but you need more training and learn other skills. Gadgets can only take you so far. I want to train you to fix this corrupt and rotten society, Akaguro explained. Green Shadow hummed and thought. On one hand, he couldn't just trust this guy. On the other hand, he was making valid points. Fine, but I have conditions. I'm listening. First, I'll never kill. Of course. Second, I'll stick to my beliefs and ideals. I won't be forced to follow yours. Granted. Third, we won't do any work together and you won't pry into my identity. Accepted. And finally, you won't kill anyone in my presence. Understandable. Then I'll gladly accept your offer. Meet me in the 60th Street in the outskirts of the city tomorrow. Akaguro grunted as he shakily stood up. All right, see you tomorrow, young man. And with that they split off. As Izuku went home, he started to think of the possible consequences of this, but decided that as long as they don't meet in public and they don't work together. First night, Izuku learned how to use a bow staff to fight Akaguro's sword technique. First month, Izuku learned how to sharpen your senses and feel things around you. Second month, Izuku learned advanced hand-to-hand combat and sparring. Third month, Izuku learned how to throw knives and other projectiles. Fourth month, advanced parkour at top speed through different places. Fifth month, Izuku learned stealth training and sneaking into guarded places. Sixth month, Izuku learned advanced stealth and infiltration lessons. Seventh month, Izuku learned how to erase your presence and how to pick others. Eighth month, Izuku learned large groups tactics in combat and how to keep up and excel. Ninth month, Izuku learned how to gain info from the underground. 10th month, Izuku learned the use of killing intent to paralyze weaker opponents. Thank you for everything, Sir. Green Shadow bowed to his mentor, who chuckled. Just keep doing what you're doing, kid. Akaguro nodded to the boy. You learned everything I had to offer in 10 months. That's a record time if you ask me. Well, I had a good teacher. Strict but very good teacher. Akaguro smiled at the praise. Well, now we depart, kid. Akaguro got up and turned to leave. If you ever start killing heroes like you desire, Akaguro turned to see Izuku staring intensely at him. I'll take you in myself, Green Shadow finished, and the man chuckled. I bet you would, kid. I bet you would. Akaguro jumped into the next building and broke into a dash between rooftops, disappearing from Green Shadow's view. With a nod, Green Shadow prepared to leave. So Blade Guy left now? Oracle asked, and Izuku nodded. Yes, but I know we'll see him again one day, and with that Green Shadow grappled into a nearby building and left home. It was a crazy year for the now 13-year-old kid, and he'll just get started with his work thanks to all the new skills he learned. Present Mike held pride in many things. He was a popular and respected pro hero that saves lives. He held a popular radio show where he had many pro heroes, and known people attended even All Might a couple times. He was a teacher in the prestigious UA High School where he taught the future generations. He was a popular teacher too, and he has a big number of friends, even his co-workers in UA whom he respected, and they did too. He knew each and every one of his co-workers and had a good friendship with even the grumpy Shota Aizawa, whom he knew since high school. So when said best friend who rarely smiles is heard cackling at the early morning, Present Mike liked to think that he had every right to be terrified. And at least the rest of the staff looked as scared until Snipe, God bless his soul, decided to man up and ask the question that everyone wanted to ask. So Aizawa watching that gotcha so hyped up. You look on a high, partner, Snipe asked, feeling uneasy. Everyone tensed as they saw the Erasure hero give his signature creepy grin with his bloodshot eyes wide open. They were surprised to see that he looked more awake than he did in years as he used his phone that he was reading to text them something. As they all got the message, they were confused to see a link for the website of an essay on Endeavor. And they felt like something huge happened, because if there's one thing Shota Aizawa hated more than the media, it's Endeavor. Clicking on the link, everyone were greeted by the sight of an essay that put their grumpy friend and co-worker on a high, and they dreaded what's about to come. Endeavor, how not to be a hero. Due to the recent discoveries on the heroes, people began to doubt the heroes from the top 10 to the small ones. The number 2, Todoroki Enji, also got some of that doubt. Admittedly, while he is a powerful hero with the abilities to back it up, the same cannot be said for his personality. Unfortunately for Japan, he had no concern for anything at all, other than to keep up his strong image out of his own overwhelming arrogance and supreme ego. With his new status, he possibly and probably tainted the definition on what it means to be a hero. Furthermore, he may also have ruined what All Might had tried to instill in young minds on what a true hero should be like. Based on the above points, this begs the following question: does he actually deserve his title as a true pro hero? This essay will provide the reasons of why the answer is no. Sources reveal that in Endeavor's attempts to get the #1 spot and subsequent failures prior to All Might's requirement was forced upon his youngest son, Shoto Todoroki. As an alumnus of UA, it is presumed that he had been taught the basic ethics that are crucial to have a professional hero career. One of them was the reminder to do whatever it takes to minimize structural damage or civilian causalities at all times. However, in the case of Endeavor, he was either sleeping during those lectures or he simply disregarded them in favor of the practical training lessons like the heroics class. Around 98% of the crime scene that have property damage, injured, dead civilians, or both had him involved. In fact, public records have stated that throughout his career, he has racked up billions of yen in collateral damage. Last year, based on the list of property damage and the number of innocent civilians sent to the hospital for varying degree burns, he had racked up 92,975,400,000 yen in terms of collateral damage. This means that throughout his 25-year reign as the #2 hero, it has become apparent that he puts so much priority to defeating the villains that he forgets to look out for the surroundings or the innocent people who happen to be there. Endeavor's actions are comparable to my childhood friend Bakugo when he first received his explosion quirk and constantly tested his quirk on living beings. Both of them also did not have the care of what it could mean to the victims or the consequences they could have faced. The amount of arrogance, pride, and glory hounding that he has is so astronomical that it is impossible to be measured by any unit measurements known to the human race. In the process, he destroyed his family and the lives of innocent civilians he was supposed to protect. In fact, he had already caused a lot of trouble during his visit to UA. Hi, to sum up, while Endeavor is prepared for the perks and publicity of being the #1 hero, he is certainly not prepared for the responsibility that comes with it. He will never be ready for the responsibility. That is, unless he can somehow get his head out of his ass and be mature enough to throw away his bruised ego from not earning his title via beating All Might. His new status as the society's symbol of hope has also brought concern, considering his violent nature with petty matters and his lack of concern for the public's safety. In conclusion, whilst the media attention on Japan's new #2 hero has receded his daily output of destruction from his mere presence at a scene, the responsibility that comes with the role is a responsibility that Endeavor cannot handle, and will probably never be able to unless he can miraculously throw away his bruised ego and pride from not beating All Might to the title of being #1. His violent nature with trivial matters and his clear lack of concern for the public that all heroes swear to protect is highly concerning. Villains had a point about Endeavor which still remains correct to this day. Endeavor is not a true hero. He's not even a remotely good hero. I wish that the presence of a new wave of heroes will send him into a much-needed early retirement. Not for his own good but for the good of the citizens of Japan. Everyone stayed silent as they finished reading the essay. No one dared to open their mouths and Shoto was still giving the same shit-eating grin. Then Mike snickered and everyone broke into a fit of laughter that could be heard throughout the UA campus. Present Mike was rolling over on the floor laughing as 13 was trying to hide their noticeable giggles. All of the other teachers were either chuckling or applauding the ambiguous writer of the text. "So, you read it all?" Snipe asked, shocked when Shoto nodded. "Yeah, and I enjoyed every word of it, and this is just a teaser to the actual essay. The real thing is 15 pages long," Eraserhead explained, still grinning his head off. The writer went on and continuously roasted Endeavor for each of the points he makes, each of them backed up by evidence, and then concludes with a return to why this man doesn't deserve his title, linking back to the main argument of the essay. Aizawa sent a hand into his scarf, pulling out enough copies of the essay so that everyone could have a read. Luckily, I have spares. The staff room almost instantly became a mess of laughter and joy, almost too much so that Nedzu was slightly worried about his staff. On the other hand, this essay was very insightful for the principal. Katsuki Bakugo was many things. A violent kid, sure. A strong kid, you bet. A spoiled brat, a little bit. Arrogant and loud, kinda. A grumpy kid that never smiles and always curses. Yeah, that's the best definition. So when this boy starts smiling widely in the cafeteria while looking at his phone, it's normal for everyone to look at him in a mixture of surprise, shock, and confusion. "Dude, are you okay?" Tsubasa asked, looking at Katsuki strangely. "Yeah, dude, I never saw you smile like that and I know you since we were 4. Daichai said, and Katsuki responded by giggling to himself. Yeah, something is definitely up with him, the two deduced. And they were proven right as Katsuki spoke loudly for everyone to hear. "Hey people, everyone looked at Katsuki. Get to this link if you wanna LYFAO. It's hashtag ENDEAVOURSUCKS209 Katsuki called out and everyone scrolled through Google until they found the site. The cafeteria broke into a fit of laughter and joy to the point some kids started rolling on the floor laughing. Some were banging their fists on the tables and some were holding their stomachs in pain from the sheer force of their laughter. As everyone finished reading, they were still trying to calm down. "Dude, now I get why you seem on a high. This is comedy gold," Daichai exclaimed. "Yeah, dude, I wish there was more." Tsubasa said, and Katsuki's wide smile turned to a shit-eating grin as he stood on the table. Hey, this was just a teaser, you extras. Katsuki pulled out a 15-page essay from his backpack and waved at this as the real thing. 15 pages of pure Endeavor roasting. Katsuki exclaimed, and everyone cheered. As he started reading, the cafeteria burst into a new fit of laughter on expanse of the flaming trash bin of Hero. Izuku scrolled through his HeroTube account to see how people liked his 15-page essay and was shocked by how supportive people were to his masterpiece. ROCKSTAR, yes, burn the dumpster fire. 0K likes. Pikachu, fuck yeah ma dude. Roast the flaming garbage. 5K likes. Vampire Queen, I heard of roasting marshmallows, but I never heard of roasting Burnig Garage. 7K likes. Invisibitch, so analytical but at the same time, so fucking glorious. 1.6 Kelvin likes. Riot in Red, this has cured my anxiety, cleared my skin, caused my crops to flourish, given me a 4.0 average, cleared my student loans, filled my bank account, and rendered me immortal. Thank you. 10K likes. Alien Queen, can we talk about how cute the channel owner sounds when he's not spiting flames of pure roasting genius? I bet he's an adorable ball of fluff. 7K likes. KINGEXPLOSIONMURDER. I know him and I fucking confirm it, bitches. 1K likes. In a dark bar, Dabai logged into the news, wondering what he would find today. When he saw a link for an essay on Endeavor, he was about to curse the writer's existence until he read the comments and immediately clicked on the link. He had to take a few minutes just to stop laughing too hard. Once he had, though, he opened the full 15 pages essay and had to sit down so he wouldn't fall over from cackling. Then, he noticed a few links in the comments selling the essay. He immediately ordered the copy to keep with him as a trophy. Dabai doesn't know who this small Mitex 209 is, but he'll be the first one to protect him if Endeavor tried to retaliate. Shit, seeing the comments, he'll probably be one from a million. He'll celebrate this guy, that's for sure. Tamura Shigaraki was always a hero hater. There's no surprise in that, so why does he watch the news on his phone? The answer is simple. He's looking out to see if some known hero died so he could throw a party and celebrate their death. He stumbled across an essay on the number 2 hero, and as he was about to write a cursing comment, he saw the praise and the insults thrown at Endeavor. Clicking, he ended up needing Kukurajiri's help to not keel over from his intense laughter. Izuku was eating dinner with his mom, who seemed like she won the lottery or something if her large grin was anything to go by. A good day? Izuku asked. You read the essay, right? Inko asked, and Izuku nodded. The rest of the night was spent on a long discussion over why Endeavor should not be a hero, and it left both mother and son in a much better mood. Endeavor scoffed at the news. Another nonsense story about the Green Shadow. Apparently the brat caught another corrupt, and the media are overpraising the little shit. But instead people seem to support him even more now. This Batman should just be arrested. He's a vigilante. Plain and simple, Endeavor thought. Suddenly the TV turned off. What the? Endeavor said. Inji Todoroki, came a voice from behind him. Endeavor immediately rose, turning around and coating his fist with fire. Standing there with a flaming fist in his face was Green Shadow, who was completely unfazed by the sudden increase in heat. How did you get in here? Endeavor yelled. You know what, that doesn't matter. You're under arrest. Green Shadow stood there, still completely unfazed. The number 2 hero scowled. What are you, dense? Are you retarded or something? Who the hell do you think I am? I am the goddamn number 2 hero. And you just broke into my house. Child abuse, Izuku said. The flame hero froze. What? Domestic violence? Izuku continued. Negligence, bribery, hiding information, arranging a quick marriage, breeding. You've been busy over the years. I wonder what the public would think. Izuku put his hand over a button on his utility belt. Would you like to find out? He asked, his voice modifier making it sound very menacing. What the hell are you talking about? Endeavor yelled. If I press this button, then all the proof I have of your activities goes right to the computers of every police station in the city, Izuku said. You're lying, Endeavor said. There's no way you could have proof of that. I found out about it, didn't I? Izuku said. That means there's a trail. And that means there's proof. There was a pause as Endeavor kept the fire in front of Izuku's face. Do it, he said. I'll survive my lowers. Can only do so much, Izuku said, cutting him off. And bribing won't work. I'll make sure of that. At best you'll have your hero license and children taken away. At worst you'll go behind bars. Either way, you're screwed. So Endeavor, why don't you turn your quirk off and we can talk? There was another pause before Endeavor complied, deactivating his quirk and putting his fist down. What the hell do you want? Endeavor asked. I want many things, Endeavor. I don't think you fully understand your situation. Izuku said. You're going to do everything I tell you. And if you refuse, then I will ruin you. Understood? If looks to kill, then this whole place would be a glass floor. There were so many things Endeavor wanted to shout out right now, but for his own sake, he kept his mouth shut. I said, understood. Izuku said, his finger getting closer to the button. Endeavor shut his eyes and swallowed his pride. Understood. Good, Izuku said. Now first, you're going to stop abusing your children. If you try, then I'll know. That means no more of those training sessions where you beat him until he can't go on. No more overexhausting him. No more holding meals as punishment. I could go on, but I would be here for a while, and you already know what I'm talking about. Damn you, Endeavor said before he could stop himself. That's not all, and you'll start sending money too, Izuku said. When I call, you will answer, and of course, you won't be telling anyone about our little talk. There was another short pause before Endeavor said, Who the hell do you think you are? Izuku smirked and said, What are you, dense? Are you retarded or something? Who the hell do you think I am? I am the goddamn Green Shadow, and you, Inji Todoroki, are on borrowed time. My time. With that, Izuku threw a smoke pellet on the ground and the room was covered in a gray cloud. Endeavor coughed as the smoke dispersed, and Izuku was nowhere to be seen. Dad, are you okay? Fayumi said. Endeavor turned around and looked at her with an enraged expression, a look containing more rage than she had ever seen before. She quickly closed the door as screams of rage and the sounds of things being destroyed eliminated from the room for the rest of the night. Izuku stood hidden outside of the Todoroki house, smiling as he heard Endeavor rage. He wished he could have just exposed him, but he couldn't. The faith in heroes was already being shaken with the small-time heroes he was exposing. If people found out that the number 2 hero was even more of an asshole than they already knew he was, then there would be chaos. Of course, that didn't mean he was going to let Endeavor off scot-free. And if he couldn't arrest him, then using him would have to do. He needed to find a way to get money anyway. Deciding that he had gotten enough satisfaction for now, Izuku left for his base. As Izuku got to the hideouts building, he found a limousine parking in front of it. Izuku blinked as he looked to see someone he recognized. Melissa Shield. Yeah, what the flying fuck was going on? Mei was waiting for Izuku to come back until the bell rang in the building. Ding dong. Immediately Izuku closed what he was looking at and looked at the camera that was at his front door. Outside his front gate was a black limousine and Melissa Shield. Mei pressed the button for her intercom. Hello, Mei said, taken off guard by her sudden appearance. Oh hello, Mei asked in surprise. Oh, I wanted to work with you, she said. Or should I say I wanted to work with Green Shadow. Instantly Mei's face shifted from confused to serious. Why don't you come in, Mei said. As Melissa got into the building, Mei took her into the base and the blonde girl whistled. Well, you did a great job with limited resources, Melissa complimented. Thanks. Here I make my perfect babies for Bunny to use. Melissa hummed in agreement. Izuku came in still in his hero gear and Melissa smiled. Hello Midoriya-kun. Nice to finally meet ya, Melissa said. Izuku sighed. 2 years in and already he's been found out. Great. How did you know? Izuku asked, getting to the point. Well, it's actually kind of funny, Melissa said, leaning back. You see, when I heard that a vigilante was going around that couldn't get arrested, well, I wondered exactly what everyone else wondered. Why didn't he just become a hero? Why not just get your license so you can use your quirk? I made a bunch of complicated theories on why someone would do this, but then it came to me. You know about Occam's razor, right? The principle that the correct answer is the simplest one, Mei said. So I thought, what if he's just quirkless? Melissa said. You see, no one would ever suspect a quirkless person of anything. Given how rare we are, to the point where some people have never even seen a quirkless person, it would be almost like suspecting a unicorn. It doesn't even come to mind. But when you are quirkless yourself, you can consider these things, Izuku said, starting to put the pieces together. So then you looked for the only quirkless person in the city who had enough money and was young enough to be Green Shadow. Because you know my father is a decently paid CEO overseas. Even if my parents are divorced, I still have access to his money. You just used these info to find me. Yep, Melissa said. I see. I need to find some ways to make my identity less obvious, Izuku said. If the only difficulty in finding me out is remembering that quirkless people exist, then that's an issue. Melissa laughed a little at that. Yeah, we have got to fix that. Mei gave her a confused look. Yeah, I said I wanted to work with you, Melissa reminded him. And I doubt you're going to just let someone who knows your identity out of your sight so easily. She's right, Izuku thought. Letting her run around with my identity would be illogical. And she could be of some help, I suppose. But did she come all the way from my island just to work with me? The thought made Izuku blush a little before shaking it off. Well, what exactly do you have planned? Izuku asked. Melissa smiled. Well, I was thinking that we would first need a new source of income. Tell me, how were you planning on getting more money to support your antics? Oh, I just blackmailed Endeavor and was going to drain money from him, Izuku said. Melissa raised an eyebrow. That? He abused his wife and kids, Mei justified. Oh, never mind, then keep doing that, Melissa said, losing all sympathy for the number 2 hero. But I also think we should have a more legitimate source of income. After all, I have a lot of things I want to make for you, and that's gonna cost a lot. Wait, before we continue, why do you want to help me anyway? Izuku asked. I doubt it's just because we're both quirkless. Well, eyes and no, Melissa said, slightly bashful. I want to help for a few reasons. When I found out about all the crimes some of these pros were committing, I was enraged. Heroes are supposed to inspire people, not that. So one of the reasons I want help is because, well, I want to expose these phonies just like you. Izuku was touched slightly. His work was inspiring others, some he always wanted. Putting those feelings aside, Izuku spoke. And the other reason? Well, you know how you fight quirkless, Melissa said. I think that you could be an inspiration to quirkless people everywhere. Nowadays, there are a lot of quirkless people who think they will never amount to anything. I want to fix that, and I think the two of us could help. Izuku was happy about that, knowing there's someone willing to help him and understands what it's like to be quirkless in this world. So are we partners? Melissa asked, extending her hand. Izuku looked at her hand for a few seconds before extending his own hand and shaking hers. So what is this plan on how to make money? Izuku asked. So simple. We're going to make a support company, Melissa said. Wait, what? Izuku asked. Wait a minute, he's my future investor. May snapped, and Melissa examined Izuku's gear. Well, this definitely a masterpiece, Melissa complimented as she looked at May and extended her hand. Partners? Melissa asked. May smiled brightly. Partners. But what should we name it? How about the Hatsum Shields Company? Izuku suggested, and the girls beamed. Wait, we're still kids, May protested. The two quirkless smirked. Actually, because of the high suicide rate for quirkless people, the government put a law that makes quirkless people adults at the age of 12. We can marry, own houses and companies, as well as have driving licenses, Izuku explained. Oh, that's cool. Keep me a share of the company then, May chirped. And with that, the Green Shadow gained a new ally with more resources and wisdom. 2 months after Melissa came and she got everything set. She made the base of their operations and the secret hideout with his help, of course. And in just 2 months it was finally built. Shield Manor. The manor was a large 4-story manor that looked like your typical rich person mansion. However, the place was secretly covered in all sorts of defenses. Turrets filled with tranquilizers hidden in the plants. Scanners for motion, heat and more all over the place. All the doors and windows could be fortified and covered by layers of steel at any moment. And Izuku found it hard to believe she got it built in just 2 months. Izuku decided that her family name and connections will come in handy in the future. And as for the company, the two quickly got to work making gadgets for their support company, and in just a week they already had a list of buyers, mostly thanks to the Shield name being so famous. So now they had a stable source of income, and May's help was very much appreciated. And thanks to her construction bots, they finally were able to start working on the Shadow's base. Melissa also helped him with his crime fighting. Taking up the codename Oracle, she helped speed up his investigations, upgraded his gear, and built him a whole bunch of new stuff. Yes, May actually asked to drop out, wanting to study for the next 2 years to be the best she can be before attending UA, and Izuku could only give her a hug and a tearful thanks for all her help. And the hardest part was speaking with his mother. At a dinner at the Bakugas, and he decided to come clean. Flashback. Izu-chan, you look tense, are you okay? Mitsuki asked. Izuku frowned as he looked at the couple and then his mother. He was contemplating if he was making the right choice, but decided that honesty is the best course of action. Izuku, you can tell us anything if you're worried, we'll help you, Masaru said with a gentle tone. Izuku shot a glance to Katsuki, who rolled his eyes. Either you speak, nerd, or I'll fucking do it. Katsuki growled. Honey, come on, we won't get mad. Into encouraged her son, who sighed. I'm going to move in live with my new partner in business, and I ask for you permission, Izuku said, and Into looked surprised. Like everyone else except Bakugo. Really, why? I know you made a business deal with that Shield girl, good for you too, you got a crushing success. But you can manage your business from home, Mitsuki said, and Izuku shook his head. It's not the only thing I do, Izuku explained as he grabbed a suitcase. The adults looked confused, and Katsuki's smirk didn't help ease their worry. Izuku went to change his clothes, leaving the adults confused and in co-suspicions. Few minutes later he came back dressed in his hero gear, and the adults gasped. What the fuck? You're the Green Shadow, Mitsuki asked in disbelief. How didn't we notice that? Masaru exclaimed, just for Katsuki to cackle. You knew, Mitsuki yelled, and Katsuki cackled even more. Knew? I fucking helped pull this shit off. He was the muscle. A friend of ours was the eyes and ears through hacking, and I was the information broker, Katsuki said between fits of laughter. Into stayed silent and then sighed. You don't seem freaked out, Inko-chan, Mitsuki observed with a raised brow. Inko shrugged her shoulders with a bored expression. I knew the whole time. Everyone gaped. What? Izuku asked in shock. Honey, from Green Shadow's debut you started waking up early and fell back in your courses. I mean, having a degree in quirk science, electrical engineering and business is still impressive, and you wake up with bandages and pretend that you went for a run, and you stay at your inventor friend's house a lot, or Katsuki. And you seem to look through the news for a crime like you're going to solve it yourself. I'm not a genius like you, but I'm smart. By the time Inko finished explaining, everyone was left stunned into silence. Then Katsuki chuckled. So that's where Ho got the detective mode from. Katsuki mused loudly. So you're moving with your inventor friend to get a safe base of operation, correct? Izuku nodded. Well, I'll allow since you'll be safer, but make sure to visit. Inta said, and Izuku hugged her. You'll just allow it? Masaru asked. Yeah, I thought you'll try to stop him or something. Mitsuki inquired. Inko laughed. I can't stop him. He's as stubborn as I'm. And he's happy with what he does. I won't take that from him. Inko said, and Izuku felt touched. After that, everyone decided to just enjoy the night together as a big family. How did you get the money for the company, by the way? Masaru asked, curious. Oh, I blackmailed Endeavor for abusing his wife and kids. Izuku answered simply. That night, the three adults learned to fear the green bean they raised because he was terrifying when he wanted to be. Flashback end. And once the green base was done and the green computer was finished, she was constantly in his ear. Literally thanks to the comm, giving him directions and looking things up on the fly, saving Izuku valuable time. It was just like Mei, and Izuku will miss his sister that he came to love over the past 3 years. Izuku, after getting his mother's blessings, had moved into the manor. They also made sure to cover up a lot of Izuku's information, making him harder to track, and he changed his name just to be safe. After asking his mother, she suggested he uses her name before she was adopted. Yes, his mother was given up for adoption as a baby. Her original family name was Shimura. Izuku looked through the files after he hacked the HPSC and found out that his grandmother's name was Nana Shimura. She died a short time after she gave up his mom and supposed uncle to adoption. Izuku deduced that his grandmother was chased after by dangerous people and ended up giving up her children for their safety. A great woman indeed. He decided to look into the info on his uncle later since he was in tight schedule right now. Honestly, the only part of all this that Izuku was displeased about was the butler. For whatever reason, Melissa insisted that he stay with them in the mansion, and considering everything she has done for him, he could not refuse. The butler was an old man with white hair and blue eyes, clearly British, and Izuku had nothing against him, he just liked secrecy. But he supposed they'll need help with the manners keeping, so he won't complain. Melissa also started attending UAS support course for name and reputation in the beginning of the new school year, so Izuku thought of attending the business course too in 2 years. Maybe the hero course for the fun to fuck with Kaken since UA got rid of the quirkless ban rule. In a dark classroom, an ugly yellow caterpillar jumped in sudden panic. All this achieved in just 2 months. Of course, this meant that Izuku had to focus less on catching villains and exposing fake heroes, so they had some catching up to do. Suiting up, Izuku took a look at the new adjustments. The suit from the outside wasn't that different, but beneath the bodysuit the gauntlets were far stronger. It could literally tank any punch thanks to the advanced shock absorption and the impact recoil aspect. The boots were modified to make bigger wind bursts to bounce off the walls better and hit harder. His gadgets were modified. The grappling gun was modified to pull him much faster. His smoke pellets were improved to last longer and make a bigger smoke screen. Melissa made an remote spray with explosive gel that explodes on with a button press. He also got throwing discs filled with nitroglycerin that can knock out anyone on detonation. Also a cryptographic sequencer to hack into servers and other things. As he finished suiting up and tying his belt around his waist, he walked to Melissa, who sat at the green computer, and stood up behind her. What's planned for tonight? He asked. There was murder, Melissa said, bringing the picture of a man on the computer screen. Kaigo Yosen, an accountant in the Mustafu General Bank. He was found dead few minutes ago, and if you hurry there you'll be able to investigate before the cops arrive. I've programmed the coordinates into the green jet. You finished testing it? Izuku asked. Just yesterday, Melissa answered. Now get going. Izuku nodded and ran off. Melissa pressed a button and a platform rose to reveal the green jet. The green jet was a large single-pilot plane on the shape of a bird. He has a freaking jet. Kaken was burning with jealousy when Izuku told him, jumping into the pilot seat. Izuku fired up. The plane flew through the exit tube. Once Izuku exited the tube, he ended up a few miles away from the manor and flew high into the air. Activate camouflage, Izuku said. As Izuku flew into the air, the green jet slowly turned somewhat invisible. You could still see it if you were up close, but seeing as it was an aircraft, it's unlikely that would ever happen. So while we have some time, do you mind telling me why everything is green-themed? Melissa asked over the communicator. One of my childhood friends wanted to give me a name that meant unwanted and should not exist, Izuku said. They tried Deku, but that was too obvious, so they decided on broccoli. Because like a broccoli, I was unwanted and nobody liked among kids. That's awful, Melissa said. You said a friend did that. Well, I never said he was a very good friend, Izuku responded. Izuku, whoever that was not your friend, Melissa said. People who pick on you and call you horrible things are not your friends. To be fair, that's probably the worst thing he did, Izuku said. It was Kaken, but we made up. He was picking on me in an attempt to toughen me up. He cared in a weird, messed up way, Izuku explained with a chuckle. That's the weirdest way of showing friendship I ever heard of, Melissa deadpan. Not that Izuku could see it. Well, nobody's perfect, Izuku said. The rest of the trip was silent as it only took a few more seconds for Izuku to arrive at the location. Jumping out, Izuku immediately started diving down in the air. Once he was in the right height, he used his cape to glide down to the crime scene. Izuku activated his detective mode as he walked to the scene. Detective mode was any investigator's best friend. It allowed him to find evidence, detect enemies, see details about anyone he wanted. It was almost magical how easy it made things. Examining the corpse, Izuku used his scanner to identify the victim. Name, Kaigo Yosen. Age, 35 years old. Sex, male. State, deceased. Izuku frowned as he scanned his body. Cause of death, severe physical trauma upon impact. The guy fell to his death, Izuku concluded as he looked at the way his body played on the ground. But was it an accident, a suicide, or was he pushed? Izuku wondered. Izuku looked at the roof where he fell and nodded to himself. Izuku grabbed his gun and grappled to the rooftop. As he stood there, he noticed the scattered papers and the suitcase. Using his detective mode, he scanned the area. The railing is broken and there's signs of a fight. The guy was obviously pushed down to his death, Izuku realized. Looking at the suitcase, he scanned it for the fingerprints and found 2 sets. One for the victim and the other one. Oracle, I need the last known location of Kagami Takashi. Izuku spoke through the earpiece. Well, give me a moment. He was last seen in the industrial district few minutes ago. Here's the last known location for him, Melissa said. Nodding, Izuku pressed a button on his belt and fired his grappling gun, catching the passing jet and taking off. 2 minutes later, Izuku jumped off and glided into a nearby building's roof. Landing on it, Izuku stood on the ledge, then crouched. Closing his eyes, Izuku channeled his senses like his mentor taught him. After a few seconds of focusing, he heard people speaking in a nearby alley. He didn't get rid of the body, said a man. No, I was in a hurry, said the possible suspect. Are you stupid? The cops will be after you in an instant. Another man spoke. The suitcase. Did you take it at least? Another guy asked. No, they won't. I'm leaving the city, then the country. I got my money back, the suspect said. You're dumb, I'm out of here. A fourth guy spoke and Izuku jumped on them. Izuku slammed the suspect to the wall and the guy yelped in agony. What do you want? Takashi asked, terrified. What happened with Yosen? Izuku asked. We had a deal. He was giving me account numbers and I faked being a client. I was giving him a share of the money in return. But he grew anxious and wanted out, so I stopped him. Takashi explained. So you threw him off the roof of a building? Izuku snapped as he flipped the man over his shoulder. The man yelled in pain as Izuku pressed a foot on his face. I couldn't risk him warning the bank or going to the cops. I had to protect my interests, Takashi exclaimed. Well, you only screwed up further. Izuku growled as he axe-kicked the killer in the face, knocking him out. Oracle, send the evidence I collected to the police and tell them that Kaigo Yosen's murderer is captured, Izuku said. Right away, Bunny, Melissa said in a friendly tone. With that, Izuku grappled away and went into the next assignment, whatever it might be. A group of instant villains are rioting other mall. All available units head there. Izuku heard through the police comms he hacked with Melissa's help. Looks like tonight isn't going to be a slow one at all. But Izuku was more than fine with that. Himiko Toga was not fine. Not fucking fine. Why, you ask? Well, there were a lot of reasons, to be fair. She always felt restricted, like she could never be herself. Because anytime she was herself, her parents would scream at her. The assholes. You might call that a rebellious phase. But it wasn't. Why can't you be normal? Act like you're not a freak for once. That's what they would say. Well, they are the freaks. Control freaks. There was also the issue that every part of life felt fake. Felt empty. Like she was pretending to be someone else. And she was growing tired of it. School today was tiring. The teachers gave multiple tests. The kids in school kept flirting with her and her friends kept fussing about the new fashion stuff and all that girly things. Don't get her wrong, she does give a shit about her looks like everyone else, but she wasn't obsessed over what she looked like. And that was the normal crap of her everyday life. Today, though, a fight broke between a bunch of boys. They got pretty roughed up. They were bleeding and it took all of her strength to not lash out at them and suck all of their blood. Because normal girls don't drink blood and all that bullshit. Then her session with the damn quirk counselor who was supposed to help her be nice and normal. Whatever the fuck that means. God damn it, the guy was annoying and he keeps giving the same crap about being nice and normal and doing girl things and staying away from blood. Then as she was walking and cursing Endeavor's existence, because why not? He seems like a jackass from the essays she found on the internet, and cursing the guy's name always put her in a better mood for some reason. Anyway, as she was walking, she ended up taking a wrong path because she was too busy sulking in her own misery and got lost. Fan-fucking-tastic. Scowling, Himiko grabbed her phone and started looking for her location in the GPS to go home. It was already getting late and her parents will definitely scold her. Well, screw them. She had more important things to deal with right now. As she walked, her phone shut down from dead battery. Eye-twitching, Himiko decided to just ask around. She just wished for one fucking good thing to happen today. Was that too much to ask? Well, today couldn't get any shittier, so whatever. But it seems like the world took that as a challenge because as she passed by an alleyway a pair of arms grabbed her and slammed her on a wall. And then her mouth was covered. Himiko looked to see 4 men in front of her. One of them was holding his hand over her mouth to shut her up, and the other hand was taking the shape of a knife. The other 3 seemed in a bad mood like him. "Well, lady, just give us her money and we won't hurt you," asshole one said, who was pinning her to the wall. Rolling her eyes, she gave him her wallet. There wasn't much in it anyway. She keeps her money in her room. The man scowled as he counted the money. "The hell, is that all you have?" Asshole 1 asked, irritated. "Man, I thought she was rich." Asshole 2 said, "Seriously, these dipshits must be dumb if they thought she was rich because she wasn't. Well, we can get other things from her." Asshole 3 said with a grin. "Yeah, she's kinda cute to be fair." Asshole 4 said, "In another day she might have blushed, but right now she was considering grabbing the box cutter in her pocket and slashing them down." "Cute, yes, but way out of your league." Himiko froze at the cold, chilling voice, as did the idiots. Himiko looked up to see her favorite green bunny in all his badass glory standing on the emergency stairs and glaring at the morons like they kicked his puppy. "Holy shit, it's Green Shadow!" Himiko exclaimed in joy. "Holy shit, it's Green Shadow!" The morons exclaimed in horror. Himiko knew that Green Shadow was her age, but seeing it in person was sight to behold. It was love at first sight. She had seen Green Shadow before. She even looked up to him. He did what he wanted and no one could stop him. It's the kind of life she longed for. "Come on guys, he's alone, we can take him." "Bullshit. Yeah, we're 4 and he's alone, come on." "Well, he usually fight more than 12 at once in less than 5 minutes, so good luck." Green Shadow jumped down, and no need to describe the massive ass kicking these losers got. It wasn't even 30 seconds and they were down. "You fine?" Green Shadow asked. "Can you talk?" "Why, yes," Toga stuttered, partly because she was recovering from the choking and partly because she was starstruck. "Are you okay?" Green Shadow asked her. "Why, yeah, I'm fine," Toga said. "Good," Green Shadow said. "The heroes should be here to take him away soon," Green Shadow said. "But in case he wakes up before they get here, I would recommend leaving the area. Have a nice day." Green Shadow pulls out his grapple gun and aims at one of the buildings and firing. "Wait," Himiko said. Green Shadow pressed the trigger to pull himself to the building when Himiko grabbed his waist. "What the?" Green Shadow was not prepared for the extra weight, and the two flew over the ledge of the building before landing face first onto the roof. "That was dumb," Green Shadow said. He didn't sound mad or like he was scolding her. He was just stating a fact. What she did was dumb. And fuck, that was embarrassing. "Yeah, sorry," Himiko apologized. "All right, what do you want?" Izuku asked. "How do I be like you?" Himiko blurted out. "Like me," Izuku repeated. "How so?" "Free," Toga clarified. "You do what you want, whenever the hell you want, wherever the fuck you want. And no one else can tell you what to fucking do. I want to be like that." Himiko was literally yelling. "Ah," Green Shadow said in understanding. "Let me guess. People are telling you what you are, how you should act, what you should be. And anytime you step out of line, they smack you back into it." "Yes," Himiko said, relieved that someone finally understood her. "How the hell did you know?" "Because they tried to do the same thing to me. Vigilantism isn't really a popular thing to do, and a lot of heroes, even though they can't come after me, kept saying that I should stop. I refused to listen," Green Shadow said. Himiko couldn't believe it. They were very similar. "What is your name?" Green Shadow asked. "Himiko Toga," she answered. "Please call me Himiko." "Himiko, you're different, aren't you?" It wasn't a question, it was a statement. Shit, was she that obvious? Toga looked away. She had tried so hard to try and bury that abnormal part of her, and he was able to figure her out in only a few minutes. Part of her was upset about that, but the rest of her was excited. "Society doesn't like people who are different," Green Shadow went on. "They bully them, shun them, try to get them to conform. And some do. They suppress what makes them different until they fit it in. But it's almost always temporary. Those bottled up emotions and feelings will eventually burst and cause them to act rashly. It's one of the reasons I do what I do." Green Shadow walked up to Himiko and looked at her eye to eye. "Holy shit. It's like he's staring into my soul," Toga thought with glee. "My advice to you, always resist," Green Shadow said. "Never lose sight of who you are, and don't let someone else take control of your life." Himiko said nothing as she stared at him in awe. "Live your life, Himiko," Green Shadow said before turning around and grappling away. For a while Himiko just stared at the space where Green Shadow stood before smiling herself. A new life had just started for Himiko Toga, and nothing on earth will fucking stop her. Izuku sighed as grappled away. "That poor blonde girl seemed to need help. He knows what it's like to be treated badly because you're different. He was quirkless after all, so maybe after he's done with this trigger investigation he'll pay her parents a beating visit. He'll pay them a visit." He won't lie, he felt a weird protectiveness towards this Himiko. and he hoped things will work out in the end. Izuku jumped between buildings at top speed. Thanks to Akaguro's training, he was now Parkour Master. He could outrun almost anyone that on rooftops, but as he was traveling he couldn't shake the feeling that he just created the biggest problem child in his life. Who calls people problem children anyway? Somewhere else a tired man with long black hair, yellow goggles and a weird scarf sneezed. "All right, Bunny, you're almost there. Be careful and remember that these guys are rash and won't hesitate to strike." Oracle spoke through the earpiece. Nodding, Izuku jumped from the ledge, and after using the wall to kill his momentum while descending, he landed in the alleyway. "So anything to report, Oracle? Any crimes in progress?" Green Shadow asked. "No, nothing happening around. Focus on your objective right now. Hopefully we'll get to the bottom of this matter," Oracle said, and Green Shadow nodded. Oracle was speaking about the instant villains case he started with a couple nights back. For some unknown reason, people, mostly delinquents, lose control and start rioting and causing chaos, becoming instant villains. Izuku felt curious because it was happening randomly and decided to investigate, which led him to Kamino, and now he going to raid a small warehouse where a small gang are producing Trigger. Trigger, which is used to usually enhance quirks and force them to activate, was the main suspect in this case since it was the logical explanation to the strange behavior of the instant villain. His investigation led him to this small warehouse where a supposedly small gang was producing Trigger, but he suspects that it's more than that and that they work for a bigger organization. He'll interrogate one of them and hear what he wants. Activating detective mode, he entered the warehouse and grappled to the top, taking a vantage point to see everything. 9 men, 4 of them armed. The place seems to have multiple vents and grates as well as dark corners. "This place is my playground," Izuku smirked. Battle plan in mind, Izuku jumped and silently landed behind one of the guys. Grabbing his taser, he carried the guy's mouth and silently stunned him into unconsciousness. Then he entered one of the vents and crawled until he was in another vent behind a guy that was surely not expecting anything to happen. Breaking through the vent, Izuku swept the man's legs and tasered him. He created a noise that made 2 guys come over to this spot, so he hid behind a corner as the 2 guys were checking their friend. Silently getting behind them, he grabbed both of their heads and smashed them together, knocking both guys out. Then he went to the other 5 guarding a door, and while hiding in a corner close to them, he threw a sleeping gas bomb that got the men to fall asleep. Izuku walked to the door they were guarding, and with his detective vision he could see a man counting his money. No gun in the room. That's much easier, Izuku thought. Kicking the door, Izuku threw an electric disc at the guy, disabling him. He has a quirk that made his arms made of steel. Nothing worth worrying about. Izuku walked to the paralyzed man and kicked him out of his desk. "Who the fuck do you think you are?" the man shouted. Izuku knelt down in front of the man, his eyes shining in the darkness, making him look far more intimidating to the man. "I'm Green Shadow." The man paled. "Good, he'll speak." Channeling some Kai, Izuku continued, "And you're going to answer my questions. Who's your boss?" "I'm the boss." The man snapped. "Wrong answer." Izuku kicked the guy, causing him to yell in pain, and then grabbed him from the throat and pinned him to the wall. "Try again, friend." Izuku increased his Kai to terrify the guy. Sweating and shivering in fear, the man decided to speak. "Yakuza. I work for the Yakuza." The man blurted out. "The Yakuza? But what gain do they get from wasting Trigger on people? How do you even inject people with it?" Izuku asked. "We don't inject anyone, we sell to people who does," the man said. "To who?" Izuku demanded, tightening his grip on the man's throat, making him gasp for air. The man was too scared to finish the sentence. "Speak." Izuku snapped, punching the wall next him to the guy hard enough the wall cracked. "The Boogaman." The man yelled. "It's the Boogaman. Please, that's all I know," the man pleaded. Izuku nodded to himself as he cackled his fist back. "Thank you and enjoy your nap," Izuku said as he punched the guy in the face, knocking him out. Izuku exited the warehouse, leaving tied-up gangsters and a lot of everyone dance. He took some of the books and written contacts and schedules to give to the police later. He grappled into a nearby building and crouched on the ledge, then activated his earpiece. "Oracle, I think this case became more complicated," Izuku said with uncertainty. "Why? What's wrong?" Oracle asked, worried. "What can you tell me about the Boogaman of the underground?" Izuku asked. "Well, he is, according to the HPSC database, a man who ... Oh dear, that's concerning." Oracle spoke. "What's wrong, Oracle?" "Well, he is a person who can take and give quirks. He lived since the dawn of quirks, and Uncle Might fought 4 years ago and got severely injured, weakening him immensely," Oracle said. "So the 3 hours theory was correct?" "Huh," Izuku grumbled. "Well, that's enough investigation for one night. Anything else to deal with?" Izuku jumped to the side and grabbed what seemed like a long bandage and yanked it towards him. Izuku looked at who tried to grab him to see a trio he didn't expect. Eraserhead, Present Mike, and Midnight. Izuku greeted. "To what do I owe the pleasure of this meeting?" Izuku asked, still grabbing the capture scarf and healing it tightly. Eraserhead struggled with Izuku until Present Mike spoke. "Please let go, we're not gonna hurt you, little listener. He just tried to tie me up," Izuku stated. Midnight smacked Eraserhead on the head. See, Eraser, you scared the kid. She scolded. I'm not scared. I can just grapple away if I want. It was a fact. Eraser stopped struggling and Izuku let go of the scarf. You're strong for a 13-year-old. Eraserhead grumbled as they all came closer and sit beside him on the ledge. So what's the sweet bunny doing in Kamino? You know you shouldn't be that far from home, right? Midnight teased. You three shouldn't be here. This place is far from your Pantral area. Izuku stayed matter-of-factly, ignoring Midnight's teasing. Well, we came for a case, little listener, Mike said. If it's about the instant villains, then way ahead of you. The three gaped. You know you shouldn't be doing hero cases, right? Eraser asked, annoyed. I do what I want, Aizawa-san, Izuku said, and the three looked at him weary. How do you know my name? Aizawa asked. Oh, I know a lot of things, Izuku said nonchalantly. How else should I expose fake pros? You three are a role model for what heroes should be, and that's why I'm speaking to you, Izuku explained. The praise is warming my heart, listener, Mike said. Oh, I am a listener. I listened to your radio show since I could remember, Izuku said, and Mike cheered. Back to the case. Any info? Eraser asked. Izuku looked at them seriously. Drop the case if you value your lives. I'll give the evidence to Captain Naomasa Tsukachi and then drop it myself, Izuku stated. The three were surprised. What got him so worried to the point he's dropping the case? Kiddo, can ask you a question? Midnight asked gently. Sure, if not too personal, Izuku responded. Why do you do what you do? Midnight asked, and Izuku chuckled. Because I like helping people, Izuku responded. Then why not become a pro hero? You could have waited until you grew up and then do what you in more freedom and even use your quirk, Aizawa pointed out. Izuku laughed. I'm quirkless. No hero school will take me, Izuku said, amused. The trip gaped. Quirkless? The kid was quirkless, and he was literally more popular than most heroes. Well, they get his point. Hero schools don't take quirkless people, and vigilantism is his only option. It was sad, really. Well, gotta go do bye, Izuku said as he got up and grabbed his gun. Wait, kid, Izuku threw a smoke bomb before Aizawa could finish his sentence, and the trio heard of the hook gunfire. They looked up to see Green Shadow enter a fucking jet and take off. He has a jet, Mike exclaimed, and Midnight had stars in her eyes. Eraserhead pinched his nose and sighed. This problem child will be his death. Well, he'll listen to the warning and drop the case. After all, if the person who defied the whole country called it dangerous, then it is. But for some reason he felt like he'll see more of the kid in the future, and he was preparing for the headache that's about to come. Well, the only logical thing to do is curse endeavored existence and call it a night. He just wants to go to his sleeping bag and slumber. Shota glanced at his two companions to see that they were still fawning over the jet. God damn, Endeavor. He was going to sleep for a whole day after this. After all, he needs to be cheered up. Maybe he should take Emi on that date offer. Life was hectic in the past 3 years. For Tsukachi, it was something normal. When you're best friends with All Might, he was used to helping the guy and dealing with the aftermath of the #1 hero's work. He was always used to late nights and tiresome investigations. It was part of the job after all. But all that became a joke compared to what he was dealing with since Green Shadow debuted. The boy started with small crime fighting, and Naomasa thought nothing of it. Then he started going bigger, defeating villains and exposing corrupt heroes and politicians. Naomasa's headache started then. All the paperwork caused by the kid and all the distress from the public was worrisome. Don't get him wrong, he was happy these guys were arrested, but now the public became very supportive of the boy. And few months ago, that very kid brought down the police captain in the city. He was nominated as the new captain. He could almost swear the kid had something to do with it because he never even tried for the position, and he was somehow recommended, and his clean and very eventful record as a detective reached the authority figures, and he was appointed a week after. Toshinori was over the roof when Naomasa told him. He said that it was what Naomasa deserved for being a good cop and helping others as much as he could. Now things were harder for the government in the public view. Things have been rough ever since Green Shadow showed up. At first, it was only a minor problem. People were obviously shocked that pro heroes were committing crimes. But it wasn't too bad. However, as time went on, Green Shadow started exposing more and more corrupt pros. While he was glad these fakes were being exposed, the sheer amount of pros getting convicted had caused the public's opinion to shift. Now more and more people were supporting Green Shadow, saying that today's society needed someone like him. But the real problem was that people were starting to distrust heroes. Basically, everyone but the most popular heroes were now under suspicion by the public. At this point, Green Shadow could probably accuse almost any hero of being corrupt, and there would be a good amount of who would believe him, even if he didn't provide any evidence. And God, he really hopes Green Shadow stays his only problem. Captain Naomasa Tsukachi sighed and slumped in his chair. He just got a report about a new pro that was arrested. Captain Celebrity was never his favorite, but he didn't think the guy would use his stats to force women to sleep with him. Maybe Green Shadow was needed after all. Naomasa grumbled. Good to know you support me. Naomasa jumped and aimed his gun at the window to see the one and only Green Shadow crouching in his window and looking at him. "So you're the famous Green Shadow," Naomasa said to start the conversation since he didn't know how to talk to the kid. What he didn't expect was for the kid to groan in annoyance. "Don't remind me. The damn vultures were on me since day one. I was supposed to be a myth, not a celebrity." The boy WhatIf and Tsukachi felt like he heard Shouta speaking. "I wanted to be a person that no one expects, and now people speak about me as much as All Might." Tsukachi smiled in sympathy. This kid wasn't a person that cared about fame. He just wanted to do the right thing and he expected nothing in return. "What do you need to tell me, Shadow?" Naomasa asked. It must be something important if he came in person. "Here, take this." Naomasa caught a flash drive Green Shadow tossed to him. "It's important, so read it alone," the boy explained. Naomasa turned and put the flash drive in his desk drawer and then turned back to the guy. "Hey, what's imp?" Naomasa stared at now the empty window before shaking his head. Today couldn't get worse. Well, he should have kept his mouth shut if the pissed off Aizawa storming into his office was anything to go by. "What's wrong?" Naomasa asked, afraid of the answer. Shouta scowled and Naomasa felt dread. Shouta sit in one of the chairs and slammed his head on the table. "Prepare the coffee." Aizawa raised his head and gave a look of a man done with living. "A new vigilante has appeared." Naomasa's eyes widened in horror. A 13-year-old girl in a red kitten hoodie. Aizawa slammed his head on the table harder this time and started mumbling something about hellspawn sent to torture him while the captain wailed in misery. It's been 2 months since he started the trigger case. First off, the buyer who's using the trigger to aimlessly wreak havoc is the world's greatest villain, and the supplier is the goddamned Yakuza. Izuku finished his dinner with Melissa and they both went to the green base. Izuku suited up and pulled up his cowl and metal face mask, walking behind Melissa, who was sitting behind the green computer and tipping. Izuku put a hand on her shoulder as he looked at the screen. "So what do we have today, big sis?" Izuku asked, smirking when the girl blushed. "Well, there's a new vigilante that's been causing trouble recently," Melissa said, and Izuku raised a brow. "Trouble? How so?" Izuku asked. "Well, she slashes the thugs and muggers with a box cutter and then runs off. She hasn't killed anyone, but she seems to be a bit too violent," Melissa explained. Izuku sighed. It must be some girl inspired by him and wanted to save people, so she was his responsibility. The Yakuza will have to wait for a bit. In the Shai Hisekai base, Kai Chizaki felt relieved for some reason. "Well, what's her description?" Izuku asked. "Well, nothing notable. Just a red kitten hoodie, blue jeans, and yellow goggles. The flashiest thing about her is the fact that she has a pair of boxes full of box cutters, which is a bit ironic if you ask me," Melissa said, and Izuku hummed in thought. "She doesn't care what she looks like. She beats the villains and then runs off. She seems to be decent at combat too if she pulled through for 2 months. Izuku looked at Melissa intrigued. "How old is she?" 12 or 13, Melissa said. "I'm mentoring her," Izuku declared. "What?" Melissa asked, startled. "Well, she seems to be a good girl, and if her skills are in need of sharpening, I'll be happy to do that," Izuku said. "If I may make a suggestion." The two looked behind them to see Alfred was standing behind them, with a food tray in his hand. "Alfred," Melissa exclaimed in shock. What are you doing here?" Izuku sighed. Thanks to his training, he was already aware that someone was walking up behind them, and thanks to common sense, he already knew it was the butler. If he was staying here, then it was bound to happen eventually. "Good thing he's loyal," Izuku muttered. "I'm so sorry I was kinda just hoping he wouldn't find out," Melissa said. "You thought I would never find out about the entrance to the large cave?" "That was right under the manor," Alfred said. "I am insulted that you would underestimate my intelligence to such a degree." Melissa probably just deluded herself into thinking that because she wanted to justify keeping you around, Izuku said. "If anything, it's a testament to how much she likes you." "Izuku," Melissa yelped in embarrassment. Alfred chuckled. "I should hope so. I was the one who changed her diapers after all." "Alfred," Melissa's face was crimson now. "And you seem to be taking my presence here with no hint of surprise, Master Izuku," Alfred said. "I wasn't able to delude myself into thinking someone as sharp as you would never find something so obvious," Izuku replied. "No offense, Melissa. You two are the worst," Melissa pouted. "Anyway, you had a suggestion," Izuku said. "Well, if she was someone inspired by you, then there's a high chance that she started following your footsteps because she has no one to worry about her," Alfred explained. "So you're suggesting that she has no one to care for her, so if she truly wanted to be like you, she would certainly jump at the chance of joining us," Alfred explained, and Izuku hummed in agreement. "But how should I find her in this big city?" Izuku wondered loudly. "Well, you can use the green bullet," Melissa smiled. "You finished it?" Izuku was surprised and excited. "Yup, there it is." Melissa pointed to a dark green car with armor and the symbol of a bunny on it. Izuku walked to the armored car and pressed a button in his belt that made the driver door open. Grinning, Izuku got in and started the engine of the car. Izuku took off through a special tunnel made for the car and sped off towards the city. Izuku sped through the highway to the Endeavor Hero Agency to look for the Red Hood since she was last seen in that area. "I'm surprised that Endeavor didn't go after her, but I'm grateful for that," Izuku mused. "Oh, he did," but she keeps slipping away. Melissa giggled. Really? Izuku asked. That's impressive. Any new info, Oracle? Izuku asked. Well, I'm not sure, but it seems that ... Oh dear, Melissa whispered. What's wrong, Oracle? Izuku asked. After a few seconds, Oracle started to laugh loudly. Cackling could be heard through the earpiece, and Izuku was getting a good feeling. Our little kitten trashed Endeavor's office and disappeared. It's all over the news. They don't know who did it. I erased the camera footage. Melissa was laughing so hard that it almost hurt Izuku's ears. Izuku stayed silent for a few seconds before his face broke into a shit-eating grin. I'm adopting that kitten, Izuku exclaimed as he sped off to where she was last seen. Izuku was a serious person. Anyone who knew could say that much. But he was never afraid of laughing when he wanted to. So he did. Izuku looked at the trash thrown inside Endeavor's office from a rooftop and cackled loudly. The sight of the burning pile of garbage throwing a temper tantrum and screaming about catching the offender made him laugh even further. Please tell me you recorded that, Izuku asked his partner. You bet. I'll keep this forever, Melissa chirped. Maybe we should make a roasting video next about Endeavor since the essay was a crushing success, she asked. Nice idea. We should ask Hood for her opinion first. Izuku chuckled. Hey, I found her. She's 2 blocks away fighting a mugger, so hurry, Melissa said, and Izuku took off, bouncing between walls like a ping pong using the jet boots. He got there quickly but found no one. Only a beaten-up thug with a cut on his chest. After confirming that it's not lethal, he went after the trail of blood he found. But it was a loose end because he only found a box cutter laying down on the ground abandoned. Izuku activated detective vision and scanned the knife, but he didn't find any fingerprints. A smart girl. Good, he likes a challenge anyway. So he grappled to the roof and closed his eyes. After a bit of focusing his senses, he realized that this girl could hide her presence. Shit, Oracle, can you look for her? She can escape my sensing abilities, Izuku asked through the earpiece. Well, sure, give me a moment. I have her description on the green computer, so it shouldn't take too long, Melissa said. An hour later. Anything, Oracle? Izuku asked. Ugh, no. How's that possible? It's like she can change her appearance. Melissa trailed off at the realization. Well, shit. The past few days were a pain for Izuku and Melissa. This Red Hood was too good at hiding and running off to the point that both Izuku and Melissa couldn't find her. Izuku wasn't arrogant and wasn't one to brag, but he was good at finding people, so when someone is able to evade him for so long, it gets annoying, especially when he's trying to help that person. Anything, Oracle? No, it's not. Oh shit, it's her. And just 2 blocks away, Melissa yelled, and Izuku started bouncing off the walls at speed he didn't know he possessed. And sure enough, he saw Red Hood fighting a bunch of guys. As he landed close to them, she knocked the last of them out. But he was too much in a hurry. He tripped and fell to the ground and hit the wall. Bunny, the girl cried out in a familiar voice. She ran towards Green Shadow and helped him to his feet. You okay, Bunny? Said the girl. I'm fine, Izuku said. This must be Red Hood. But why does she sound so familiar? Wow, this is almost exactly how we met the first time. But reversed, the girl said. Izuku looked up at her to see that Red Hood was none other than Himiko Toga. Himiko Toga, Izuku said, surprised by her presence. Toga pouted. I told you to call me Himiko. You're the Red Hood. Izuku was shocked. Yup, Toga said happily. How do you like my name? I really like the color red. Izuku, are you okay? Melissa asked. I'm fine, Oracle, Izuku said. Oh, thank God, Melissa said. Hey, are you talking to someone? Toga asked. So how are we gonna do with her? Melissa asked. Izuku sighed. Get the green bullet. I'm taking her home. Hee. Toga laughed nervously. Well, I don't really have a home, Suo. Izuku froze. What? Izuku asked in shock. Yeah, my parents were really upset when they found out I was doing this, and they told me to stop, Toga explained. So I stood up for myself. They tried to beat me. I fought back and they disowned me. Yup, it's on the record, Melissa said after searching up Toga's family. Izuku stood there in shock. He had no idea what to do. He sighed. I'm the one who gave her that advice. I'm the reason she's in this situation. I need to take responsibility. Izuku turned to her. Would you like to come with me? At speed so fast Izuku's well-trained eye had trouble keeping up. Toga launched herself at him, getting her face a bit too close to his. Yes, she answered. Yes. Wow, she's acting like you just proposed. Melissa snarked. Looks like we got a fangirl on our hands. Izuku backed up quickly and pulled a blindfold out of his belt. Put this on, Izuku said. I know it might be a bit suspicious, but... Okay, Toga said, taking the blindfold and putting it on with no hesitation. This girl is definitely an odd one, Izuku thought. Wow, W-O-O-W, Toga shouted as she looked all around the cave. You actually live in a cave. A cool cave. A big cool cave. So why did you bring her here? Melissa asked. She was concealing her identity by wearing a bat cowl she had made for herself. Well, I couldn't just leave her there, Izuku defended. I had to do something with her. So what are we adopting her? Melissa snarked. Izuku shrugged in response. She has no one else to take care of her. She needs a home and a family. Plus, you always said I need someone to work with and that being alone will get me killed. Izuku argued. Melissa nodded. Yes, I like that. You need a partner, Melissa said. Does that mean I'm your sidekick now? Himiko exclaimed in joy. Partner Himiko. I don't like the term sidekick, Izuku said with a frown. How humble, Melissa said sarcastically, but she was smiling. Well, can I see your faces? Himiko asked. And to be fair, they were wearing masks. They both took off their masks, showing their faces. Wow, you're that Melissa Shield girl, Himiko said. I saw you on a bunch of magazines. I thought you looked cute, so I remembered you. See, cute? Melissa blushed. Yeah, don't you think she's cute, bunny? Himiko asked Green Shadow. Yes, Izuku said bluntly. My name is Izuku Midoriya, but outside in public you should call Deku Shimura. Clear? Izuku asked. Clear. Himiko cheered. Wait, Deku, why call yourself useless? Himiko asked. Well, kids called me that for being quirkless, so I decided to be a rich businessman with that name. I was always a fan of irony after all, Izuku explained. Cool, you're really amazing. Himiko cheered. Well, we'll get you to school tomorrow, but for now follow Alfred to your permanent room, Melissa said, and Alfred came. Also, now that Lady Melissa's and Master Izuku's identity is exposed, may I come out? Asked Alfred, who was standing in the shadows. Oh my god, you have a butler, Toga gasped as she ran over and inspected him. You think she can handle school? Because I'm sending her to Aldera with your buddy Kaken, Melissa said to Izuku. Izuku looked at Toga, currently pestering Alfred. We'll see. Himiko groaned as she silenced her alarm clock. Getting up from the big and very soft bed, she yawned and stretched a little before going to the bathroom within her big apartment-sized room. She washed her face and brushed her teeth. After that, she stripped from her clothes and entered the shower to clean herself. She was too tired yesterday to take a shower. Sighing in relief, she let the warm water wash all of her troubles and concerns. She found herself people who cared for her, and she had a nice big, a bit too big home with very nice people. As she exited the bathroom and dried herself with a towel, she went to her huge closet and grabbed her new school. How was she transferred overnight? Uniform. The Aldera School District was one of the shittiest school districts in the city, so why did Bunny and Melissa sign her there? Don't get her wrong. She was well damn thankful for their kindness, but it seemed off when they told her about her new school. Sighing, she finished dressing and started brunching her hair. She thought of letting loose like she did in her old school, but she decided that she's living a new life, so she'll use a new hairstyle. Fucking perfect, Himiko exclaimed as she looked at the mirror. Her hair, pale, ash blonde colored hair, was now styled into two messy buns, with numerous wild strands sticking out, a straight fringe and two chin-length side bangs framing her face. She looked cute. And now for the badass touch in her outfit. She unbuttoned the upper two buttons of her white button-up shirt and opened her uniform. She made a cocky smirk and glared at her reflection in the mirror. Fan-fucking-tastic. Himiko nodded to herself and exited the bathroom. As she did, there was a knock on the door. Lady Himiko, breakfast is ready. Come downstairs, please, so I can drive you to school. Alfred spoke behind the door. Himiko smiled. 1 second, I'm fixing my looks. As she walked through the mansion, she went to the ridiculously long dining table and took a seat beside Melissa, who beamed at her. Izuku was at the head of the table beside Melissa, reading a newspaper and drinking a cup of black coffee. Morning, kitten. How did you sleep? Melissa asked. Himiko giggled. The best I ever had. And not just because the bed is well damn comfy, but I don't live with quirkiest jerks anymore, Himiko exclaimed, and the other two smiled. Happy to hear that. And when you get to school, you're allowed to beat up anyone who had it coming, Izuku said, glancing at her from his newspaper. Well, don't encourage her to cause trouble, Izu, Melissa scolded, and he huffed in amusement. Well, that school is full of bullies and maniacs, so she should stand up for herself and others, Izuku said while sipping his coffee and reading the news. He chuckled. Looks like Endeavor is losing PR quickly, Izuku said, amused. Well, he was never popular to begin with, Melissa snarked, and they snickered. Well, who in their right mind would like a 180 kg pile of burning dog shit? Himiko asked, and Melissa burst out laughing. Izuku chuckled, then it turned into a cackle. Nice one, Izuku said. Melissa wiped a tear from her eye. I thought he was way above the 200, she said. Himiko smiled. With her parents, she could never joke and laugh like that, but here, it was barely few hours, and she was happier than she ever was. They stopped laughing as Alfred brought their food. As the old butler put the dishes in the table, Himiko noticed that her food was colored red, and the smell seemed familiar somehow. But she couldn't place it. As they started eating, Himiko started with the soup. Her eyes widened in shock as tasted it. It's made with blood in it. Himiko couldn't believe it. They were feeding her blood, and they weren't even seeing it as a big deal. Do you like the food, Lady Himiko? Alfred asked, and Himiko nodded as she was eating. Happy to know you like it, Melissa said. After the food, the three went to the limousine and got in. Alfred went to the driver's seat as the three sat in the back. So you going to work? Himiko asked the two in formal clothes. Izuku was wearing a suit. He looks nice. and Melissa was wearing a formal businesswoman attire. Yeah, I have a meeting and Izuku is meeting with the construction company for one of our projects, Melissa explained. Wow, aren't you guys a bit too young to work though? Himiko asked. They explained to her the rules about quirkless people being adults at 12 and after a bit they reached her new school. Bye Himiko, have a nice day. Melissa waved as the Himiko exited the limousine. Break a leg Himiko, Izuku said casually and she almost thought he was serious. As they left she noticed everyone looking at her in shock. She scowled and glared at everyone. What? Himiko snapped and everyone went back to whatever they were doing. We have a new student today. Be nice everyone, she came from a good family and we don't need a lawsuit, the teacher said and she entered the classroom. Himiko entered the classroom and every boy stared at her clothes, mostly chest, but she had nothing to be ashamed of and she scowled. Glaring at everyone they seemed to stiffen. Cowards. Well losers, I'm Himiko Toga. I came from another school for beating the crap out some kids who harassed me. I suggest you know your place and fuck off, or I'll give you a trip to the emergency room. She finished her introduction with a bit of KI like Izuku taught her yesterday, and everyone seemed to stiffen. She scanned the room and to her disappointment everyone was terrified, except for an asshole with ash blonde hair and demon red eyes. He was glaring back at her with the same intensity. So one of them at least is brave. Interesting. Hey, who the fuck do you think you are? Vampire bitch. The boy snapped. Himiko just smirked. What are dents? Are you retarded or something? I'm Himiko fucking Toga, and you asshole are in for a nasty time. My time? Himiko glared at him still smirking and the boy glared back. The whole class stayed silent as they watched the two in a battle of dominance. No one could believe that this girl just barged in and challenged Katsuki fucking Bakugo out like she feared no one. She must either tough or crazy, but from her posture it's probably both. After a tense few seconds the two predators grinned at each other in a feral way. I like you Fangs. You're not a little bitch like the extras in here. Katsuki chuckled and Himiko smirked. Well, seems like you're not a bark and no bite either, so I respect you. But piss me off and you'll wake up in the emergency room. Himiko grinned in a way that scared the whole class. Katsuki chuckled then glared at the kid in his right. Move it extra. Fangs, sit in her. Katsuki growled and the extra bolted out of his seat. My knight in his shining armor, Himiko said sarcastically, but she still took the seat. Fuck you, Fangs, Katsuki said and Himiko smirked at him in a way he didn't like. You know you should take me to dinner first, right? Katsuki choked as everyone stared at her in disbelief. Fuck you, that's not what I meant, Katsuki yelled and she giggled at his red face. The teacher awkwardly coughed in his fist and the class resumed. In the limousine Izuku was checking some blueprints while Melissa was checking her papers. So you think Himiko and Katsuki will get along? Melissa asked and Izuku smirked. Yeah, Haldra isn't for a nasty couple my dear sis. Izuku chuckled darkly, startling Melissa. His plan was in motion and these two will bring Aldera to its doom. Or at least start the event for him. And if they end up dating, well, it's not a big deal. Let it be known that among all his talents Izuku Midoriya was a genius matchmaker. Himiko spent the morning period doing boring things. Academics were never hard for her, just boring. So when the bell rang she was exited to fill her stomach with the delicious lunch Alfred made for her. Getting up from her seat she grabbed her backpack and pulled out her lunchbox. She didn't bother moving her bag since she doubted anyone would dare steal from her. Touch my shit and I'll stab you all to hell with a box cutter, she said and they seemed to get the threat. Exiting the classroom she walked for a second and then stopped. Please leave me alone. A girl with a bird mutation pleaded on the ground. She had feathers and yellow eyes as well as wings. Oh, why would we do that? We're putting you in your place, freak. A scumbag sneered. The girl was surrounded by 3 guys and no one seemed to be even glancing their direction. Hey, who the fuck do you think you are? Himiko roared as she charged at the morons who looked at her startled. Himiko punched the leader in the nose, breaking it, then kicked him between the legs, making him cry out in pain, and finally she kicked him in the face, knocking him out. Everyone in the hall stared at her in shock. Then the 2 other morons seemed to get past their shock and glared at her. Hey, what the hell you bitch? One of them yelled and Himiko pulled out her box cutter, startling everyone as she pointed it at the guys. Fucking test me. I lived in the worst streets and fought shit ton of fuck-ups like you. Himiko growled, I'll cut you apart if you don't fuck off. She took a step forward and the 2 morons paled before backing off and running away. Losers. Himiko scoffed and spit on the ground. She looked at the girl on the ground who was looking at her with awe. Are you okay? Himiko asked as gently as possible as she offered her hand to the girl on the ground. Nodding, the girl took her hand and got up. Thanks, but you shouldn't have helped. They'll come after you, the girl asked, concerned. Himiko grinned in a predatory way that startled the girl. Oh, I really hope so. How should I show that I'm the best in here without a proper nemesis to defeat? Himiko asked as she spined the box cutter in her hand. I'm Himiko Shimura. Call me Himiko. The girl smiled. Kaori Amara, the girl said with a bow. None of that formal BS, come on, let's go eat. I think the roof is a good spot. Himiko said as she the girl's hand and dragged her to the roof. After lunch, Himiko went back to class. As she entered, she noticed that her classmates were giving her fearful looks, and the teacher was frowning. Himiko, we need to discuss the beating and threatening you did as you exited the classroom. Keep it up and we'll expel you, the teacher said with a frown, motioning to the kid she beat up and his two lackeys who seemed to be glaring at her. Himiko gave everyone a shit-eating grin. Well, I doubt you have the balls, teach. Himiko smirked. My sister will sue you for everything you own. And this was their fault for being quirkiest bullies. She scowled at the last part. The teacher seemed to glare at her for what she said. Your sister, should I be concerned? The loser teach asked mockingly. Well, only if you think having the famous and rich Melissa Shields suing is worth worrying. Himiko smirked as the kids gasped and the teacher paled in horror. Who do you think you are, lady? The geezer managed to ask. Himiko walked to the teacher grinning like a cat facing a small mouse, even though he was the one bigger than her. The irony of that. What are you, dense? Are you retarded or something? I'm Himiko fucking Toga. And this school is on borrowed time. My time. Her piece said. She walked to her desk, a proud smirk on her cute face. Everyone looked at her like she was some fearless goddess or something like that. Well, except for Bakan, who seemed to look at her in a way she didn't understand. Katsuki Bakugo never acknowledged anyone. And he sure as hell never gave compliments. The only people who managed to get his respect were Izuku, Hatsune, and Shield. So when some random rich-ass brat with a delinquent attitude storms in and acts like she owns the place, he was supposed to show her place, right? Well, turns out that she was a fearless bitch who would beat the shit out of everyone and threat people with that really hot, cute, predatory way he had only one thought. Marry that girl. Yes, Katsuki likes tough girls with charming personalities. He never lied to the nerd in his description of his dream girl. And this one sure as fuck fit in the category. As she sat down, Katsuki decided to be honest. He sucked at lying anyway. Hey Fangs, that was fucking badass. Katsuki smirked and she giggled. It was amused but skeptical. Oh, she said, amused. The worst is yet to come, she said, and Katsuki felt himself excited to see what she'd do next. After classes were over, Himiko saw Bakan about to leave with the two morons that follows him around like minions. She grabbed his arm and whispered in his ear, I need your help, handsome. There's something off about this school and you'll help me uncover it, Himiko said quietly, and Katsuki grinned. Hey extras, I'm leaving with Fangs. Get lost or whatever, Katsuki said to the two guys who seemed bothered and angry. What, dude? You selling us for some girl who dresses like a bitch? Moron one said. Yeah, dude, she'll drop your reputation to the mud. She's obviously some rich slut who wants to get you in trouble, Moron two said. Before Bakun could use his quirk on them, she scoffed and grabbed his arm, dragging him away. Well, maybe if you were more than just worthless minions, he'd have liked to spend time with you. Enjoy your worthless day, losers, Himiko called out as she and Katsuki exited the school. As they left the school, Katsuki looked at Himiko in curiosity. So Fangs, what's the great plan? And what is off about this school? It's shitty with lots of weak-ass bullies and crazy extras. Just the normal shit, Katsuki said, and Himiko shook her head. Well, Bakun, to start, the discrimination and neglectful teachers here are extreme. In all honesty, I saw discrimination with my own eyes. The illegal quirk usage, the bullying, the incompetent teachers, and the quirkiest attitude is way out of normal. One day and I know something's off about this place, Himiko explained, and Katsuki looked shocked. That bad? I studied here my entire life. I thought it was the normal shit in school, Katsuki said, and Himiko sighed. Did anyone try to sue the school? Himiko asked. Yeah, but the school always gets away with it. Somehow this no-name hellhole has some very good lawyers. Katsuki paused as if realizing something. Wait, how the hell can they afford the best lawyers if they don't have the money to fix the fucking bathrooms? Katsuki asked loudly, and Himiko grinned. Well, obviously there's something going on and we'll find out. Meet back at school at midnight and we'll make an investigation, Himiko said, and Katsuki nodded. At midnight, Katsuki was hiding in an alleyway close to the school waiting for Himiko to come. As if on cue, she showed up in a red kitten hoodie and goggles. Come on, I got us a way in, Himiko said, pulling him to the back of the school. As they got to the wall, Katsuki noticed a hole and scoffed. Shitty old school. They both thought accidentally and at the same time. Katsuki pulled up his hood and put on a mask. As they got into campus through the hole in the wall, they went to the school. The security room is on the 4th floor, Katsuki explained. I'm sure you can guess how we get up there, right? Himiko nodded. She grabbed the grappling gun and gave it to Katsuki, who pulled her close and then fired the device. It wasn't very long before the duo reached the school's roof, and they went to the door to find it open. Wow, these losers really suck at their job, huh? Himiko asked. Shitty school and shitty extras of teachers. This almost too easy. Katsuki kicked the open door and they went down. So the pair made their way to the 4th floor and peered around the corner. There, they saw the door to the surveillance room and a guard right next to it. What do we do? Katsuki asked. He didn't want to assault the guard. Don't worry, I planned for this. Himiko pulled out a marble from her pocket and threw it across the hallway. It landed by the stairwell and made several small slinking noises when it made contact with the ground, sounds which the guard noticed and left his post to go investigate. With the guard distracted, Himiko and Katsuki went to the surveillance room, but they soon found that the door was locked. Fucking hell, should have seen this coming, Himiko grunted. Do you have the key or something, Buck-hun? Don't need it, Katsuki responded. This school is so old and decrepit that most doors will open if you pull on them hard enough. To demonstrate, he grabbed the doorknob with both hands and yanked as hard as he could. It wasn't too long before the door swung open. Cool, how'd you figure that out? This school is bullshit old. Sometimes in the locker room they lock the weaker kids and I get them out, Katsuki growled. But that's why we're here. Himiko sat himself down in front of the monitor and began combing through the footage. It didn't take much effort to find multiple instances of kids assaulting, threatening, and yelling at other kids, sometimes with the teachers in plain view. Alright, I've got about 20 flash drives worth of footage, Himiko said after about an hour. Once I get home, I'll copy the information to a few more flash drives. How many fucking flash drives do you have? Katsuki asked. Melissa works as a businesswoman, so practically infinite. Now let's get out of here. I've got to import some footage to my laptop. Both Katsuki and Himiko couldn't help the satisfied grins on their faces. It was both excited and feral. They decided to spend the night in Katsuki's house, then go to school the next day. After school, Himiko went home to see Izuku in his study going over a case file and grin. Bunny, Himiko exclaimed as she sat across from him in one of the chairs. How was your second day, Himiko? Izuku asked casually, and she gave him the flash drives. The school is shit, the kids are shittier, and the teachers are even worse, Himiko said enraged. This has security camera footage for a good chunk of time this year for all the students. The teacher's neglect and quirkiest attitude. Make it count, Bunny, Himiko said seriously, and he cackled. What would he do without such competent partners helping him destroy an incompetent facility? He'll have fun destroying that damn hellhole. After her second day at school, Izuku put the flash drives she gave him and hid it in his vault to examine later. He then opened the entrance to the green base and Himiko followed him. So what are we doing now? You don't patrol until nightfall, Himiko stated. Well, you're talented, Himiko, that much is obvious. And as your mentor and new older brother, it's my duty to refine that talent and sharpen it. So we're going to train, Izuku explained as they stepped into a dojo within the base. Himiko smiled. She had a brother. A cool big brother. A fucking super badass brother. She won't disappoint him. She was determined not to. Izuku stood on one side of the sparring area with his arms crossed. He wasn't annoyed, disappointed, or even concerned. He was just observing his sister's progress. Himiko, on the other hand, was dead tired. It's been over 2 hours and she couldn't even slightly touch him. He was strong like some adult bodybuilder, and as fast as a lightning bolt. Whenever she charges, he's already countering, dodging or flipping her over his shoulder. So how was your day, Izu? Melissa asked from the green computer as she was digging some dirt on someone of high position in the police. I'm exterminating our contract with the construction company we work with, Izuku declared while dodging Himiko's knife. Your strikes are still too savage. You leave yourself open. Izuku sidestepped her lunge and kneed her in the stomach. Gah, Toga yelped as she walked back. Oh, fucking hell. What? Why's that? Melissa asked, but she had an idea since she knew Izuku for almost a year now. They're frauds. They do tax evasion. They lower the payment of their workers and make the customers pay more by taking longer, Izuku explained as he grabbed Himiko's wrist and judo slammed her to the ground. Fuck, Himiko yelped. Well, any other companies in mind? Melissa asked, but since this is Izuku Midoriya, he already had this planned out. Himiko picked up her knife and glanced around for a moment before disappearing. Izuku focused for a second before he backhanded the girl behind him who reappeared after the hit. You're fucking invincible, Himiko wailed. Yes, I do. A small construction company in my prefecture that seemed to have a lot of financial struggling but honest people. Izuku, another strike from Himiko. Their work is top quality and they follow all the protocols, but the lack of speed for the lack of workers put them in a large debt. So I'm helping them, Izuku explained. Well, cool. I trust your judgment, Izu, Melissa explained. Izuku knocked the knife out of her hand. You're not holding it correctly. Darn it, Toga pouted. Himiko, you need to get stronger, Izuku said. You have talent, but it needs to be refined. What the hell does that mean? Toga asked nervously. It means that you're not leaving this cave for the rest of the day, Izuku said. F-u-u-u-u-s-k. Toga wailed in despair. Alfred, prepare some food, energy drinks, and blood packs, Melissa sighed. Of course, Lady Melissa, Alfred said as he went upstairs. I would advise you stay to make sure Master Izuku does not accidentally kill Lady Himiko. She won't die, Izuku said, but she'll feel like she is. Toga cried as she fell to the floor for what felt like the millionth time today. You're a quick learner, Izuku said, seemingly unfazed. You made large improvements in such a short time. It doesn't feel like it, Toga groaned. Izuku smiled. We're done for the day. Finally, Toga groaned. I know the feeling, Izuku said, helping her up. You can have the blood now. In the blink of an eye, Toga descended on the cooler that Alfred had brought down. Toga eyed the blood hungrily, before quickly taking it and gulping it down. Lady Himiko, I've prepared a bath for you. Afterward I've prepared a meal for you, Alfred said. Alfred, I love you. Toga groaned as she finished the blood. Alfred smiled before turning his head to Izuku. I've prepared a bath and meal for you as well, Master Izuku. Are you going to come up willingly, or do I need to wake Lady Melissa and have her make you? Melissa meanwhile had fallen asleep on the chair. No, I'll do it myself, Izuku said somewhat bashfully. Izuku walked towards Melissa before picking her up. I'll take her to bed first, Izuku said. You should probably wait for consent first. Toga snickered. Izuku's face turned slightly red. Very funny, Himiko. I made you blush. Himiko cheered. Now, while Master Izuku may have his issues, he would never do such a thing, Alfred said, amusement evident in his tone. That being said, if he were to ask Lady Melissa, I don't. That's enough, Izuku said, his face now fully red. I'm going to take her to her room and put her into bed. Then I am going to leave. And for the record, she's like my older sister. He turned and walked off. Of course, Master Izuku, Alfred chuckled. Meanwhile, Toga was just giggling. I'll add that to your training, Himiko, Izuku called cheerfully, and Himiko paled in horror. After a meal, a nice bath, and Melissa woke up from her nap, everyone prepared for the night job. Melissa put on her earpiece and sit behind the computer. Izuku suited, and Himiko stared at her new suit in awe. Her sui was basically a red bodysuit with a kitten hoodie and new yellow goggles. They seemed to be advanced. She had a golden belt with gadgets similar to Bunny and a dark cane. She had 2 knife holsters on her sides to complete the outfit. Glad you like it. Pinky worked hard on it, Izuku said, looking through a case file. I love it. Himiko got confused. Who's Pinky? Himiko asked with a raised brow. Oh, the first Oracle. You'll meet her later. She stepped down when Melissa came to focus on studying for the UA entrance exam. She's a genius, and I owe all of my gadgets when I debuted to her, Izuku explained with a fond smile on his face. Himiko beamed. Holy shit, that's awesome. I want to meet her, Himiko said, exited. Did you finish the Green Jet's new feature? Izuku asked as he pulled up his cowl and put on his face mask. Yup, Melissa said. New feature? Himiko questioned. An extra seat, Izuku explained. Stars appeared in Himiko's eyes. Yes, I can finally ride in the Green Jet. I call the front seat, Himiko exclaimed. Sorry, but I haven't given you pilot training yet, Izuku said. Oh, Toga deflated. Izuku patted her head, something that he learned she enjoyed very much. Don't worry, you'll get there one day. He smiled under his mask. As the duo got into the jet, Izuku took the front seat while Himiko sat in the back with an exited grin on her cat-like face. As they took off, Himiko felt sick from the speed. You'd get used to it in a night or two, Izuku informed her, and she nodded, her face as green as Izuku's costume. Izuku watched as Himiko took down a group of villains. One by one she knocked them out, punching them, slashing them, hitting them with the back of her knife. Izuku felt it was important that Himiko feels her progression, so he sent her after a bunch of random thugs in a safe house. Toga disappeared only to reappear behind another thug and knock him unconscious. Should she be using her quirk? Melissa asked. As long as she doesn't leave evidence. The only proof that she ever used her quirk is the word of a bunch of thugs, Izuku said. Izuku watched as Himiko took down the last thug. The red hood of kitten grinned before looking up at Izuku. Izuku nodded, confirming that she did a good job. Yes, Toga cheered. Izuku jumped down next to Himiko. You performed as I expected, which is to say excellently. Keep going, Himiko said, a proud smile on her face. Sorry to cut the praise fest, but there's a robbery at a bank nearby. Melissa cut in. The bank is closed, so no one else is there, and no alarms are going off either. The only way I found out about it was because of our Robin drones. On it, Izuku said as he pressed a button on his belt and the green jet flew above them. Using their grappling guns, they grappled into the jet and took off at top speed. Izuku watched with a proud smirk on his face as he used detective mode to observe Himiko's progress. And if she needed help in taking down the armed thugs. Looks like I win the bet, Izuku said bluntly, but he was smirking. Himiko was really a natural at hiding and taking them one by one. This must have something to do with her cat-like features giving her a predatory instinct. Izuku mused to himself. Yeah, you don't have to come to the meeting with the board personally. Me and May will do that, Melissa said, exasperated. But you'll be in a tablet founder, sound only of course, she added. Fair enough, but I'm changing my voice, Izuku said with a shrug. It was at that moment Himiko came out of the bank with a proud grin on her face. Excellent performance, Hood. Green Shadow complimented and Hood cheered. This was too easy. I hope we get something challenging, Hood said. And as if the world granted that wish, the flat screen on the opposite building and all the TV channels across Japan started televising the same thing. Good evening, citizens of Japan. I am Anarchy, voice of the people who will save this country from the plague of corruption and discrimination that befell this city," said the man on the TV who was wearing a red hooded vest and a mask that covered all his face. Izuku shot a very sheepish Himiko a glare. Great, another maniac to deal with. Izuku sighed as he looked at the flat screen in the opposite building. Himiko was praying that he wasn't very bad, but her hopes were crushed when he continued speaking. "Citizens of Japan, your cries for help has been heard. I came to save this country from the plague of corruption and discrimination that befell this once great country." Anarchy clenched his fist in front of the camera. "Because the people who are supposed to protect us wouldn't. The politicians who are elected and the heroes with licenses. They won't lift a finger to help anyone. And why would they? They've been bribed or just got busy with their own interests to care for anyone but themselves." Anarchy shouted. "But it all ends today. I've planted 3 bombs where Musutafu's corruption is at its strongest, and by the end of the night they will be destroyed. And then the rest of Japan will follow this purge." Anarchy waved his hand now back to the brainwashing advertising and all that nonsense. Izuku sighed in annoyance. Great, he got a crazy terrorist in his hands to deal with. And 3 bombs. How should he find them by the end of the night? Himiko, on the other hand, was worried. "Does this happen a lot?" Hood asked. "It shouldn't happen at all," Green Shadow informed her, and then spoke into the earpiece. "Oracle, have you watched?" "Yes, it was all over the media. Someone must have hacked in there," Melissa explained. "Well, any info on this guy?" Shadow asked. "No, nothing at all. He must be making his appearance just tonight," Oracle explained. "And the bombs?" Shadow asked. "Well, nothing either. I'll try to find something. But it might take some time," Melissa said hesitantly. Green Shadow sighed. "Well, looks like they have no clues." "Hey, is that guy with Anarchy because they wear the same mask?" Hood pointed to a man on the rooftop of the building with flat screen. He was wearing the same face mask as Anarchy that hid his entire face. "Good job, Hood," Shadow praised as they grappled to that building. After landing, both vigilantes walked to the man who held up his hand defensively. Wow, easy now. I don't want to fight. I just have a message," the man said. "Speak," Izuku said coldly. "Well, Anarchy says it's about time we get free. With the place where people lose everything to, everyone will be free. No more homeless, no more poverty, and no more rich scumbags. That's it. You have 20 minutes, but you should just leave it be," the man said. Green Shadow and Red Hood took off into the ledge of the building and grappled to the green jet. "So what was that supposed to mean?" Himiko asked. Izuku frowned. "They're targeting the central bank of the city," Izuku explained. "The banks always seize the houses of those who don't pay. They sometimes fraud people into losing their money, and even within those in top are the well paid off. Illegally, of course." Izuku explained his deduction. Himiko stared at him in awe and Melissa giggled. "Well, you see now why he's the world's greatest detective," Melissa exclaimed. "I'm sure it's just a joke in the public, Oracle," Izuku said. "No way," Himiko protested. "In school everyone speak about how you're the best detective ever for all the frauds you expose," Himiko defended. "Well, he's just a party pooper who never gives credit to himself," Melissa said, and Himiko grinned. "Well, we gotta do something about it or he'll end like Mr. Gru," Himiko exclaimed, and Melissa giggled. "Who's Mr. Gru?" Izuku asked, confused. There was a pause. "Izuku, you never the Despicables?" Melissa asked in worry. "No," Izuku said bluntly, and Himiko gasped. "I never watch movies or TV shows, especially those for kids," Izuku explained. "Well, we gotta fix that," Himiko exclaimed. "Yeah, movie night," Melissa said, excited. "No, I have to focus on both my works. I don't have time," Izuku said seriously. "You gotta relax, bunny," Himiko whined. "I'll relax over some nice hot data," Izuku said. "We'll get you to relax one day. Just you wait," Melissa swore, and so did Himiko. The ride to the bank was quiet after that, and they landed on the roof and activated detective mode. 10 men, all armed. "We need to take them down together." "How much time is left?" Izuku asked. 5 minutes, Melissa said. "Shit, go for the bomb, bunny. I can turn invisible for a bit and Oracle will help me." "You go for the bomb," Himiko said, and Izuku wanted to protest, but that was the most logical approach. "Very well, but be careful," Izuku instructed, and the girl nodded. They split off. Green Shadow sneaked into the main office while Red Hood created a noise to attract the attention of the thugs. Izuku entered and looked at the bomb. It was an advanced digital bomb, so he could hack it with his cryptographic sequencer. Pulling it out, he connected to the device and started working. He searched through until he found the firewall and started decoding it. Almost 2 minutes later, just as 1 minute was left, the bomb was disarmed. Sighing in relief, Izuku spoke in his earpiece. "I did it," he said, and the 2 girls sighed in relief. "Good job, bunny," Himiko and Melissa said through the earpiece. As the 2 went to the rooftop of the bank, they saw another guy waiting for them. Himiko pulled a bunch of explosive discs to be careful, and Izuku walked to the guy. "What's your message?" Izuku asked. The man scoffed. "Well, Anarchy's right. The cops are as corrupt as they come. We're better off without them," the man said, and the duo took off to the jet. Even I could guess that he was meaning the police force building, Himeko said, and Izuku nodded. Oracle, make a scan in the building and connect me to Naomasa, Izuku said, and Melissa agreed. Hello, is that you, Shadow? Naomasa asked. Sakachi, get everyone out of the building. Anarchy put a bomb there. I'm 2 minutes away and I'll disarm it. Wait, I'll call the bomb squad. No time. You have less than 10 minutes. Arg, fine, but don't get hurt. Thank you for the cooperative attitude. I'll be out in few minutes. The connection was cut off. Oracle, you found the bomb? Izuku asked. Yes, on top of the building, behind the entrance so no one would see it, Melissa said, and Izuku smiled. What would I do without these two? Izuku asked himself. As they landed on the roof, they searched and found the bomb, and Izuku went to disarm it. Once he did, and he still had another 4 minutes, Himeko squeaked, and he looked to see her pointing to a bomb in a trash bin. Bunny, another one, and only 6 minutes left. Himeko shouted. Well shit, it still had 6 minutes, so he hurried over. Thankfully, he was able to disarm this one too. Oracle, tell Captain Naomasa to get back in with his men, Izuku said. Right on it, boss, Melissa said, and Izuku frowned. I'm not the boss. In fact, you are, Izuku said, and Melissa sighed. I'm just messing around, and you should look for the third guy by now, Melissa said through the earpiece. Nodding, Izuku looked around with his detective mode but found no one. You think we have to find the last one ourselves? Himeko asked, worried. Well, let's go, Izuku said simply, and Himeko gaped. You know where it is? Himeko asked, baffled. As they got in the jet, Izuku nodded. So where is it, Sherlock Holmes? Melissa asked. Well, Watson, it is obvious that they are targeting the places of corruption. The banks is for industry. The police building is for law. Which means that the next target is politics, which means Izuku waited. It's the city hall, Melissa and Himeko exclaimed in unison. I'm searching right now. Excellent job, Bunny, Melissa said happily. And you say you're not the best, Himeko said, and Izu sighed. As they got in, they had to sneak in without being noticed, and the worst is that they didn't know when it would go off. Well guys, it's in the mayor's office, Melissa said, and they went to the top floor. While they landed on the roof, it was the closest. I shut down the security cameras, so go in quickly, Melissa said in a hurry, and they did. After they got in, the bomb still had 2 minutes. Himeko panicked while Izuku quickly went to work. With a sigh, he stopped it a second before the time ran out. Himeko slumped in the mayor's chair, and Izuku let out a sigh of relief. Then something entered his communications. Well, it seems that you stopped all of my bombs, Anarchy said through the earpiece, and Izuku shrugged. Sorry to disappoint you, Izuku said uncaringly. Disappoint me? Not at all. Come to the courthouse so we can complete this city's trials, Anarchy said, and Izuku sighed. As they were dropped on the roof opposite to the courthouse, Green Shadow and Red Hood were watching the big amount of men around. You get in. I'll deal with the guys, Himeko said cheerfully. You sure? Izuku asked, and she nodded. As they split off, Izuku glided to the balcony of the courthouse and got in just as heard the sound of fighting going off in the distance. As he got into the main courtroom, he found Anarchy waiting for him. I didn't know you had a partner, Anarchy said. She's new on the job, Green Shadow answered. Well, I invited you here to talk. You see, I want. Cut the nonsense. I'm here to take you in, Green Shadow, as he threw an electric disc the man avoided. Well, I guess you want to fight. Anarchy launched a blast of fire that Izuku dodged, but the blast turned to attack him again. Izuku didn't expect that and was partially hit. Good thing the suit was fire resistant, or would have been fried. Izuku narrowed his eyes. Even Endeavor can't control the fire like that. He doesn't have a fire launcher. Does he have 2 quirks? But how? Izuku jumped between walls with his jet boots to avoid the flames. Hold still, Anarchy shouted. It would be illogical to do that, Izuku stated matter-of-factly. How do you have 2 quirks? Izuku asked. I don't. The man stuttered, and Izuku had a bad feeling. He kept dodging until he noticed that Anarchy was getting slower and less effective in his attacks, then launched himself and kicked Anarchy on the back of his head, knocking him out. The weakness of fire quirks is that it gets you overheated when used too much, Izuku muttered. Anarchy groaned to see Green Shadow glaring coldly at him and stiffened. Well, time to unmask you, Izuku said as he took the guy's mask off. You're just a kid. Izuku trailed off, realizing the irony of that. So, what does it matter? Anarchy asked. Well, whatever, brat. Tell about the Sakon quirk, and I'll negotiate you for evidence, Izuku said coldly. I'm not telling. Anarchy froze as he felt Izuku's killing intent that was too suffocating. Speak, Izuku growled. The Boogaman gave me this fire quirk. He said I should get rid of you, and he even gave me the bombs. Anarch blurted out. Anything you know outside the Boogaman? Izuku asked. If I tell you, will you let me go? Anarchy asked. You have my word, Izuku promised. Anarchy took a deep breath. The Yakuza are having a meeting in 3 months. They got a new source for a project. What project? Izuku narrowed his eyes. Quirk erasing bullets, Anarchy said. Well shit, he'll have to restart digging on the Yakuza again. Well, you can leave. Izuku cut the ropes and let him go. You sure it was good idea to let him go? Melissa asked as Izuku and Himiko were back at the green base. I got his name and fingerprints with detective mode when we spoke. I gave it to the cops, Izuku explained. The girls giggled. He was evil sometimes and he knew it. As they exited, the girls dragged him somewhere just to find Kaken and Mei-chan waiting. Hey nerd, how the fresh F fuck you never watched a fucking Disney movie? Katsuki shouted in disbelief. Are you sure you're human, bunny? They asked worried. Is it really a big deal? Izuku asked exasperated. Yes, everyone shouted. I don't remember having this built, Izuku said looking around at the theater that had apparently been in his house this entire time. Sometimes you can be so preoccupied about what happens everywhere else you don't pay attention to what happens in your own home, Melissa said. What are we watching? What are we watching? Toga asked impatiently, a bucket of popcorn in one hand and a cup filled with blood in the other. We are going to watch Minions, Melissa said, picking up the remote and turning on the movie. Himiko and Mei, who are now instant besties, cheered while Katsuki grinned. Behold the comedy nerd, Katsuki exclaimed. As the rest of the night went on, Izuku focused on his abnormal family but still family and smiled at their happiness. This is what he fights to protect. Izuku was looking through the blueprints for the cancelled project with the old construction company he worked with. He was mad for all the frauds cases and got it shut down. After that, he decided to work with honest people, and as he searched, he stumbled on the Urakas. They were a married couple that owned a small company that was having struggles in the past. The family lived in poverty from the very beginning, and it bothered him and made him suspicious. Their work was good and they always follow the protocols, so why were they struggling? He searched after he dealt with anarchy, and boy, he was enraged. The bigger companies were sabotaging their work and sending delinquents to scare them. They messed with their reputation and kept them down. All that in secret. So what does any sane person in his position do? Call the cops of cows. But Izuku was a petty person when he wanted to be, and right now he wanted. So he used his own influence and money as well as his own fists to get all the companies who dared to harm this innocent family shut down. Seeing the owners of the companies being dragged to the police cars was a sight Izuku will treasure. Well, we're here, Master Izuku, Alfred spoke, bringing Izuku out of his thoughts. Izuku looked to see that Alfred has just parked the car. Nodding, Izuku exited the limousine and grabbed his tablet and blueprints. Are you sure you want me to drop you a full train right away, sir? Alfred asked, and Izuku nodded. Yes, they're not very well off, so I didn't want to freak them out, Izuku explained, and Alfred nodded in understanding. After that, he entered the train station and entered the train that'll take him to the Urakas. As he entered, he felt someone running behind to catch the train, and he kept the doors open for them. And few seconds later, a girl his age stumbled in and fell. Izuku caught her in his arms and looked at her. The girl had a brown hair cut in a bob, rosy cheeks with a permanent blush on them, and brown eyes. She was also panting heavily, which means that she was running. Are you all right? Izuku asked, concerned. The girl gave him a thumbs up and nodded, still trying to catch her breath. The girl noticed that he dropped his papers to catch her and that he was still holding her. Blushing, she moved away and started collecting his blueprints, and he knelt down to help her. Sit down a little, Ms. I'll grab them. I'm Deku Shimura, by the way, Izuku assured her, but she shook her head. Oh, my name is Ochako Uraraka, and you dropped them because you kept the doors open for me. Ochako blushed and caught me when I tried. Izuku was surprised. Well, that's why she looks familiar. She looks like a copy of Mrs. Uraraka. Izuku mused to himself. Are you the son of a businessman or something? Ochako asked, and Izuku nodded. Well, it was the truth. Hisashi Midoriya was a well-known name in the USA. Yes, I'm going to the Uraraka's construction company. Basically your parents, I assume? Izuku asked, knowing the answer. Ochako blushed. Yes, they are. And why are you going to my parents? Ochako asked. Izuku could see the hope in her eyes, and he felt anger. Not at the poor girl, of course, but the scumbags who put her family in so much hardships. He now felt good about shutting down the companies. Oh, it's a pleasant surprise, I promise. I heard that you guys got a lot of work recently, Izuku said, giving the best smile he could. The girl's face lit up. Oh yes, after the other companies were shut down, the workers came to ours. And the people who were frauded did so too, Ochako said, excited, and Izuku smiled. Knowing that he put a smile on the faces of a wronged family made him warm inside. He was brought out of his thoughts when the train stopped. As they exited the train, Izuku noticed the heavy bag she was carrying and all the blueprints of her own. Here, let me help you. Izuku grabbed the bag and started carrying her. Wait, it's too heavy. You don't have to do that, Ochako protested, but Izuku waved her off. It's fine. I like to exercise whenever possible, Izuku said casually, but Ochako still felt bad. You have a nif's name, Shimura-kun, Ochako said, and Izuku raised brow. Thanks, I like my family name, Izuku answered. I meant Deku. Izuku let her finish her thoughts before judging. Maybe she doesn't know what it means. How so? Izuku asked. Well, it reminds of Deku, which means you can do it, Ochako said in her bubbly way, and Izuku was speechless. He took that name to spite others. He used because he hated it. and this random girl just gave it a whole new meaning. Well, he hopes he gets to see her more. For some reason, he felt like getting her something. As they walked, Izuku noticed the pink pads on her fingers. Is that your quirk? Izuku asked. Yeah, it's called zero gravity. When I touch something with the 5 fingers in one of my hands, it loses the gravity effect, Ochako explained with enthusiasm. Her bubbly personality was endearing, to be honest. They reached the fairly small company after 5 minutes of walking from the station. After coming inside, Izuku walked with Uraraka into the office of the Urarakas. He knocked on the door and heard her come in, so he opened the door and Ochako greeted her parents cheerfully. Hello, Mom and Dad, Ochako said in probably the happiest tone he heard in his life. How can she be so happy with all the trouble her family is dealing with? Izuku saw how the couple brightened up to see their daughter coming to visit. Hey there, my little Machai, Mr. Uraraka said cheerfully, and Ochako blushed. Daddy, Ochako pouted, and Izuku found it cute. Was he a cat person? Well, damn right, after all his sister was a cat-like girl. What are you doing here, Ochako? Mrs. Uraraka asked with a smile, and Ochako gave them the blueprints. Oh my god, I forgot those at home, Mrs. Uraraka said in pain. Thank you, dear, Mrs. Uraraka said with a sigh of relief. It was then that the couple noticed him. Mr. Uraraka looked at him suspiciously since Izuku came with his daughter. Who are you? Mr. Uraraka asked, not unkindly but sternly. Deku Shimura. I had an appointment to discuss matters with you, Izuku said swiftly. The couple shared a glance. Aren't you too young for working? Mrs. Uraraka asked, confused. I'm as old as I look and know I'm old enough to work. You see, because of the high rate of suicide for quirkless people, the government put a law that puts the quirkless people considered adults at the age of 12. We can marry, own houses and companies, as well as have driving licenses. I'm almost 14 now, so the rule implies on me, Izuku explained, and the family was baffled. Not to be rude, but can we look up the actual law quickly? Mrs. Uraraka asked, and Izuku nodded in understanding. Of course, take your time. Izuku smiled, reassuring them. After a quick googling, turns out he was right. You have a driving license? Ochako asked, and Izuku nodded. Yes, but usually the butler drives me and Shield to anywhere, Izuku answered. You have a butler? Ochako tried not to scream. You know Melissa Shield? The couple exclaimed. Izuku nodded. Well, yeah, we kind of share the company and the mansion. The family fainted when he said mansion. Shit, arg, what happened? Ochako asked to see Izuku crouching in front of her. He was holding a glass of water to her. What happened? Ochako asked, embarrassed. You guys fainted when I said the word mansion. Are you okay? Izuku asked, concerned. Ochako found that sweet. Yeah, I'm really sorry. You just caught us off guard, Ochako said bashfully. She noticed that she was laying on the small couch while her parents were still out on the chairs. I'm sorry. That's the reason I came on foot and not a limo. Ochako fainted again. God damn endeavor. Ochako woke up again, as did her parents, to see Deku giving them a deadpan look. I'm going to shut and let you guys speak. No need to faint, please, Izuku said, and the family felt embarrassed. You can speak, Mrs. Uraraka said with a blush from the embarrassment. I want to work with you, as in a partnership. I need you to build me some expansive labs and apartment complexes. I'm paying in cash, Izuku said, and the family of 3 looked at each other. You're serious? Mr. Uraraka asked. Yes. Wait, don't you dare. The family fainted again. He was starting to consider speaking word by word if they were going to faint every few seconds. Well, this is all, Izuku said as he finished discussing the projects with the Urarakas. Well, how should we travel from here to Musutafu? Mr. Uraraka mused to himself. I'm more than willing to give an apartment complex to you and the workers, Izuku explained. Why is though? Mrs. Uraraka asked in confusion. You could have went to a company in your prefecture, but why come here? The woman asked. Izuku shrugged. I was looking for a good people to work with and I stumbled on you guys. A small company, but your work is top quality. So I decided to work with you, Izuku said. And when are we going to move? Ochako asked, curious. When you finish your school year, so around 2 weeks, Izuku said, and the family nodded. The parents bowed and Ochako followed their example. Thank you for all your kindness, they said in unison. Izuku's face burned red. Please get up. I don't like formalities, Izuku said, waving his arms frantically. Well, I guess we'll get rid of the debts. Mrs. Uraraka cheered and the 2 others followed her example. Oh, I already solved that problem. You're clean, Izuku said casually, and the trio stared at him blankly. Oh hell no, don't. The trio fainted for the 3rd time that day. God damn endeavor. Izuku had just came back from his talk with the Urarakas. They fainted too many times. He felt like he was messing with them. As he entered the manor, he went straight to his study. He still needs to view the things in the flash drive and investigate Aldera thoroughly. With a sigh, he slumped into his chair in front of the computer. Himiko copied a lot of footage. It was going to be a long evening. Melissa had important test in UA and Himiko was hanging out Kaken, so it was only him and Alfred. He grabbed the first flash drive and put it into his computer, then started playing the footage. Izuku was infuriated. The kids with mutant quirks and weak quirks are picked on. Those with strong ones are left to do whatever they like to do, and even in front of the teachers. It wasn't natural. He knows what discrimination is and he dealt with it. Katsuki was sugarcoating his talk, or he thought it was normal. Actually, he went to Aldera District from the beginning, so he couldn't tell the difference. But Himiko did, and she got him a whole lot of footage. Footage that made his blood boil. Patience. If he let his anger control him, he'll get sloppy and make mistakes. This is just junior high, and Katsuki told him that elementary school sucked as much, so it's logical to assume that the high school in the district is as bad, if not worse. So he'll have to be careful and think his moves closely. But the question is why? Why did no one sue the district? Turns out they did. A lot of parents did sue the school, but it went down badly and Aldera got away scot-free. Heck, when another school sued them, that school was forced to make a public apology to the school. It wasn't normal. And also he'll dig on and see what he finds, starting with the legal teams of Aldera. Izuku's suspicions were confirmed as he started digging into the info. Aldera had some very expansive legal teams. It wasn't logical for a no-name school to be able to afford such legal teams. You need some rest, sir. Or at least a treat, Alfred said as he gave Izuku a tray with coffee and some cookies. Izuku smiled in appreciation at the old butler. Thank you, Alfred, Izuku said as he grabbed the coffee cup and sipped. You look mad, sir. Is everything all right? Alfred asked. Well, I don't understand. How can Aldera afford the best legal teams in the country? Izuku said as he was searching their data. Maybe they have sponsors in the shadows, sir, Alfred offered. Izuku's eyes widened at the realization. Excellent job, Alfred. That's it. I'll look into their records and see who's supporting them, Izuku exclaimed with renewed energy, and Alfred chuckled. Good to know I helped, sir. Call me if you need anything, Alfred said as he left the room. Izuku focused his attention on the legal teams instead of the cases themselves. He hacked into their records and looked to see if there was any connections he could find. Izuku scowled as he looked at the data. It was just as he suspected. The funders of Aldera was the Detranet Lifestyle Company, a company ran by one Rokia Yatsubashi. Izuku personally disliked the guy. He made it clear in the one time he and Melissa met him in a party they went to that the guy hated the quirkless. He was strange, and Izuku felt something shady about the guy. It made no sense. Why would he have a school full of quirkiest teachers and waste money on them? Is he advertising for quirkiest attitude? Damn it, it's like he's part of some quirk supremacist cult. Wait a second. Alfred, can you come for a sec? Izuku called through the microphone in his desk. A minute later, Alfred came holding a tray with a full cup of coffee and some more cookies. To be fair, Izuku finished it all and needed more anyway. How can I help you, sir? Alfred asked. I need your knowledge since someone of your age is more knowledgeable than me, Izuku said, and Alfred nodded. Of course, sir. Ask away, Alfred said. Was there any quirk supremacist cults in Japan in the past? I mean ones that was very known, Izuku asked, and the old butler frowned. Something was up. Yes, I'm afraid there was. They were called the Metal Liberation Army, a quirk supremacist cult that had a big problem with the restrictions on quirk usage. They also had a problem with the quirkless and those with weak quirks. They valued power, and the government took them down decades ago. The leader's name was Destro, and he was arrested where he died in prison, Alfred explained, and Izuku finally found all the pieces of the puzzle. And now it all made sense. Alfred, what was Destro's name? Izuku asked suspiciously. Alfred frowned. My old memory doesn't serve me right. I only know that his last name was Yatsubashi. Alfred flinched as Izuku slammed his fist on the desk, cracking it slightly. Izuku sighed. Sorry, Alfred. I think we are dealing with another Destro, or a Destro Jr. to be precise. Izuku frowned. I'll prepare more coffee for you then, Alfred declared as he left the room. Izuku was furious. Aldera was one of many indoctrination facilities all over the city and possibly the whole country. It was disturbing, and he'll have to get the pros into this as much as he hated the idea. But how and who can he trust? Well, Midnight, Present Mike, and Eraserhead are on the list, so the UA faculty count. All Might too, as well as Ingenium and Best Genist. But he needs some physical evidence. Maybe he'll break into Aldera and... The door to the room was kicked open by a furious Himiko. She seemed mad for some reason as she stomped to his desk and slammed a book on his desk. It was old and worn out. Me and Bakun are attending a fucking cult school, Himiko exclaimed. Izuku grabbed the book and 2 pages, and he knew it was one of the books Destro wrote. Izuku was hoping she found it with one of the faculty members. I found this in the principal's office, Himiko declared. Izuku grinned as he patted his sister on the head. Good girl. Now I can take down this entire cult for good, Izuku declared, and Himiko enjoyed the patting like a cat and even started purring in satisfaction. Now he had to gather the heroes for a meeting. All Might was doing a patrol in the streets looking for crime until something caught his eye and he jumped into a rooftop. He blinked as he looked in front of him in confusion for a few seconds. Then he gave his signature laugh. I didn't expect to meet you here, young man. You seemed like a night person. All Might declared. Relax, sir. No need to waste your 3 hours in sitting. Izuku spoke and All Might looked at him seriously. How do you know about that young man? All Might demanded. Stop wasting your precious time and I'll answer all your questions, Izuku said, and All Might was covered in steam for a few seconds to show a skeleton old man. This something I count and hope to prepare for, Izuku spake honestly. Toshinori sighed then smiled. Yes, that's what I'm now. A weak old man who could barely fight for 3 hours or 4, Toshinori said with shame. You're still a hero who saved hundreds of lives. I suggest you look for a successor soon and retire, Izuku spoke, and Toshinori coughed blood. Izuku handed him a handkerchief and the man gratefully accepted it. How? Toshinori asked. You're the world's greatest detective, but this is absurd. How did you find out? Toshinori asked. He seemed more curious than anything. I need to see some other people, so long story short, my grandmother Nana was your mentor and I stumbled on one for all when I searched her history. Toshinori puked blood at that. My grandmother has grandchildren. Izuku nodded and stood up. Meet me in the UA meeting room and when this is over we'll talk as a family. Izuku spoke in gentle tone and All Might nodded. Ingenium was running across the streets looking for crime until he took a turn into an alleyway after seeing someone he recognized. He looked at the emergency stairs and saw someone who everyone knows. Pleasure meeting you, Green Shadow, Ingenium said cheerfully with his fists on his hips. Izuku jumped down and favs the armored hero. Tensei Ida, pro hero Ingenium. I need your help, Izuku spoke. Really? You don't seem like the type to seek help, Ingenium remarked. Well, it's not really my issue but the government. Meet me in the UA meeting room and we'll talk in detail along other pros. Izuku threw a smoke bomb and as Ingenium started to cough and when the smoke dispersed, Green Shadow was already gone. I need to fight more ninjas, Ingenium declared as he went back to his patrol. Hello, best genist. It's truly an honor to meet you, Izuku said as he looked at the man. They were both in his office. You don't seem to mind my presence, Izuku remarked. You don't break the law and I can't arrest you. Plus I am nothing like those corrupts, so I have nothing to worry about. Best genist shrugged. True. Meet me in the UA meeting room tonight for an important declaration, Izuku said before jumping from the window. He already texted the principal to gather the staff, so now it was time to prepare. Prepare for war. The staff of UA were sitting on chairs, the U-shaped table. Eraserhead, Present Mike, Midnight, Vlad King, Snipe, Ectoplasm, Cementos, Power Loader, and Principal Nedzu were sitting waiting for their guest. May I know why is there 3 extra chairs? Ectoplasm asked, confused as was the rest of the teachers. Well, our guest informed me that we'll have more than one guest tonight for this meeting, Nedzu answered simply with his usual smile. Who else is coming? Eraserhead asked. He had really bad feeling about this. Green Shadow invited other pros he trusts to this meeting. Nedzu's face became serious and the teachers picked on that. It seems that Green Shadow has detected a danger on the national level and that's why he called this meeting, Nedzu explained, and the teachers grew anxious. Well, good to know that Green Shadow is ready to ask for help when needed and not just face the problems head on. Vlad King spoke his opinion. Eraserhead let out a huff. I met the boy. He's paranoid. He doesn't trust easily and likes to work alone. But he's not reckless. He seems to be the type to analyze situations and make the most logical approach. Eraserhead nodded to himself. A wise kid indeed. Everyone stared at Eraserhead in stunned silence. You never gave that much praise to anyone before, Mike said, shocked, and everyone nodded. Scowling, Eraserhead was about to say something. The doors suddenly were flung open and everyone saw All Might in his hero gear. I am here to attend the meeting on Green Shadow's invitation, All Might declared, and everyone except Nedzu were surprised. All Might, the teachers asked, more confused than surprised. Never thought Green Shadow was the type to get someone as flashy as you into the matter, Power Loader commented. Then 2 more figures entered the room. Best Genist and Ingenium entered. The former nodded in greetings and the later waved cheerfully. As everyone took a seat, they just waited for Green Shadow to arrive, and about 5 minutes later Midnight spoke. It's rude to call us here then be late, Midnight huffed in annoyance. Maybe he got distracted by muggers and bank robberies on his way, Mike said cheerfully. Wait, how would he get in? Since asked as he was about to get up. I'm actually right here. Everyone's head snapped to the ceiling where Green Shadow was standing upside down on the ceiling looking at them. Since when were you there? Eraserhead asked, surprised. Since before you came. Green Shadow jumped down and landed on his feet gracefully. Why were you there, little listener? Mike asked, confused. Well, to make it clear, I was making sure that everyone here is the real people, not decoys. By watching your interaction with each other, I was able to tell that none of you is an agent working for someone else, Green Shadow explained. Kinda paranoid, don't you think, partner? Snipe asked, a bit weirded out. Quirks are very versatile. It's illogical to assume that none of you could be replaced by someone who can change their form. I personally know someone who can take any of your appearances and teach here for a whole day without anyone suspecting a thing, Green Shadow explained, which worried everyone. Green Shadow's paranoia aside. What's this meeting about? Eraser asked. Green Shadow nodded. Straight to business. I respect that, Green Shadow said, and much to everyone's surprise he bowed. Thank you all for accepting my invitation. It's really good to know that I have some of your trust, Green Shadow said, and everyone nodded with a smile. Then his face became serious. Now let's speak about a matter that's caught my attention. A matter that's a threat to the national security of Japan, Izuku said, and everyone tensed. Would you be more specific, young man? All Might asked, and Green Shadow nodded. He put a small table in front of everyone to see and put a metal disc similar to the ones UA uses for their acceptance letters. A projection appeared and everyone could see what seemed like a school. If everyone would be so kind, watch to the end for 10 minutes and then I'll explain, Green Shadow said as he played the videos of kids in Aldera and other schools he personally hacked assault, insult, harass and used their quirks on weaker kids. The room became tense as the heroes watched in silent horror and rage the acts of quirkism and violence against mutant quirks, weak quirks, and God, especially some quirkless kids, and in front of the teachers of said schools. The teachers of UA were seething. Nedzu's fur was standing on the edges and the three guests were obviously enraged. By the end of the 10 minutes, everyone seemed like they were going to personally storm into those schools and burn it. Did Izuku blame them? He was half considering just burning those schools and call it a day, but it wasn't that easy. So, how's this related to nation security? I mean, thank you for showing me this, but elaborate, Nedzu said, trying to keep his mind cool. Nodding, Green Shadow pressed a button on his belt and the screen showed some files. The thing in common between these schools are the ideals, the extreme quirkism, the negligence, the favoritism towards strong quirks and hatred towards weak quirks and quirkless people. These schools are connected. It's a cult chain of schools across the prefecture and the whole country. A quirk supremacist cult, Izuku explained, and everyone gasped in shock. How? Mike shouted in disbelief. How didn't they get shut down? Eraserhead asked, feeling that there's more to it. Because these schools are being funded and protected by very powerful legal teams. Teams paid by the Detranet Lifestyle Company, Izuku said. Wait a second. Detranet? What does this have to do with them? Ingenium asked, shocked and confused. Well, have any of you heard of the Metal Liberation Army? Izuku asked calmly. Well, they were a terrorist quirk supremacist cult. Eraserhead trailed off as the realization dawned on them. Shit, the MLA are making a comeback. Power Loader yelled in disbelief. Do you have any proof? Nedzu asked, knowing the answer. Green Shadow walked to them and handed the mammal a book. After a couple pages he understood that this was serious. Thank you for your efforts, young man. We'll handle this. All Might spoke up and everyone nodded. Green Shadow handed them a bag of flash drives. I compiled the evidence on all the schools in the prefecture and some possible contacts of the MLA. The leader of this organization is Rikia Yatsubashi, and he resides in Deku City, a base full of his followers. I did what I can now. Dealing with national threats is the job of the military, not mine. Green Shadow and everyone nodded in understanding and appreciation. Thank you, Green Shadow, you really are. Vlad King started. The world's greatest detective. I get that a lot, but it's not true. I just did what I could. But I should have tried to investigate this suspicious quirkism act sooner than today, Izuku said with a sigh. Everyone stayed silent for a bit. Bunny, Midnight started not believing her ears. Did you really start the investigation and get all this evidence in one day? Midnight asked, and Green Shadow nodded, a bit confused by their uneasiness. Well, young man, we are very grateful for all your help, but we need to discuss this with the authorities now, Best Genus said, and Green Shadow nodded in understanding. Dropping a smoke pellet, he disappeared by the time the smoke dispersed. Please tell me I'm not the only one fascinated by the ninja stunts, Ingenium said, and most teachers and even All Might nodded. After Green Shadow brought them the files, Nedzu had been poring over the security footage. There was evidence. So much evidence that Nedzu could likely get Aldera Junior High shut down within the hour. But Nedzu would never settle for a small victory in this case. His fur bristles, his teacup rattling as his paw shakes. These monsters will pay. They will make sure of that. Patience. Nedzu takes a deep breath. Anger will only make him sloppy. As frustrating as it is, Nedzu knows that this situation is delicate. If he acts carelessly, the Aldera district will burn the junior high to save the elementary and high school. He'll need a significant offense, preferably more than one. That would justify investigating the district itself and not the school. Criminals are much like bugs, Nedzu finds. The moment a threat presents itself, they scurry out of sight to continue another day. Nedzu will not give them that other day. And that's just Aldera. The rest of schools, the MLA and all of the followers are going to be hard to deal with. They must make the best battle strategy. A week later they were gathered again to discuss the matter more thoroughly. Ingenium and Best Genus couldn't make, but it was fine. As you all know, Destro's army was eventually defeated, and most of its members incarcerated. Nedzu responds. Most of, says Shouta. Nedzu nods. Indeed, Destro in fact had a son. A second wave of shock sweeps through the staff. It was the opinion of the government at the time that the child should not bear the sins of his father. Nedzu pulls several papers out of the file he placed on the desk. As it turns out, a closer eye perhaps was warranted. The survivors of his father's army thought he should carry Destro's legacy instead. They raised Destro's son, Rikiya Yatsubashi, to lead a new Meta Liberation Army, one which he has raised in secret. Everyone nods as they already knew that. But now they were wondering what to do to deal with the danger. This MLA are no joke after all. If Green Shadow considers it a threat, they believe it's of the highest caliber. As it turns out, the legal firm representing the Aldera staff is owned by the Detonaret Company, of which Yatsubashi is the CEO. Nedzu retrieves more papers from the file. There is also a tangible financial connection between each Aldera staff member and Detonaret. In other words, every member of staff is a member of this new MLA movement. It's a rather elegant plan. If they encounter students who have a reasonable chance at heroics, they groom the child to believe in MLA values. Meanwhile, the other students, when taken out of their influence, will feel oppressed when they are suddenly forced to follow public quirk use laws, likely finding their way to the MLA proper. All this info represented by Green Shadow over the past week, Nedzu explained. God bless the young vigilante and his ability to gather info. Now they had every indoctrination facility all over Japan. A hollow silence fills the room, the implications settling. How many? Asks Hizashi. Nedzu grimaces. Based on what I could find tracing financial records, 40,000, perhaps more. Fuck. Shouter runs a hand through his hair. Next to him, Hizashi's clenching his fists tight enough that his knuckles are completely white. Yagi coughs blood. Kayama looks sick, and Kan isn't far behind her. Were this a few years ago, I would offer to dismantle this Yatsubashi's insurrection myself, Yagi says. But I cannot say in confidence that 3 hours is enough time. 3 hours is plenty. Nedzu smiles. Sometimes, Shouta forgets that Nedzu is not only an animal, but an animal who has experienced some of the worst humanity has to offer. This smile reminds him, after all, we only need to worry about Yatsubashi himself. His army isn't our problem. Excuse me, Kan voiced. We are heroes, Kan, not soldiers. We do not fight in wars, Nedzu responds, his grin widening. We have a perfectly good military for that. And with that, the end of one of Japan's biggest threats was coming to an end. When Nedzu presented his case to the government, he almost immediately received support from the Ministry of Intelligence to identify MLA members, a task he took to with gusto. Names, addresses, ages, blood type. Nedzu found as much as he could on as many operatives as he could find. The operation was straightforward enough. Strike teams, with 2 heroes as backup as a precaution, would strike at Meta Liberation Army sympathizers across Japan in preparation for a final raid on Yatsubashi himself. Nimuri stands next to Kan, both in costume. Across the street, the Japanese military ambushes a small pack of MLA forces attempting to reach the airport on foot. Nedzu was right. They didn't even need us. Kan laughs, watching the soldiers subdue the last of the Meta Liberation soldiers as they attempted to flee down the street. Probably for the best that way. Heroes are public servants. Using us in armed conflict would set a dangerous precedent. Nimuri replies, that might be an interesting topic of discussion for my art history classes. True enough, Kan turns. I just hope everything goes this smoothly. Himiko and Katsuki were having lunch together to celebrate putting some bullies from high school in their place. It was almost too easy, but hey, who doesn't like to be treated to free desserts by the victims? It was a nice plus. We kicked their worthless weak asses so bad fangs. Katsuki chuckled. Yup, and today will only get better. Himiko exclaimed, and Katsuki raised a brow as she started a countdown. As she reached the 1 pro heroes and police officers raided the school and started arresting teachers and bullies left and right. Katsuki looked at the kitten cackling in front of him with that hot predatory grin and thought of one thing. I will fucking marry this girl, he silently declared. Destro straightens his jacket. Over the past 48 hours, his Meta Liberation Army has been besieged, and for the life of him, he has no idea who is responsible. MLA cells around Japan suddenly went dark. Reports from his supporters in executive positions stopped. Some of his more high-profile allies dropped off the map. His pro-hero supporters had been called away by the HPSC, then vanished. Someone had hit him hard and they hit him fast. Anyone sent to investigate never returned. Even Tomoyasu had vanished when he insisted on locating Hanabata. Too subtle for the Yakuza. Too quiet for the heroes. Too large-scale for a villain organization to go undetected. Government, Yatsubashi thought in confusion. No, I was too subtle. It would take the best of detectives to even know about, and then it clicked. Green Shadow, Yatsubashi growled. Kazuki, what's our status? He asks. Of his top brass, only he and Kazuki remained. The 2 of them had gone to ground at the central tower of Deku City, along with 5,000 soldiers. They were now one of a handful of Meta Liberation Army forces he could account for. We lost communications with another cell, the Hasu branch. No response since. She bites her thumb. What could possibly be happening out there? What indeed, Redistro mutters. The thought that his dear comrades may be lost brings tears to his eye. A shrill alarm blares throughout the tower. His soldiers whirl, looking to identify the source of the commotion. Sir, Kazuki calls, leaning close at her computer screen. We have visual. Who is it? It's... Kazuki's blue skin pales. It's the Japanese military. And with them is Endeavor and All Might. Oh, fuck. Enji scoffs, backhanding another so-called Metal Liberation soldier. He had been called out to deal with this rabble. Shadow could easily have handled a force this pathetic. Another group charges out from the central tower. Most of them fall to the soldiers' gunfire. Allegedly, the guns weren't lethal, some prototype being developed as riot equipment. In practice, these whelps were being used as live fire test dummies. He doesn't particularly care. He never saw the point of letting a villain live to strike again. Another way he did a better job than that blonde oaf beside him. But he stopped killing villains in fear of that down demon the people call Japan's guardian. Take care of the fodder, he barks to All Might. I'll push through and take Yatsubashi. Endeavor, wait. The All Might bellows, but Enji ignores him. He runs ahead, wreathing his right hand in flames. Once he's close enough to the approaching force, he slams his fist into the ground. Raging assault. Hell minefield. The ground erupts from underneath the Metal Liberation soldiers. He smirks, with no time to evade. The enemies fly backwards from the blast. His opening created, Enji rushes forward, slamming a burning fist against the occasional enemy. Soon, he finds himself at the base of the central tower. Standing just outside is his target, Yatsubashi Rikiya. The CEO glares at Enji, but he refuses to be cowed by a mere insect. It's time I showed that fool what a real hero looks like, Enji says, sliding into a battle stance. With your defeat, I begin the liberation of Japan. Yatsubashi strides forward, loosening his tie. Enji shifts his weight, concentrating the flames on his hand. Flash fire fist, jet burn. He punches forward, a burst of heat blasting forward and engulfing Yatsubashi. Enji keeps the fire going. Underestimating the leader of the revived Metal Liberation Army could get him killed. The seconds tick by, the roaring heat in front of him pressing his limits. Enji pants, forcing a super move so far immediately after using his hell minefield pushed him further than he'd expected. No matter, he'd already won. The flames flicker and die. And Enji grins, expecting to see the downed form of his opponent. Instead, he sees a monster, a black, hulking figure looking down his nose at him. 80% liberation. This is 80% of my stress made into physical power, Endeavor. Isn't it glorious? This is my meta ability. The monster swipes an arm at Enji, and he barely pulls himself out of the way. Physical force isn't going to slow this thing down. He launches dozens of small fire blasts at the transformed Yatsubashi. The muscle-bound man winces and the fire burns through his clothes. But Enji can tell the man's quirk hasn't increased, only his offense. Probably resists just about everything like that. Damn, Enji ignites his flames again. But before he can react, a wave of flashing black overwhelms him. Stress output burden. The wave smashes into Enji, launching him back. He slams into the ground and bounces, rolling further and further away. His careening body smashes straight through wall after wall. He tries to use his fire as propulsion to stop himself, but as out of control as he is, it takes his all just to slow down. Finally, he tumbles to a stop against a wall, deep inside some office building. Enji struggles, pushing himself to his feet, but his body refuses, and he collapses once more. The last thing he sees before fading to black is the rebar sticking through his side. It's been 10 minutes since All Might and Endeavor arrived in Deku City backed by the Japanese military. There is still no word as to what led the military to call in hero reinforcements. But we have confirmed reports that over the past 2 days, Japanese military forces have launched raids on locations around Japan. On screen, about a dozen people rush out of the tower at the heart of Deku, followed by a dozen more, charging straight towards the heroes and soldiers. The newscaster tries to remain neutral as she watches the newcomers unleash their quirks against the joint forces. But when the soldiers return fire, she breaks. And the soldiers are responding with, oh God. She trails off as the tower's defenders fall. Endeavor abandons his military escort and All Might, charging through the crowd to where? Isn't that the CEO of that lifestyle support company? The newswoman asks. Detonarant. Izuku growled. Endeavor's flashfire fist does absolutely nothing as the spindly-suited man swells and grows with muscle. Izuku watches from the large screen in his study with a raised brow. So that's what it takes to beat you, Enji? Izuku thought, shaking his head. The attention-seeker went after Yatsubashi and got himself humiliated. No wonder he was losing PR. Illogical, arrogant fool. Izuku sighed in exasperation. You think Endeavor will pull through, sir? Alfred asked, and Izuku nodded. Without a doubt. He'll live and I'll get to put him behind bars, Izuku said nonchalantly, and Alfred nodded, handing him a cup of coffee he gratefully accepted. Toshinori smacks another goon into a wall, eyeing him long enough to know he won't get back up. The ground rumbles, and he looks up in time to see a massive wave of black energy send Endeavor flying. From the corner of his eye, Toshinori sees the soldiers faltering behind him. There's a perfect pause, a moment of calm on the battlefield as everyone gawks. Then a cheer carries on the wind from the Metal Liberation Forces. Friends and comrades. The crowd cheers again. And Toshinori knows the voice. It's been featured in commercials for years now. Yatsubashi, Toshinori snarls. Forward steps a giant, bound in dark muscle. Toshinori can barely recognize the man he is here to defeat. We are on the back foot now, yes. But now, your Grand Commander Redistro has taken to the field himself. Do not lose heart, for this is the era of the Metal Liberation Army. In the name of my father and his ideals, our true freedom is at hand. Not so, Toshinori roars. Your freedom comes at the price of millions of children around Japan, discarded and destroyed because they have no value to your philosophy. Toshinori takes a step forward, bustling with energy. What would you know about that? Yatsubashi snarls. Have you not heard of Aldera, fiend? All Might calls. Yatsubashi's giant form stiffens. You claim to be for the freedom of quirks, and yet your followers encourage the abuse of innocent children because they weren't born to your standards. Your creed is nothing more than an excuse to further your own power. No child will ever be hurt that way again. The fact an entire chain of school districts neglected their duty of care in favor of this man fills Toshinori with incandescent rage. He takes another step, and the Metal Liberation soldiers step back. The tyranny of your so-called true freedom will never come to pass. Why? Toshinori launches himself forward, rearing back his fist as the goons between the two titans scramble out of the way. Because I am here. All Might roared in more rage than he ever felt in his life. Deep underground, a man with no eyes listens as his doctor watches the news. It's been a long time since One for All has fought against an organized front, he muses. It's almost nostalgic for the battles he waged against my allies in the years leading up to our duel. Maybe he'll take a blow to the other side, his doctor suggests. Symmetry and all that. All for One laughs at the imagery. Katsuki scoffed as he was watching the news with his future girlfriend in his house. Yes, future, because later he'll see how to steal this hot predatory bitch's heart, but now he was focusing on the fight. So what if Long Nose has a bit of strength? Nerd doesn't have a damn quirk and he beat over 100 shitty extras in one night. All Might will win fucking guaranteed. Katsuki thought casually. Katsuki scowls. The reporter, the extras on the field, even his parents are acting like this is some big deal. But Himeko seems as bored and confident as he is. Another point for her. At least he will enjoy watching the villain getting smashed into next week. Punch for punch, hit for hit, blow for blow, Yatsubashi is there. Their fists collide with every strike, shockwaves radiating from the two combatants. You would truly go so far for one quirkless? Yatsubashi howls over the clashing. Always, I'm sick of watching heroes like you be praised for your meta abilities when my army is ostracized for the same. Yatsubashi screams, his form increasing still. Stress, 100%. The man's blows come down harder and harder, and Toshinori puts everything he has into intercepting them. Each strike forces him back, his feet sinking through the street. The shock reverberates through his bones. Toshinori grits his teeth, smacking another punch away. Yatsubashi sneers, clutching both fists together and bringing them down on Toshinori's back. He coughs out spittle, barely blocking the follow-up hit to the chest. Toshinori flies back a good 5 meters, skidding against the ground. You called this stress, 100%, correct? Toshinori says. This is you at your strongest then. It is indeed. Behold, the full might of the Metal Liberation Army's Grand Commander. So that punch just now. Toshinori surreptitiously wipes the blood from his chin. That was the best you have? Toshinori glares, signature grin unwavering. Yatsubashi gawks, instinctively taking a step back. Seeing his moment, Toshinori charges once more, landing a clean hit into Yatsubashi's side. The Grand Commander howls but braces himself before he can be knocked back. Toshinori swings a left hook, but Yatsubashi is already moving to block it. Once more, they are matched blow for blow. Black energy swirls up from both of Yatsubashi's oversized fists. And Toshinori recognizes the attack that launched Endeavor. He's planning on ending this in the next hit. Stress output burden. Yatsubashi yells, swinging his arms forward in a wide arc, the black energy trailing. My opening. Texas smash. Toshinori surges a right hook straight into Yatsubashi's stomach. Wind roars out, through Yatsubashi and beyond into the Deku Central Tower. The twin black waves erupt out in a V-shape, leveling building after building. Skyscrapers fall like chopped trees. Smoke, dust, and debris fog the streets. The silence is heard across Japan. Slowly, the breeze lifts the clouds of dirt. Yatsubashi Rikia is pressed into a crater in the wall of the Deku Central Tower. Slowly, he slips and falls to the ground, unconscious, and All Might is still standing. He raises a single fist and laughs, the sound echoing across Deku City. The soldiers raise their guns and cheer. The Metal Liberation Forces, those that are still standing, that is, see their leader defeated and turn tail. Tashinori lets them. After all, there are only so many ways in and out of Deka. Their own defenses now trap them. Tashinori gives one last look at the ruins of Deka City, the grave of Destro's ideals. The Metal Liberation Army is no more.